हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज की वीडियो में मैं एक नॉवल स्टार्ट करने वाला हूँ और ये नॉवल आपको बहुत पसंद आएगा गाइस, क्योंकि इसी सेम राइटर का मैंने अपने फर्स्ट चैनल में एक बार वीडियो डाला था। यानी कि दो गो नॉवल डाला था यही राइटर का। वो दोनों पॉपुलर हुआ था, दोनों 5 के क्रॉस कर दिया था और अराउंड उसका 4 to 5 है ना चैप्टर्स मैंने डाला था, यानी 4 to 5 है ना स्टोरी डाला था। वो सभी के सभी पॉपुलर गए थे, सभी 2K से ऊपर ही गए थे। तो आप समझ सकते हैं गाइस, और ये वही राइटर है। तो बिना किसी देरी के चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं।
Chapter 1. Oh, honest child, all three Huo Yuhaos are given to you. On the outskirts of the Stardo Great Forest, a little-known stream. Lin Feng lay lazily at the bottom of the river, looking through the clear river water at the schools of fish swimming above him. He had already arrived in this world of Douluo continent for more than half a month. According to his system prompts, it was currently the period of the Peerless Tang clan when the plot had not yet begun. As a transmigrator, Lin Feng also had a prestigious identity, which was that of a glorious river god. His ability was the Golden Axe and Silver Axe. Any person or item that fell into the river under Lin Feng's jurisdiction could be split into three. Then, he would ask the owner a question. As long as the other party made an honest choice, they could take all three away. If they lied and coveted a better one, they would end up with nothing. As a little river god, Lin Feng had many restrictions, such as only being able to move around in this stream. Fortunately, he had found a system. As long as he caused the world line to deviate, he could obtain rewards. The greater the deviation, the more generous the rewards. Therefore, Lin Feng's goal was extremely clear from the very beginning: mess with Huo Yuhao. If he wanted to make this world line deviate, there was nothing faster than messing with Huo Yuhao. Lin Feng knew that soon, Huo Yuhao would escape from the White Tiger Duke's mansion to the Stardo Great Forest and meet two key figures here, Tangya and Beibei. Just as Lin Feng was pondering how much longer he had to wait, a youth of about 11 or 12 years old, with short blue hair and a delicate face, appeared by the riverbank. Was this Huo Yuhao? It was quite similar to what he had imagined. Lin Feng was able to determine the identity of the youth before him mainly because the youth had a pair of azure and quite attractive eyes. Lin Feng's spirit instantly perked up. Having traveled all the way, he should be hungry by now, right? Come and catch fish. The fish here were very plump and fresh. Lin Feng directly made a few fish float on the water surface to ensure that Huo Yuhao could see them. Huo Yuhao first vigilantly observed his surroundings, then cast his gaze onto those few fish, a flash of excitement erupting in his eyes. Come quickly. Lin Feng excitedly rubbed his hands underwater. Water ghost number 1 was ready. Huo Yuhao took off his shoes and socks, carefully rolled up his trouser legs, and stepped into the icy river water. His movements were very light, afraid of disturbing those fish that looked less than smart, while simultaneously using his spirit to assist himself. Just as Huo Yuhao concentrated his attention entirely on a fat fish closest to him, preparing to pounce, Lin Feng took action. He couldn't even be bothered to set up any complex traps. With a slight movement of his divine force, a gentle yet irresistible huge suction force instantly came from beneath Huo Yuhao's feet. Huo Yuhao only felt his feet slip, as if his ankles were grabbed by an invisible giant hand and violently yanked downwards. Plop. The youth didn't even have time to let out a cry of surprise before he lost his balance and was instantly dragged into the depths of the river. Beibei, do you think our Tang sect can really be revitalized? Tangya walked while somewhat dejectedly kicking the pebbles by her feet. Beibei smiled gently and reached out to ruffle her hair. Teacher Xiaoya, of course we can. As long as we are still here, the Tang sect is still here. But right now there are only 2 of us. It doesn't matter, we can always find a third and a fourth. The Tang sect is so famous, even if it's not as good as before, there will definitely still be people willing to join. Beibei comforted Tangya. As the two were talking, Tangya's gaze inadvertently swept across the riverbank not far away. She saw a youth groping for something in the river, but the second after, that youth vanished abruptly from the surface of the water as if he had been dragged down by something, leaving behind only a continually expanding circle of ripples. Beibei, look quickly, someone has fallen into the water over there. Tangya's expression changed, and she cried out in alarm, immediately rushing toward the riverbank. Beibei's reaction was even faster. Almost the instant Tangya's voice fell, he transformed into a blurry afterimage, reaching the riverbank within a few breaths. However, the surface of the river had already returned to calm. Where was there still any trace of that youth? How could this be? Beibei knitted his brows tightly, instantly releasing his spirit power as he tried to perceive the situation underwater. Tangya rushed over anxiously, looked at the calm river surface, and hurriedly asked, where is the person? He was clearly right here just a moment ago. According to common sense, even if someone drowned, they shouldn't lose all sound and breath so quickly. Are there ghosts in this river? Beibei frowned and intended to enter the water to save the person. Suddenly, with a loud crash of splash, the water surface in the middle of the river violently burst open, and a figure slowly rose from the water. That was a young man wearing simple and unadorned white robes. His dark hair was like a waterfall, and his face was so handsome that he didn't seem like a mortal. His gaze was calm and profound, and the corners of his mouth carried a gentle smile. He hovered above the water surface, with not the slightest ripple beneath his feet. Oh, young sect master of Tang sect Tilda, is this golden-haired Huo Yuhao the one you dropped? Finishing these words, Lin Feng instantly lifted a youth from the water. The youth had short, neat golden hair, and his entire body exuded a sacred, majestic, and righteous temperament, akin to a born king. Beibei's eyes instantly turned vigilant. Who on earth was this fellow, and how did he actually know Tangya's identity? Could it be that group of people? With a thought in his mind, Beibei unassumingly stepped in front of Tangya. Tangya directly ignored that form of address, placing her attention on the golden Huo Yuhao. Although she hadn't seen Huo Yuhao's face clearly, she had still seen the color of his hair. No, that's not it. Tangya shook her head, yet there was still a trace of doubt in her heart. Could it be that someone else had fallen into the water? But this golden-haired youth was clearly still breathing. If he had fallen into the water earlier, he probably would have died already. Then is this black-haired Huo Yuhao the one you dropped? As he spoke, a youth who looked identical to that golden Huo Yuhao appeared in Lin Feng's right hand. Although there was some disparity in their build, their faces were the same, but the temperament emitted from this Huo Yuhao made people feel very uncomfortable. Was this some kind of mental type spirit ability? Or was it that the 3 brothers had actually jumped into the water one after another just now, and they had only seen one? Did those 3 brothers jump into the river together just now? Tangya looked at the Huo Yuhao in Lin Feng's hands with somewhat pitying eyes. Exactly what kind of desperate things must they have experienced for 3 brothers to jump into the river together? As for whatever hair color Huo Yuhao that Lin Feng mentioned, she directly ignored it. After all, according to a normal person's thoughts, who would turn into 3 people just from jumping into a river? No, not at all, young sect master of Tang sect, you only dropped one Huo Yuhao tilde. Is this black-haired Huo Yuhao the one you dropped? Lin Feng continued looking at Tang Yao with a smiling expression. No. Tang Yao still had many little question marks in her heart, but being asked like this by Lin Feng, she chose to answer truthfully. Then is this blue-haired Huo Yuhao the one you dropped? Lin Feng brought out the third Huo Yuhao, which was the normal Huo Yuhao. Compared to the other 2 Huo Yuhaos, this Huo Yuhao could be said to be quite thin and small, and his aura was also much weaker. Who on earth was this fellow before them? Bei frowned as he sized up Lin Feng in front of him. Lin Feng exuded strangeness everywhere, yet within his own perception, Lin Feng seemed just like an ordinary person. Bei's reason told him that the youth before him had unfathomable strength, and it was best not to anger this fellow. It is this child. Tang Yao nodded. She had seen with her own eyes this child fall into the river. She had completely no idea about the situation of the other 2. She originally thought there were 3 brothers, but there was only one, and her mind was in a complete mess. Upon hearing Tang Yao's reply, Lin Feng's face revealed an incomparably brilliant and appreciative smile. He clapped his hands in praise and said, "You truly are an honest good child. To reward your honesty, these 3 Huo Yuhaos will all be given to you." Just as his voice fell, Lin Feng flicked his arm upward, as if he were throwing 3 sandbags. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 Huo Yuhaos, golden, black, and normal, traced 3 parabolas in the air. Accompanied by 3 dull thuds of plop, plop, and plop, they landed neatly and squarely on the grass in front of Bei and Tang Yao. Having finished all this, Lin Feng patted his hands in satisfaction, gave a thumbs up to Bei and Tang Yao who had completely turned to stone, and his body slowly sank backward into the water. Farewell, honest people. Accompanied by a breezy farewell, his figure completely vanished beneath the water surface, leaving behind only an imperceptible ripple, as if he had never appeared at all. Meanwhile, in Lin Feng's mind, the long-awaited sound of celestial music rang out. Ding, detected that the world line has undergone a massive deviation. The existence form of the Son of Destiny, Huo Yuhao, has undergone a fundamental change. Deviation level, extremely high. Reward settling in progress. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the rewards. River God Domain range expanded by 1,000 times. Divine Force Origin, 10. God bestowed Spirit Ring *9. Woohoo, take off. ... Bei and Tang Yao blankly looked at the 3 Huo Yuhaos on the ground. That person had actually given all 3 people to them. That normal Huo Yuhao slowly woke up, coughed up a few mouthfuls of river water, and blankly opened his eyes. Then, he saw, himself, sitting to his left, also propping up his body. That, himself, had a head of golden hair, and his golden pupils were filled with nobility and majesty as he frowned and sized up his own hands. Next, he saw another, himself, sitting to his right, also sitting up. That, himself, had a head of black hair, and enchanting purple eyes scanned the surroundings with keen interest. The arched curve at the corner of his mouth made people shudder. 3 Huo Yuhaos, 6 eyes, you look at me, I look at you, staring at each other blankly. The golden-haired Huo Yuhao, who are you guys? The black-haired Huo Yuhao, hey, interesting. The normal Huo Yuhao, ah. Chapter 2, you are going to help me obtain a spirit ring. Reversing the cosmic order. An eerie silence permeated the air, and Bei and Tang Yao felt as though their worldview had taken 100 million little hits. The 3 of them looked identical, yet their temperaments were vastly different. Were they really not the 3 river-jumping brothers? The blonde teenager took the lead in breaking the silence, his voice deep and magnetic. My name is Huo Yuhao. The black-haired teenager scoffed, a playful light swirling in his purple eyes. Huo Yu, hey, how interesting. Only the blue-haired Huo Yuhao remained. He cautiously looked at the 2 people beside him, then spoke weakly. My name is Huo Yuhao. 3 names, 3 identical faces, and 6 eyes intersecting in the air. A feeling of blood connection originating from the depths of the soul quietly rose in their hearts. They did not know why the others had appeared, but they knew that there was an inseparable connection between them. This, what on earth is going on? Tang Yao's brain had completely crashed, and she looked at Bei for help, hoping Bei could give a reasonable explanation. However, Bei's expression was not much better than hers. He frowned tightly. The scene before him had completely exceeded the scope of his cognition. What kind of spirit ability could turn one person into 3, and make every single one look like an independent entity? And what on earth was the background of that eerie fellow, who had created 3 people and then left without saying a word? Right at this moment, Huo Yuhao, who bore the bearing of the eldest brother, spoke up. He stood up, his gaze sweeping over Huo Yu and Huo Yuhao, and said in a deep voice, we do not know why we were born, but fate has allowed us to meet here. The feeling of blood connection cannot be wrong. From now on, we are 3 brothers with different bodies but one heart. He extended his hand, looking at the other 2, his tone firm. I am the eldest brother, Huo Yuhao. You are the second brother, Huo Yu. You are the third brother, Huo Yuhao. The 3 of us brothers shall forge a world of our own on this continent together. A playful smile appeared on Huo Yu's face, and he reached out to place his hand on top. That sounds much more interesting than being alone. Huo Yuhao looked at the scene before him, and his eyes instantly turned red. Ever since he was little, he had suffered bullying and had never felt the affection of brothers. And now, 2 older brothers had suddenly appeared, looking quite reliable, and their tone was full of sincerity. A huge wave of warmth surged into his heart, and he could no longer hold back, sobbing as he placed his hand on top. Eldest brother. Second brother. Good, good, good. River god Lin Feng excitedly waved his fists underwater, and the deviation degree on the system panel was soaring wildly. If Tang San wants to scheme against Huo Yuhao, one daughter is simply not enough. Haha, should I also change the sex of Xiao Wu and myself, send them down, and then have a Chang'an creation trial? 3 little brothers. Tang Ya hurriedly stepped forward, her face brimming with the most sincere and enthusiastic smile. I am Tang Ya, the sect master of the Tang sect, and this is my eldest disciple, Bei. I see that the 3 brothers have deep bonds and lofty ambitions. I wonder, are you interested in joining our Tang sect? She began to paint a blueprint. Although our Tang sect has few people now, it was once the #1 sect of the continent. As long as we work together with one heart, revitalizing the glory of the Tang sect is just around the corner. The 3 of you brothers can just become the cornerstone of our Tang sect's revival. Hearing this, a trace of yearning flickered in Huo Yuhao's eyes. Tang sect, he was well acquainted with this name. That was a legendary sect, even if it had fallen into decline, being able to join such a place seemed like an exceptionally good destination. However, Bei quietly pulled at Tang Ya's sleeve, lowering his voice. Teacher Xiaoya, this matter needs to be discussed at length. The origins of these 3 people are far too eerie, and their character is not yet known, we cannot easily. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao nodded slightly toward Tang Yao with a polite attitude. Thank you for Sect Master Tang Yao's kind intentions, but the three of us brothers prefer to be unfettered and use our own strength to explore this world, and temporarily do not wish to join any sect. His words resonated with power, carrying a natural kingly demeanor that made people unable to refute. The trace of yearning that Huo Yuhao had just ignited was instantly overridden by his eldest brother's decision. He thought about it. What the eldest brother said was right. Rather than living under someone else's roof, it seemed much more gratifying for the three brothers to venture out together. He immediately solidified his stance and stood behind Huo Yuhao. As for Huo Yu, he lazily yawned, as if he had no interest in the Tang sect at all. The smile on Tang Yao's face stiffened, and her heart was filled with regret. She still wanted to fight for it a bit more, but seeing Huo Yuhao's firm gaze, she knew that saying more was useless, and could only sigh. All right, everyone has their own ambitions, I won't force it. Then, what are your plans next? The three of his brothers do not have spirit rings yet, so we plan to obtain spirit rings and become true spirit masters. Huo Yuhao said calmly. Obtain spirit rings. Tang Ya's eyes lit up again. That's perfect. Bei Bei and I are also here to obtain my third spirit ring. We can go together, and it'll be easier to look out for each other along the way. However, Huo Yuhao shook his head once more, uttering words that nearly turned Bei Bei and Tang Ya to stone on the spot. No. Huo Yuhao's gaze looked at Tang Ya gently and sincerely. It should be the three of his brothers helping Sect Master Tang Ya obtain a spirit ring first. Tang Ya, ah. Bei Bei, come. The two of them were completely dumbfounded. What kind of operation was this? Reversing the cosmic order. Two spirit masters like them needed three ordinary people who didn't even have spirit rings to help. Huo Yuhao seemed to see through their doubts, explaining in a calm tone, if not for Sect Master Tang Ya making an honest choice today, the three of his brothers would not have sworn brotherhood here. This kindness ought to be repaid by us first. Please be sure to give us a chance to return it. These words were well-grounded and full of true affection, leaving Tang Ya and Bei Bei at a loss for how to refuse for a moment. Bei Bei took a deep breath. He still felt this matter was too absurd, and frowned. Little brother Huo Yuhao, we accept your good intentions, but hunting spirit beasts is no child's play. You haven't obtained spirit rings yet and have no spirit abilities, how can you? Who says that without spirit abilities, one cannot help? Huo Yuhao smiled calmly. He slowly raised his head, and that pair of golden eyes instantly burst with brilliant light. A singular phantom of a vertical pupil, seemingly composed of countless golden light patterns, flashed and disappeared before his forehead. My spirit is named, I have sanctioned. An invisible coercion spread out, causing Bei Bei and Tang Ya's hearts to chill, and they heard Huo Yuhao continue. Even without a spirit ring, my eye of sanction can launch a brief gaze, enough to plunge any enemy into 0.5 seconds of absolute imprisonment. 0.5 seconds. Bei Bei's pupils shrank sharply. For ordinary people, 0.5 seconds was nothing more than the blink of an eye, but for Spirit Master's battle, this 0.5 seconds of absolute imprisonment was enough to change the battlefield situation or even determine life and death. This was simply a divine skill. Huo Yuhao looked at his eldest brother's high-spirited appearance, and then thought of his own spirit, which seemed to have no combat power aside from seeing a bit farther and a bit more detailed. A feeling of envy and inferiority welled up spontaneously, and he silently lowered his head. Huo Yuhao keenly sensed the emotional change in his third brother. He turned around, placed his hand on Huo Yuhao's shoulder, and said in a gentle voice, "Third brother, there is no need to feel lost. Our spirits are body spirits and have the chance to awaken. Even if our innate spirit power is insufficient, we can make up for the spirit power defects through various immortal herbs and precious medicines." These words were like an enlightenment, instantly dispelling the haze in Huo Yuhao's heart. He nodded heavily, and confidence rekindled in his eyes. Yes, eldest brother. With Huo Yuhao's miraculous eye of sanction as a trump card, along with Huo Yu's ghostly movement technique and precise grasp of timing, Tang Ya's process of obtaining her third spirit ring went unimaginably smoothly. Little brother Huo Yuhao, thanks to you guys this time. Next, let us help you obtain your spirit rings. Bei Bei said sincerely. His view of these three brothers had completely changed, especially since if Huo Yuhao could join Shrek Academy, he would definitely become one of the future rising stars of Shrek Academy. No need. Huo Yuhao politely declined once more. True tempering requires relying on one's own hands to strive. Our brother's path has only just begun. Their attitude was incomparably firm. Knowing they could enforce them to stay, Bei Bei and Tang Ya could only let it go with regret, and the two sides parted ways on the outskirts of the Stardew Great Forest. Watching Tang Ya and Bei Bei go into the distance, Huo Yuhao turned around, looking at the boundless forest, full of high spirits. The three brothers walked side by side into the depths of the dense forest, their figures soon swallowed by the lush branches and leaves. They did not know how long they had walked when suddenly a voice of exhaustion and wild joy exploded without warning within the spiritual seas of the three. A million years. Finally, I, the heavenly silkworm, have waited for a spiritual attribute host. Why are there three all of a sudden? Chapter 3. Tianmeng I Silkworm. You transform for me too. Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu reacted to the extreme, instantly protecting Huo Yuhao in the middle from left and right. The three of them stood back to back, striking the most vigilant defensive posture. Their scalps tingled numbly. To be able to transmit sound directly into the spiritual sea without them noticing at all, such strength was definitely an existence they currently could not contend with. Just as they were tensely on guard, the bushes not far ahead wrestled, and immediately afterwards, a creature hard to describe in words slowly crawled out. That was a giant silkworm that was crystal clear throughout, as if carved from ice crystal. Its body presented a white jade color, and on its head was a pair of glittering golden eyes. Starting half a meter from the head, there was a circling golden stripe at intervals, totaling 10 circles. However, what made the three brothers feel the most discordant was the face of this giant silkworm. The small eyes on that huge, round head were staring fixedly at them. On its huge insect face, it revealed an extremely humanized dazed expression mixed with wild joy and extreme confusion. A speaking spirit beast. Huo Yuhao's voice carried a trace of trembling. Huo Yuhao's gaze was unprecedentedly solemn. Once a spirit beast could speak human words, it was at least a fierce beast that had cultivated for over 100,000 years. How could an existence of this level appear on the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest? This made no scientific sense. Huo Yu's gaze was icy, and dangerous light flashed within his purple pupils. If the situation was wrong, he would strike first, even if it were futile. River God Lin Feng crossed his legs in the water, watching this scene through the projection of divine force, looking just like watching a 3D blockbuster in a movie theater. It's coming, the protagonist's first cheat is credited. But this time it seems a bit different. Tianmeng, do you want to also come with the one chi transforms three purities? Tianmeng I Silkworm obviously also came back to its senses from the initial days. Looking at the three nervous youths in front of it with identical spiritual attributes, it cleared its throat and spoke in a vicissitudinous and tragic tone. Three youths, do not be nervous, I have no malicious intent. It began its own tragic speech, from falling into an ice crevice and encountering 10,000-year cold marrow, muddle-headedly living to 1 million years, to its time limit approaching and being hunted down by various terrifying fierce beasts, fleeing here with no other way out. Quote. Therefore, I need a host, a spiritual attribute host, to carry my million-year cultivation and wisdom, to merge with me and become an unprecedented wise spirit ring. And you are the perfect candidates I dream of. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm used its pair of small golden eyes to scan back and forth across the three people full of anticipation. So which of you three is willing to become the owner of the million-year spirit ring? Tianmeng Ice Silkworm itself was actually troubled too. After all, for so many years, it had never found a suitable spiritual attribute spirit master, and now 3 matching ones appeared at once. Huo Yuhao listened in dumbfounded amazement. A million-year spirit ring? What concept was this? He was so nervous his heart was about to jump out. Just at this moment, Huo Yuhao spoke in a deep voice. He glanced at the third brother beside him who was obviously a bit lacking in confidence, and said in an unquestionable tone, in that case, why not let the spirit ring go to the third brother? Big brother. Huo Yuhao abruptly raised his head, looking at Huo Yuhao in disbelief. A trace of warmth leaked from Huo Yuhao's golden pupils. Third brother, your innate spirit power is only rank 1, which is your biggest shortcoming. If your first spirit ring is at the million-year level, it is enough to make up for all your flaws. The innate spirit power of me and the second brother is both rank 10. Even if the first spirit ring is not a million years, we will still be invincible in the world. Besides, we are brothers and should progress together. An unprecedented warm current instantly breached all the defense lines in Huo Yuhao's heart, and his eye sockets turned red once again. Was this an older brother? Was this the feeling of family? In front of such a huge temptation, the first person Big Brother thought of turned out to be himself. I disagree. An icy voice interrupted this touching atmosphere. Huo Yu crossed his arms, cunning light flashing within his evil, charming purple pupils. He glanced at Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, then looked at Huo Yuhao, his mouth hooking into a playful arc. Big brother, did you forget how we appeared? Huo Yuhao was slightly stunned, then sharp light flashed in his eyes. You mean? That's right. Huo Yu was concise and comprehensive. Since one Huo Yuhao can turn into 3, why can't one Tianmeng Ice Silkworm turn into 3? As soon as these words came out, the whole audience fell silent. Huo Yuhao's moved emotions were instantly replaced by shock. Right, there was still this kind of operation. On that huge insect face of Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, the dazed expression surfaced once again, even 3 parts richer than just now. 3, what nonsense are you guys talking? Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, which hadn't read anyone's memory yet, was still in a dazed state at this moment. A million-year spirit beast was already one of a kind, and the 3 little ghosts in front of it still wanted 3 to split equally. What pipe dreams were they having? However, Huo Yuhao and Huo Yuhao had been completely conquered by this genius-like idea. The 2 looked at each other and nodded simultaneously. Just do it like this. Let's go. Without a word, the 3 brothers turned around and walked towards the direction they came from. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm was completely dumbfounded. This script wasn't right. Shouldn't the 3 of you brothers fight over me? Even mutual modesty would be fine. How did it turn into you guys wanting to take me somewhere? It was full of question marks, but looking at the backs of the 3, a strong curiosity drove it, and in the end it still wriggled its huge body and followed. Very quickly, they returned once again to that unremarkable small riverbank. Huo Yu pointed at the calm river surface and said concisely to Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, jump down. Tianmeng Ice Silkworm. It lowered its head to look at this crystal clear small river with a depth of less than 5 meters, and its heart was filled with disdain. What a joke, this heavenly silkworm was a million-year spirit beast, let alone a small river, even an ocean couldn't drown me. What on earth are you guys playing at? Our 3 brothers appeared just like this. If you jump down, you can also split into 3. Anyway, jumping down won't drown you. After hearing this, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm's big golden eyes instantly widened roundly. Its brain that had lived for a million years spun at high speed, and a bold idea surfaced in its heart. What if the other 2, me, S split out were even more powerful than me? Then with the 3 of us brothers joining forces, what was there to fear from DTN or the 10 great fierce beasts? We could directly walk sideways in the Stardew Great Forest. This temptation was simply too huge. Plop. With a loud crash, Tianmeng Ice Silkworm didn't hesitate at all, its huge body directly smashing into the small river and splashing towering splashes of water. Woohoo, business is here again. Lin Feng snapped his fingers at the bottom of the water, and a familiar BGM seemed to ring in his ears. He slowly rose from the water, his white clothes purer than snow, graceful and suave, with a gentle and eccentric smile hanging at the corner of his mouth. Oh young Huo Yuhao, is this golden Tianmeng Ice Silkworm the one you dropped? As soon as his voice fell, his left hand hoisted up a large silkworm whose entire body presented a brilliant golden color. The golden eyes of this silkworm were filled with endless arrogance and majesty, as if it were a holy beast of the god realm. It disdainfully glanced at the 3 brothers on the shore, and then proudly raised its head. Not this one. The 3 brothers spoke in unison, honest to the max. Oh. Lin Feng nodded in praise. Then is this silver-white Tianmeng Ice Silkworm the one you dropped? His right hand then hoisted out a large silkworm that was almost completely transparent, whose faint silver outline could only be seen under the light. This silkworm's aura was extremely obscure, as if it could merge into one with the air at any time. Its silver eyes were filled with timidity and shyness, and the moment it was hoisted out, it desperately tried to shrink behind Lin Feng. Also not this one. Then, is this ordinary Tianmeng Ice Silkworm the one you dropped? Lin Feng hoisted up the main body Tianmeng Ice Silkworm, which was still flailing in the water with a dazed face. Yes, it's this one. Hearing this answer, an incomparably brilliant smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He raised his thumb and praised loudly. You truly are a group of honest good kids. To reward your honesty, these 3 Tianmeng Ice Silkworms will all be given to you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 giant baby silkworms traced 3 perfect parabolas in the air, smashing onto the grass with bang, bang, bang sounds, stirring up a patch of dust. Lin Feng contentedly sank into the water, and a sound of nature rang out in his mind. Ding, detected that the world line has undergone an epic level deviation. The form of the child of destiny's first cheat has undergone a fundamental change. Deviation level, extremely high. Reward settlement in progress. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the reward. Super Artifact River God Staff, strength upgraded to the God King level. Chapter 4, the first cheat acquired. On the grass, 3 giant ice silkworms lay neatly side by side, creating a scene that was once both spectacular and bizarre. The 3 brothers, Huo Yuhao, Huo Yu, and Huo Yuhao, stood opposite them, looking at the scene before them with hearts full of joy and a trace of absurdity. One Huo Yuhao could turn into 3, and one Tianmeng Ice Silkworm could also turn into 3. This river god was simply even more useful than a wishing machine. The one on the far left was entirely bright gold, as if cast from pure gold, and it was precisely that golden Tianmeng Ice silkworm. At this moment, he was proudly lifting his head, his golden eyes filled with contempt for all things in the world. Although he looked similar to the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, his inherent aura of sanctity and nobility was completely different. The one on the far right was entirely silver white, nearly transparent, and almost fused with the surrounding air if one didn't look closely. This was the silver Tianmeng Ice silkworm. Completely opposite to the domineering aura of the golden one, his whole body exuded an aura of, don't look at me, don't mind me, I know nothing. His huge body trembled violently, wishing he could shrink himself into a silver ball and roll into a crack in the ground. Sandwiched in the middle was precisely the original Tianmeng Ice silkworm. It looked at the itself on the left that had appeared out of thin air and acted all arrogant, and then looked at the itself on the right that was so cowardly it was about to evaporate in place. Its huge worm face was full of distress and vigilance. Lin Feng was cracking melon seeds at the bottom of the water, watching with great relish. Oh ho, a family ethical drama is starting. An arrogant eldest brother, an autistic second brother, plus a miserable third brother. Somewhat interesting. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm struggled for a long time, and finally decided to state its grand plan first. It cleared its throat and tried to speak to the other two versions of itself in a tone full of majesty and the spirit of solidarity. Ahem, two brothers. Since we have met by chance, we must unite, and our goal is... Shut up. A cold and arrogant voice directly interrupted it. The speaker was none other than the Golden Dream silkworm. He couldn't even be bothered to turn his head to look at the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, and simply said indifferently. My name is Golden Dream. To associate with mortals like you is already my greatest humiliation. Do not use those foolish words to pollute my ears again. Tianmeng Ice silkworm. The three brothers. Unwilling to give up, the Tianmeng Ice silkworm cast its gaze toward the silver-white dream silkworm. Feeling its gaze, the silver-white dream silkworm trembled even more violently, burying its head directly into the grass and executing a standard ostrich sand burial. The heart of the Tianmeng Ice silkworm grew ice cold. Unable to form the Avengers, and even the oath of the Peach Garden turning into a bubble, the inner heart of the Tianmeng Ice silkworm was bitter. It sighed. Forget it, forget it. It seems the plan for its brothers to join forces won't work out. In that case, let's stick to the original plan. Which of you three is willing to become the first person to possess a wise spirit ring? If it gets any later, it won't be good if DTN rushes over. However, before its voice trailed off, a cold and arrogant voice rang out. The speaker was none other than the golden Tianmeng Ice silkworm. He couldn't even be bothered to look at the Tianmeng Ice silkworm, his gaze falling directly onto Huo Yuhao, whose aura was closest to his. My name is Golden Dream. His voice was full of arrogance. Human, if you want to obtain my power, you must first gain my approval. He stared at Huo Yuhao, two beams of tangible brilliant light shooting out from his golden eyes. I will give you a chance. Next, I will not leave this patch of grass. As long as you can touch my body, you win, and I will approve you, bestowing upon you the divine force. Hearing this, the corners of Huo Yuhao's mouth lifted slightly. This test suited his intentions perfectly. All right. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm watched from the side in dumbfounded shock. Hey, I am the real master here. Why are you starting negotiations with that fake first? Is there still any justice left? The competition began. The huge body of the Golden Dream looked clumsy, but when he moved, he was exceptionally agile. He drifted elusively across the grass, every movement avoiding Huo Yuhao's pounce with pinpoint precision. Too slow, too weak. The Golden Dream evaluated proudly, his tone filled with disappointment. Huo Yuhao watched from the side with burning anxiety, while Huo Yu still maintained the expression of a spectator watching a play. Just as the Golden Dream slipped away nimbly once more and looked at Huo Yuhao with disdain out of the corner of his eye, golden light suddenly erupted within Huo Yuhao's eyes. Eye of sanction. An invisible, irresistible majesty descended instantly. For the first time, astonishment appeared in the arrogant eyes of the Golden Dream. He found that his body seemed to be bound by countless chains, unable to move a single inch. Even though this confinement lasted for a mere 0.5 seconds. But, it was enough. Huo Yuhao's figure was like an arrow released from a bowstring, instantly crossing the distance between the two of them. One hand pressed steadily upon the cool, smooth body of the Golden Dream. You lost. Huo Yuhao said calmly. The Golden Dream silkworm chuckled softly. This fellow was quite interesting. At the start, he didn't directly use the bizarre move, but instead waited until he relaxed his vigilance before using it. Interesting human, I approve you. As the words fell, the huge body of the Golden Dream began to transform into countless golden spots of light across the sky, crazily pouring into Huo Yuhao's body. On the other side, the moment the sacrifice of the Golden Dream began, the silver-white Tianmeng Ice silkworm, which had been trembling all along, shuddered violently as if it had received some huge fright. It glanced at Huo Yuhao who was currently accepting the sacrifice, then looked at the original Tianmeng Ice silkworm still in a daze beside it, and finally cast its fearful gaze toward Huo Yu, whose temperament was cold and demonic. It seemed to suddenly figure something out. Rather than waiting passively, it was better to take the initiative and find the master who looked the hardest to mess with as a backing. The next second, amidst everyone's astonished gazes, the body of the silver-white Tianmeng Ice silkworm also went bang and transformed into a pure rain of silver light, rushing into Huo Yu's body as if it would be eaten by someone if it were a second late. Only the original Tianmeng Ice silkworm remained in the entire scene, left in disarray in the wind. Hey, what is wrong with you guys? Making decisions without even saying hello, I am the authentic version. The Tianmeng Ice silkworm cried out in grief and indignation. Both fakes had found their destinations, leaving only its authentic self in Huo Yuhao, who looked the weakest. It cast a sorrowful glance at the innocent-looking Huo Yuhao and let out a long sigh. Sigh, forget it, it'll have to be you. At the very least, you were the first one I took a fancy to. Oh fate. As it spoke, it also transformed into a patch of light spots that merged into Huo Yuhao's body. A million-year spirit ring could grant the host a full force spirit abilities. Huo Yuhao's Eye of Sanction acquired Sanction Chains mental force transforms into golden chains, which can forcibly confine the enemy for 0.7 seconds and cause continuous mental burning. Monarch's Majesty, a passive skill that exerts a natural suppression on enemies whose mental force is lower than his, weakening all their attributes by 10%. Destruction Golden Light shoots a high-density mental energy beam from the eyes with extremely strong penetrating power, dealing extra damage to evil attributes. Golden Domain creates a domain full of sanctity and majesty. Within the domain, allies' mental force recovery speed is increased, and enemies will continuously suffer mental impacts. Huo Yu's Illusion Eyes acquired Water Moon in a mirror creates an illusion indistinguishable from reality, capable of trapping enemies inside. Shadow of Deceit eradicates one's own sense of presence, entering a brief state of absolute invisibility, which fails upon attacking or being attacked. Whisper of Fear transforms mental force into demonic sounds that ring directly in the enemy's mind, arousing the deepest fears within their heart. True Nightmare, a passive skill where all illusion attacks will carry a trace of true mental damage. Even if the enemy sees through the illusion, they will still suffer mental trauma. As for Huo Yuhao, just like in the original work, he possessed 4 spirit abilities such as mental detection. Chapter 5. Tang San's Anxiety, How to Manipulate the 3 Sons of Luck. In the God Realm, a soft halo like a mother's hand gently touched the delicate skin of the clouds and mist, and vaguely, there was a towering palace where a blue long-haired youth was sitting on a chair resting. This person was none other than the sea god and Asura god Tang San, who ascended to the God Realm 10,000 years ago. At this moment, he was deducing the trajectory of fate of Douluo continent. Within his divine consciousness, which was as vast as a sea of stars, a golden line of luck should have risen from the plane of Douluo continent at this moment, closely connected with the luck of the Tang sect he personally created. This was a foolproof plan he laid out with countless mental efforts, and a key step in guiding the direction of the future. The time was not a fraction of a second off. However, the anticipated intersection of fate did not happen, and the connecting thread was late in appearing. Tang San's brows furrowed slightly, almost imperceptibly. He slowly opened his eyes, a trace of doubt flashing in his deep blue eyes. Impossible. His plan and his deduction were accurate to every time node, covering all possible variables. From Huo Yuhao's birth, to his encounter with the Tang sect, and then to the opportunity for him to enter the Stardo Great Forest, everything was under his control. The connection should have been completed at this time. Could something have gone wrong somewhere? Although a God King's state of mind was not easily shaken, this concerned his daughter and the future pattern of the God Realm, so he could not afford not to take it seriously. Tang San's first reaction was not that his plan was wrong, but that there was external interference. His massive divine consciousness expanded instantly, like a silent ripple, quietly sweeping across the surroundings of his palace, with the primary target of his attention naturally being the god of destruction. This guy always used various reasons to stop him from planning a better future for Douluo continent, and had already brought upon himself the path to death. After a moment, Tang San withdrew his divine consciousness. The god of destruction was not there, which was just as well, as he could see who on earth intended to interfere with the predetermined future of Douluo continent. HMPH, perhaps the son of Luck's itinerary was delayed by something. A trace of displeasure flashed in Tang San's heart, and his divine will pierced through layers of space, instantly locking onto Douluo continent and that area on the periphery of the Stardo Great Forest. For this, son-in-law, he had chosen, his requirements were extremely high. Any trace of slackness and incompetence would make him dissatisfied. Mortals are mortals after all, they are always unreliable at critical moments, truly useless. He cursed inwardly, already prepared that if Huo Yuhao delayed major matters due to his own reasons, he wouldn't mind descending a slight oracle to discipline this unformed chess piece. However, the moment his divine consciousness truly descended and he saw the scene in the lower realm, even with his state of mind as a god king, there was a momentary blankness. The lone youth in his anticipation was still there, and he was also still absorbing the million-year spirit ring. Of course, this was not arranged by Tang San, this was the luck of the son of luck, having a million-year spirit ring as his first spirit ring, which was truly enviable. If it were just like this, it would be fine, but, appearing within Tang San's divine consciousness perception, there were three. 3 identical youths were sitting cross-legged, all exuding surging mental force fluctuations. What shook his mind and soul even more was that above the heads of these 3 youths, a thick and solid golden pillar of luck shot up respectively. Each pillar of light was incomparably pure, containing the majestic power of the world's origin. That was undoubtedly the luck of a son of the plane. 3 sons of the plane. Tang San was utterly shocked. How could this be? The luck of a plane was limited, and only by condensing it onto a single person could one become a son of the plane. With the capability of Douluo continent, it was absolutely impossible to create a second one, yet now there were unexpectedly 3, and when he perceived it earlier, there had never been 3 sons of luck in this Douluo continent. Who is it? A divine might mixed with shock and anger burst forth from him, shaking the entire sea god palace. Who on earth dared to so blatantly disrupt his plan and challenge the order of the god realm? He immediately circulated his divine force, trying to search for anything suspicious around. If he could trace back time, he would want to, but he couldn't do it, and could only use the method of searching to find the culprit. However, when Tang San's divine consciousness fell upon that small river, a bizarre thing happened. Tang San, who held dual god positions, was actually unable to explore that small river, and his divine consciousness was directly melted almost the instant it went in. Inquiry yielded no results. What kind of changes had happened to this small river? Could the god of destruction have meddled with it? No, even the god of destruction could never do this. Then, what on earth was it? Tang San abruptly withdrew his divine consciousness, and his expression turned incomparably solemn. Could the plane of Douluo continent want to rebel against him? It had already brought upon itself the path to death. However, what should he do now? Tang San forced himself to calm down. The most troublesome thing right now was not the mysterious mastermind behind the scenes, but the matter right in front of him. His gaze cast towards those 3 youths once more. The one on the left had blonde hair and golden eyes, and his aura was overbearing and sharp. The one in the middle had black hair and purple eyes, and his aura was treacherous and cold. The one on the right had blue hair and blue eyes, and his aura was pure and resilient. Although his mental force was the weakest, he was precisely the Huo Yuhao he had originally selected. But now, there were 3 people, and all 3 Huo Yuhaos carried the luck of Douluo continent. If he wanted to completely master the entire Douluo continent, then, he had to capture all 3 sons of luck. Tang San fell into an unprecedented headache for a moment. His plan was to let Huo Yuhao grow up, fall in love with his daughter Tang Wedong in the future, and then he would design multiple tribulations to make Huo Yuhao's feelings for his daughter deeper. Through this affection, Huo Yuhao, this future god of emotions, would be completely bound to his Tang clan. His good friend Rong Nianbing no longer wanted to be the god of emotions, so taking the god position of a tier 1 deity to cultivate his good friend could not be considered seeking private gains. Then, how should he scheme against Huo Yuhao next? Now there were 3 Huo Yuhaos and 3 portions of luck. He couldn't let a single portion go, but he only had 1 daughter. Although he had already divided his daughter into 3, that was only her soul being divided into 3, while her body was still only 1. This was a huge trouble now. Third brother, your expression doesn't look very good. Has something happened? The beautiful woman with a scorpion braid on the side walked over, looking at Tang San's expression and asking with some worry. Some problems have appeared in Douluo continent, and they are very tricky. I am very afraid that Douluo continent, our hometown, will suffer unpredictable harm. Tang San's gaze fell softly onto Xiao Wu's body. Was it done by the god of destruction? No, it might not be him. Third brother, I believe in you. I have always trusted you. This time, you will definitely have the ability to handle it well, because you are third brother. MN. Chapter 6 Xuanzi, I must help him obtain a 100-year spirit ring. At Shrek Academy, Bebe and Tangya returned here after hunting spirit rings, and walked up to the front of the student dormitory. Here, an ordinary-looking old man was lying on a recliner, looking very leisurely. Although there was no terrifying aura emanating from him, as long as his name was mentioned, the entire Douluo continent would be shocked. He was none other than the dragon god Douluo, Muen. Beside Muen, an unkempt old man was grabbing a chicken leg and eating it until his mouth was full of grease. He was precisely the gluttonous Douluo, Xuanzi. Great-grandfather, Elder Zan, we are back. Bei respectfully bowed in salute. Muen slowly opened his slightly turbid eyes, his gentle gaze falling on the two young juniors, a hint of gratified smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. It is good that you are back. Was this trip smooth? Tangya's third spirit ring should have been obtained, right? Yes, Elder Mu. Tangya nodded obediently, and then a hint of an indescribable, weird expression appeared on her face. It's just that, in the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest, we encountered some, very strange things, and also, strange people. Oh. A trace of interest flashed in Muen's eyes. Bei took a deep breath, sorted out his thoughts, and recounted from beginning to end how they met the three brothers of Huo Yuhao by the river, as well as the bizarre incident of one turning into three that happened to that small river. He guessed that Lin Feng should be the deity of that river, the river god. Upon hearing that one Huo Yuhao turned into three Huo Yuhaos, as well as the river god, even Muen's usually calm and unrippled eyes stirred with layers of ripples. HMPH. A cold snort full of disdain suddenly sounded, interrupting Bei's narration. Xuanzi casually threw away the chicken bones that he had not cleaned, wiped his greasy mouth, and curled his lips as he said. What river god, what one turning into three? In my view, it's just those three kids making a mystery out of nothing, a drama put on to attract attention. They probably lack sufficient talent, yet are thinking about joining Shrek Academy. His tone was filled with contempt for such behavior. Muen, however, ignored Xuanzi's words. His aged fingers gently tapped on the armrest of the recliner, his gaze still locked on Bei, and he asked in a steady voice. Bei, continue, tell me the details of those three children again, especially their spirits, in more detail. Yes. Bei steadied his mind and continued. The three of them indeed look identical, except for their different hair and eye colors, their demeanors are completely different. I haven't learned about the spirits of the other two, but I only understand the eldest brother's spirit. His spirit is named Eye of Sanction. Even without a spirit ring, he can restrict the opponent's movement for 0.5 seconds. As soon as these words were spoken, Xuanzi, who had always appeared somewhat nonchalant, suddenly paused his action of eating the chicken leg. And Muen's fingers that were gently tapping the armrest also stopped. Is what you said true? Xuanzi looked at Bei in utter disbelief. Indeed, thanks to his help, the operation for Tangya and me to hunt spirit rings went so smoothly. Bei nodded. Thinking back to that matter, he still felt immense emotion in his heart. Without a spirit ring, he was already this strong. After getting a spirit ring, he would definitely become even stronger. If he grew up, he would definitely become one of the top combat powers on the Douluo continent. This spirit is truly quite formidable. Muen closed his eyes. The spirit beast Bei helped Tangya obtain was a 1,000-year Datura snake. Without a spirit ring, it meant he hadn't reached level 10 yet. To be able to restrict a Datura snake for 0.5 seconds without even reaching level 10, what a truly terrifying spirit. Wait. Xuanzi suddenly spoke, his eyes, which were usually always sleepy, wide open at this moment, his brows tightly locked. Kid, you said that one named Huo Yuhao has such a heaven-defying spirit, why didn't you invite him to join Shrek? His tone was full of questioning, as if Bei had committed some monstrous fault. Such a shockingly talented sapling, if missed, it would simply be a huge loss for Shrek Academy. Hearing this, a trace of helpless wry smile appeared on Bei's face. Elder Zan, I invited him. Well, although the person who invited wasn't him but Tangya, and what they were invited to join wasn't Shrek Academy but the Tang sect, the idea they expressed was already quite clear, to venture out into the Douluo continent. Then why didn't he come? Xuanzi pursued the question, his voice rising a few notches. In his view, on the Douluo continent, no talented spirit master could refuse Shrek Academy's invitation, nor would anyone dare to refuse. Bei directly stated Huo Yuhao's original words. They planned to undergo trials and didn't intend to be bound by anything. What? He doesn't understand. Do you not understand either? Without our Shrek's cultivation, no matter how formidable a genius is, they will degenerate into mediocre people. You. Xuanzi's voice rose a few notches once more, making the eardrums of both Bei and Tangya ache slightly. His nature of shielding his own and loving talent as his life was instantly ignited. Huo Yuhao must be made to join Shrek Academy. As for the other two, if they had talent, they could also be allowed to join. If they didn't have talent, then forget it. Without another word, Xuanzi turned around and walked out, his stalwart body stirring up a gust of fierce wind. Elder Mu, I will go meet this kid in person. I don't believe that there is any student on this continent that I, Xuanzi, cannot invite. Looking at Xuanzi's flustered and impatient back, Muen did not speak out to stop him. He slowly opened his eyes, a flash of sharp light passing through his turbid eyes, which was considered tacit approval of Xuanzi's action. Regardless of whether it was true or false, Shrek must never miss out on such a genius. In the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest, by that unknown small river. Xuanzi's figure was like Gui Mei, relying on the speed of a super Douluo, he quickly arrived here. Not much time had passed since Bei and the three met, and coupled with their desire to obtain a spirit ring, they shouldn't have left too quickly. Thinking of this, Xuanzi couldn't help but frown. That fellow Bei should at least have helped this good sapling obtain a 100-year spirit ring, how could he just leave him alone? How muddled. He had rushed over now, hoping it wasn't too late. He must help that good sapling obtain a 400-year spirit ring before he absorbed a spirit ring. After he helped him obtain the spirit ring, he would definitely be filled with gratitude towards him, and then he would smoothly issue an invitation and the other party would definitely join Shrek Academy directly. Shrek Academy was the #1 spirit master academy on the Douluo continent. If they refused, it must be because they didn't understand it. With their identity, they probably only heard of it casually. After all, having such a spirit yet not even having a single guard by their side clearly meant they weren't disciples of any major clan. Very soon, Xuanzi saw the three people sparring on the grass. Chapter 7 If it can't be obtained, destroy it. Who? The three of them all possessed mental attribute spirits, and their spirit seeds also contain a million-year-old spirit beast. As soon as Xuanzi approached, he was discovered by the three of them. Hee, your perception is quite sharp. Accompanied by a slightly hoarse and lazy voice, a figure leapt down from the tree canopy, landing on the grass with a boom that caused the ground to vibrate slightly. Only then did the three of them clearly see the other's appearance. An unkempt old man in ragged clothes with messy hair like a bird's nest, a suspicious trace of grease hanging from the corner of his mouth, and even holding a half-eaten roasted chicken in his hand, his image was extremely sloppy. However, it was precisely such an inconspicuous and even somewhat comical old man that made the three of them feel an extremely terrifying pressure. Although they had just obtained a million-year-old spirit ring, their spirit power level was still only at the first ring after all. Facing this unknown old man, their chances of winning were not high. Xuanzi looked at the three youths before him with great interest. He cleared his throat, locked his gaze onto Huo Yuhao, who best matched Beibei's description, deliberately put on the posture of an expert, and slowly spoke. Kid, don't be nervous. This old man is an elder of the Sea Gods Pavilion of Shrek Academy, and my Douluo title is gluttonous. He deliberately emphasized and slowed down the 4 words, gluttonous Douluo. In his mind, once this moniker came out, it would be enough to deter any young spirit master on the continent. This old man heard that you are naturally gifted, so I am allowing you to join our Shrek Academy. Xuanzi slightly raised his chin, his tone carrying a hint of unquestionable condescension. As long as you are willing to join, the academy will exhaust all resources to cultivate you. He was painting a grand blueprint. In his view, he had already offered conditions that could not be refused, and the other party would surely be moved to tears and bow in submission immediately. However, Huo Yuhao's response greatly exceeded his expectations. Thank you for your kindness, gluttonous Douluo, but the 3 of us brothers prefer freedom. It was a clean and neat refusal without the slightest hesitation. The smile on Xuanzi's face instantly froze. He had imagined that the other party might feign modesty or try to bargain, but he never expected that the other party would refuse so thoroughly and mercilessly. Hey. Xuanzi let out an inexplicable sneer, seemingly amused to the point of anger. Kid, do you know what you are saying? Rejecting Shrek Academy, rejecting the invitation of me, gluttonous Douluo. His voice suddenly turned cold, and a terrifying coercive pressure swept toward the 3 brothers like a landslide and tsunami. On this continent, no one has ever been able to refuse the invitation of Shrek Academy, and even less has anyone dared to refuse the invitation of me, gluttonous Douluo. He was truly enraged this time. How urgent his desire to cherish talent was just how blazing his anger was after being rejected. In his view, this was no longer a simple refusal, but a provocation to Shrek's majesty and a contempt for him, gluttonous Douluo. It seems that unless I let you ignorant little fellows witness true power, you will not understand what kind of heaven-sent opportunity you have missed. Before his voice fell, Xuanzi moved. He did not release his spirit, nor did he use any spirit ability, but simply raised his right hand and grabbed into empty air toward the 3 brothers. Space seemed to solidify at this instant. An indescribably huge suction force arose out of thin air, transforming into an invisible giant hand that firmly locked onto the 3 brothers. Is this the power of a titled Douluo? Huo Yuhao clenched his teeth. In front of absolute power, they appeared to be so weak. Jump into the river. Lin Feng's voice appeared in the minds of the 3 of them. These 3 little fellows were really something. After absorbing the spirit ring, they didn't leave directly. Weren't they just asking for suffering? Hearing Lin Feng's words, Huo Yuhao directly executed a spirit ability on Xuanzi. Chains of Sanction. At the critical moment, golden light burst from Huo Yuhao's eyes. The chains of sanction instantly activated, targeting Xuanzi directly. Xuanzi felt that the power throughout his body could not be mobilized, and even his body was unable to move. Within his spiritual world, he could actually feel a burning sensation. His gaze fell upon Huo Yuhao. If Shrek Academy could not obtain this child, then he must be destroyed. He would not be allowed to join other academies and let Shrek Academy's 10,000-year glory go up in flames. The 3 of them were already jumping into that small river at this moment. Want to run, naive. Xuanzi snorted coldly and clenched his 5 fingers fiercely. He was going to grab the 3 of them right back from midair. However, at the very instant when the bodies of the 3 brothers were about to fall into the river water, a sudden change occurred. The moment their figures touched the surface of the water, they directly vanished into thin air. They completely and utterly vanished. Xuanzi's sure to succeed grab grasped nothing. His invisible giant hand swept across the river surface, and aside from stirring up a burst of ripples, he caught nothing at all. Where are the people? Xuanzi was stunned, the expression on his face instantly freezing, and his entire person was dumbfounded. This small river isn't even that deep, so how did 3 living people just directly disappear? How could this be possible? There is definitely something wrong with this river. Xuanzi stared dead at the crystal clear, ordinary-looking small river, his eyes filled with shock and uncertainty. What Beibei had said earlier exploded like a thunderclap in his mind at this moment. Could it be that there really is some river god? No, absolutely impossible. If there really were deities, they would have long since ascended and would not condescend to dwell within a small river. Someone must have secretly helped these 3 brats aid him. It must be that sneaky fellow inside the water, right? Thinking of this, the anger in Xuanzi's heart burned even more fiercely. Letting 3 juniors slip away right under his nose, if this got out, where would he, gluttonous Douluo, put his old face? This is courting death. This old man doesn't believe in this evil. He wanted to go down himself and see what kind of freaks and monsters were hidden in this river. Then he would fiercely teach the pretender a lesson. Make that fellow hand over Huo Yuhao. This was someone he had set his eyes on, and he absolutely would not allow him to leave. And just the second after Xuanzi jumped into the river, a figure hurried over from the distant forest. The newcomer was precisely Beibei, who was worried and had returned to inspect the situation. After all, given Elder Zan's somewhat irritable personality, there was no telling if a conflict would break out between him and the 3 brothers, so he rushed right over at the very first moment, afraid that the conflict between both sides would intensify to an irreconcilable degree. Then, upon arrival, Beibei did not see the 2 parties fighting. Instead, he saw Lin Feng appearing in the middle of the river, still maintaining a rather gentle smile. This scene directly stunned Beibei, and a bad premonition arose. Could Xuanzi have taken the initiative to jump into the small river? Then where were the 3 brothers of Huo Yuhao? How could the people be gone? Just as Beibei was still wondering, Lin Feng's gaze landed on Beibei. Chapter 8 I am the Supreme Elder of the Holy Spirit Cult, Teodi. Oh, young Beibei tilde is this glowing Xuanzi exuding holy light and looking like he can save the world that you dropped. Lin Feng spoke with a smile, his voice not loud, yet it clearly passed into Beibei's ears. Lin Feng directly grabbed a person out of that small river. It was a Xuanzi whose posture was as upright as a pine, whose face overflowed with the sacred radiance of compassion for all living beings, and whose whole body radiated an aura of unyielding righteousness. Beibei looked at this, righteous Xuanzi, and was momentarily dazed. This image was so perfect that it simply didn't seem like a mortal's. If this Xuanzi was the Xuanzi of Shrek Academy, he always felt that it could make Shrek Academy develop even better. However, reason suppressed this trace of Beibei's thoughts. Xuanzi was Xuanzi, everyone had their own flaws. Although Xuanzi had a fiery temper, did things unreliably, and even committed a major mistake, he still kept Shrek Academy in his heart and was an indispensable part of Shrek Academy. Beibei's heart tightened, he shook his head without hesitation and respectfully replied. Replying to Senior, it's not this one. My family's Elder Zan, isn't this proper? Oh. The smile on Lin Feng's face grew even thicker. He hadn't expected Bei Bei to dare speak of Xuanzi like this, even saying the other party wasn't proper. If Xuanzi heard it, estimated Ly nothing much would happen, at most just a reprimand for disrespecting one's elders and superiors. He gently snapped his fingers, and another Xuanzi appeared on Lin Feng's right side. This Xuanzi could be said to have a rather strong contrast with the previous Xuanzi. This Xuanzi had a smile of extreme evil hooked at the corner of his mouth, and his whole body emitted a thick, viscous aura of evil and chaos, as if he were the embodiment of all evil in the world, making one's heart turn cold at a single glance. Lin Feng once again extended his hand, pointing at that figure exuding an ominous aura, and asked in the same playful tone. Then, oh young Bei Bei tilde, is this the Xuanzi that looks like he can destroy the world that you dropped? Seeing this figure soaring with evil aura, Bei Bei was so startled that he shuddered, feeling his very soul trembling. This aura was more terrifying than any evil soul master he had ever seen. Without even thinking, he shook his head like a rattle drum, his tone resolute and decisive. It's not, definitely not this one. Ha ha ha. Lin Feng snapped his fingers once more, and the third Xuanzi appeared. This was the original Xuanzi. At this moment, his clothes were soaked, his hair was messy and plastered against his face, and he was sleepily rubbing his eyes with a trace of suspicious grease hanging at the corner of his mouth, his face full of confusion and displeasure at having his sweet dream disturbed. Then, oh young Bei Bei tilde, is the Xuanzi you dropped, this ragged, sleepy one with grease hanging from the corner of his mouth, who also likes to eat roasted chicken. Indeed, the one this junior dropped is this one. Bei Bei nodded. He couldn't imagine the consequences of answering incorrectly, so he only chose the correct answer. However, Bei Bei's gaze fell upon the body of evil Xuanzi. If this fellow were to appear, whether it was for Shrek Academy or for the entire Douluo continent, it would likely be a terrifying disaster. Very good, you are an honest child. Lin Feng nodded with satisfaction, the smile on his face becoming meaningful. According to the rules, an honest child should receive all the rewards. No, there's no need, I only need the original elders on. Bei Bei hurriedly shook his head. No way, a good child must have a good child's reward. All 3 Xuanzi are given to you. As soon as his voice fell, Lin Feng waved his hand. Bang, bang, bang. With 3 muffled thuds of heavy objects hitting the ground, 3 identical yet completely different orange Xuanzi were dumped out of the river by Lin Feng all at once like 3 large sacks, crashing neatly onto the grass by the riverbank. The original Xuanzi was thrown into a daze from the fall. As soon as he came back to his senses, he discovered that the other 2, himself, were unexpectedly lying beside him, instantly leaving him dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the other 2 Xuanzi simultaneously opened their eyes. Righteous Xuanzi slowly stood up, his gaze sweeping across the surroundings, his brows slightly furrowed, and his eyes filled with vigilance against evil. Evil Xuanzi flipped over and leapt up, licking his lips, his eyes showing undisguised madness and killing intent. You, what people are you? How dare you impersonate this old man? Original Xuanzi was the first to react, flying into a rage. Spirit power instantly erupted, and the Teoti phantom flickered indistinctly behind him, ready to launch a thunderous strike at any moment. Eldazon, calm down. Listen to my explanation, these 2 are actually also you. Bei Bei hurriedly spoke to explain, hoping that these 3 Xuanzi could coexist peacefully just like the 3 Huo Yuhaos. If major conflicts occurred, then it would truly be terrible. How about having a good chat? The 2 Eldazons can also happen to understand our world. Bei Bei addressed the other 2 Xuanzi. If he could persuade the 2 Xuanzi to come to Shrek Academy, then for the combat power of the entire Shrek Academy, it would be a huge boost. Original Xuanzi was already the number 2 combat power of Shrek Academy. If the number 2 combat power became 3. Just at this moment, a cold, explosive shout abruptly resounded. A bunch of trash. That evil Xuanzi had madness erupting from his eyes. His figure flashed as fast as a ghost, and a large hand wreathed in dense black chi had already fiercely slapped toward righteous Xuanzi whom he found most unpleasant. Stop. Bei Bei cried out in shock at the same time, and original Xuanzi also suddenly froze. Could this fellow's temper actually be even more fiery than his own? Could one only say he truly lived up to being another himself? But how swift and violent was evil Xuanzi's attack? Meanwhile, righteous Xuanzi also seemed to have been on guard for a long time. Golden light burst forth from his body, and he similarly met the attack with a palm strike. Boom. 2 forces sharing the same origin yet completely opposite fiercely collided, and a terrifying energy shockwave erupted instantly. Bei Bei hurriedly distanced himself, but the shockwave was simply too strong. Furthermore, original Xuanzi did not choose to protect Bei Bei, a 3-ring spirit master, causing Bei Bei to fly backward directly and smash into a tree trunk nearby with blood staining the corners of his mouth. Without a month or 2, recovery was estimated to be difficult. He looked at original Xuanzi with some disbelief on his face. Wasn't a teacher supposed to protect their disciple at a time like this? But Xuanzi seemed to completely ignore him. Why are you attacking me? Righteous Xuanzi's gaze landed on evil Xuanzi, his brows slightly furrowed. Evil Xuanzi steadied his figure, a cruel and bloodthirsty smile appearing on his face. Evil aura soared to the heavens from his body, and a nauseatingly bloody and resentful aura erupted fiercely. His gaze became incomparably fanatical, and he declared word by word. Listen well, I am the supreme elder of the Holy Spirit cult, Teoti. All those who obstruct the glory of the holy cult or trash that people of our generation need to clear away. Today, let's start by clearing away you 2 eyesores. Chapter 9, 3-way melee, evil Xuanzi escapes, original Xuanzi severely injured. Before evil Xuanzi could even finish speaking, his entire body shot forward like a black cannonball once again toward righteous Xuanzi and original Xuanzi, actually intending to fight 2 opponents at once. Lunatic. Original Xuanzi cursed angrily, his Teoti divine ox spirit possessing him, his bulging muscles knotted across his sturdy physique, while 9 spirit rings, yellow, purple, black, and red, blazed with intense light as he met the charge without showing the slightest weakness. In his view, these 2 fellows who had popped out of nowhere were both imposters, both a provocation to his dignity as the gluttonous Douluo, and both deserved a beating. Meanwhile, righteous Xuanzi frowned deeply. Facing evil Xuanzi's frenzied attack, golden light bathed his body as an intensely yawn line, righteous aura materialized into substance, and he likewise threw a punch and charged forward. Boom, boom, boom. 3 identical figures, 3 genuine super Douluos, thus unfolded an unprecedented massive melee right on the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest. Evil Xuanzi's moves were vicious, wreathed in black mist as every strike went straight for the vitals, filled with an aura of destruction and brutality. His main target was unexpectedly righteous Xuanzi, whose aura was diametrically opposed to his own. Righteous Xuanzi fought with grand and open movements, brilliant golden light shining as every punch carried a magnificent heavenly might, as if seeking to purify all filth in the world. His primary energy was likewise focused on suppressing evil Xuanzi. Yet the most chaotic person in the arena was none other than original Xuanzi. At times, he would smash a punch toward evil Xuanzi, furiously rebuking him as a demonic heretic. At other times, he would sweep a heavy kick toward righteous Xuanzi, cursing him for putting on airs and acting sanctimoniously. Thus, the scene descended into utter chaos for a time. Righteous Xuanzi was beating evil Xuanzi. Evil Xuanzi was beating righteous Xuanzi. And original Xuanzi beat both of them. Bang. Evil Xuanzi forced righteous Xuanzi back with a claw strike, then backhanded a wave of black flames toward original Xuanzi. Boom. Righteous Xuanzi blasted evil Xuanzi away with a single palm strike, seizing the momentum to slam a golden divine fist toward original Xuanzi. Original Xuanzi fended off attacks left and right, roaring repeatedly. He felt like a punching bag being used as a venting tool by these two inexplicable, himself, beating him to the point of extreme grievance. In the distance, Bebe, who had just struggled to his feet from a tree trunk, froze entirely upon seeing this scene. He had originally thought this would be a 2-against-1 battle of righteousness versus evil, but what was this now? Eldazon, why was he even beating that righteous version of himself as well? He could not figure it out. This completely exceeded the scope of his understanding. In his cognitive framework, shouldn't they join forces when facing a common enemy? Yet Eldazon's actions, what was he doing? Evil Xuanzi was clearly the one who needed to be thoroughly eradicated. As the battle continued, the gap in strength among the three gradually manifested. That Xuanzi radiating a righteous aura was the most terrifying in strength. His power seemed endless, every strike pure and powerful, carrying the might to suppress everything in every gesture. Next was the Xuanzi soaring with evil aura. Although his power was filled with brutality and chaos, it was equally soul-shakingly powerful. His moves were bizarre and tricky with astonishing destructive power, faintly able to rival righteous Xuanzi on equal terms. Yet the weakest in strength turned out to be original Xuanzi. Although he was also a super Douluo, compared to the other two, he was clearly a notch behind both in the purity of his power and in combat technique. Soon, the situation gradually evolved into righteous Xuanzi single-handedly suppressing and beating both evil Xuanzi and original Xuanzi. Boom. It was yet another earth-shattering collision. 3 terrifying streams of spirit power exploded in midair, transforming into visible energy storms that swept in all directions, ripping ferocious ravines into the earth. On the outskirts of the Stardew Great Forest, countless weak spirit beasts trembled under this terrifying fluctuation comparable to a natural disaster, then fled like mad toward the depths of the forest. They were merely low-tier spirit beasts. With 3 super Douluos fighting like this, how could they survive? No, things have blown up way too much. Bebe clutched his chest, his complexion as pale as paper. He knew this was no longer a battle he could intervene in. Any of these 3 could easily grind him into powder. If he stayed any longer, he probably wouldn't even be able to save his little life. More importantly, if the fighting continued, original Xuanzi might be purified by righteous Xuanzi. He had to report this to the academy immediately, to Elder Mu. Seeing that things looked ominous, Bebe made a prompt and decisive choice without a shred of hesitation. Suppressing his injuries, he turned, executed his movement technique, and sprinted wildly toward the direction of Shrek Academy without looking back. Behind him, the battle among the 3 Xuanzis had already entered a white-hot stage. Hypocrite, die. Evil Xuanzi let out a roar of reluctance. He knew he was no match for righteous Xuanzi, and continuing to entangle him in combat would surely lead to defeat without a doubt. A flash of viciousness crossed his eyes as he suddenly burst forth with all his evil power, transforming into a towering black pillar of light that fiercely slammed toward righteous Xuanzi. Righteous Xuanzi's gaze narrowed as he simply raised his right hand and pushed forward. Purification. A golden light curtain brighter than the sun appeared out of thin air. That terrifying black pillar of light crashed onto the light curtain and melted away like snow and ice, emitting a sizzling sound as it was rapidly purified and reduced to nothingness. Taking advantage of this gap, evil Xuanzi's figure had already transformed into a wisp of black smoke, escaping into the distance at an incredible speed and disappearing into the horizon in a few flickers. Evil Xuanzi had escaped. Righteous Xuanzi did not chase him, instead letting his indifferent gaze fall upon original Xuanzi in the arena. Original Xuanzi was extremely miserable at this moment, covered in blood with shattered clothes, and one of his arms unnaturally twisted, evidently suffering extremely heavy injuries in the previous melee. Righteous Xuanzi slowly descended, looking down at him from above with no pity in his eyes, only the detachment of looking down upon the mortal world. Boom. Original Xuanzi could no longer support himself, heavily tumbling down from midair and smashing a large crater into the ground as blood spewed wildly from his mouth. He struggled to raise his head, looking at the figure before him who was identical to himself yet powerful enough to make him feel despair, his eyes filled with unwillingness and indignation. Why, by what right is my strength the weakest? This is unfair. He roared hoarsely, every single word seemingly exhausting all the strength in his body. Quote. On the other side. Shrek Academy, student dormitory area. Bebe rushed directly to Muen's lounge chair almost without stopping. Great-grandfather, it's bad, something huge has happened. Muen slowly opened his eyes, a sharp gleam flashing through those seemingly cloudy eyes. Looking at Bebe's pale complexion and the blood at the corners of his mouth, he furrowed his brows slightly. Bebe, what matter has you so panicked? Elvazon, he has turned into 3. Panting heavily, Bebe incoherently recounted everything that happened outside the Stardew Great Forest, from Lin Feng's appearance to the 3 questions to Xuanzi, and then the massive battle after the 3 Xuanzis materialized, telling him everything in detail. Muen's originally calm expression gradually turned solemn. When he heard that one of the 3 Xuanzis actually claimed to be the Supreme Elder of the Holy Spirit cult, a terrifying icy glint suddenly burst from his eyes. Quote. That's how things are, Elder Mu, they are still fighting, I'm afraid. Bebe's voice carried a trace of trembling. Enough. Muen slowly sat up from the lounge chair, a terrifying aura radiating from his seemingly withered body. His expression was solemn like never before. That river. Muen muttered softly, his eyes filled with weariness and doubt. He did not ask any further, because he knew this matter had already exceeded the scope of conventional logic. He had to go take a look personally. I will go see what on earth is going on. Before his voice even finished fading, Muen's figure had already vanished from the lounge chair. Chapter 10, Muen vs Righteous Xuanzi. The outer perimeter of the Stardew Great Forest was in complete ruins. Righteous Xuanzi hovered in midair, his entire body surrounded by a sacred golden light, like a divinity descended to the world. He did not make a move immediately. In his indifferent eyes, a trace of an imperceptible fluctuation seemed to flash. He spoke slowly, his voice fast and majestic. You, why do you associate with that evil? As a Shrek elder, the gluttonous Douluo, when evil appeared, not only did you not join forces with me to suppress it, but instead you attacked me. Tell me, what on earth were you thinking in your heart? Ha ha. Original Xuanzi propped up his heavily injured body and stood up unsteadily. With disheveled hair and blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, he looked like a madman. He raised his head and stared fixedly at the righteous Xuanzi above with a pair of bloodshot eyes, his laughter filled with self-derision and anger. What was I thinking? Do I need to account to an impostor like you for what this old man thinks? He fiercely pointed at righteous Xuanzi, then pointed far off in the direction where evil Xuanzi had disappeared, and roared. You two are both monsters that shouldn't appear in this world. One is a sanctimonious hypocrite, and the other is a complete lunatic. By what right do you swagger around here wearing this old man's face? This old man is Xuanzi, the one and only gluttonous Douluo. You should all disappear. After hearing these words, righteous Xuanzi fell silent. On his calm as an ancient well face, a trace of a pensive expression actually appeared. After a moment, he slowly nodded. I understand. Your existence itself is an imperfection. Your heart is filled with irritability, greed, and disregard for rules. These impurities cause you to make wrong choices when facing matters of great principle, and even made you an accomplice to evil. Since that is the case, the last trace of fluctuation in righteous Xuanzi's eyes disappeared, replaced by extreme indifference and determination. I will thoroughly purify you, letting you return to the purest origin. From now on, I shall bear the name of Xuanzi and protect this continent. As soon as his voice fell, golden light burst forth behind him. An incomparably solid and sacred golden gluttonous phantom emerged. That was no longer a mere condensation of spirit power, but rather like a true divine beast descending, emitting a terrifying coercion that purified and cleansed everything. Golden gluttonous possession. Righteous Xuanzi raised his hand, and a sword of judgment formed from pure light took shape in his hand, aiming at the original Xuanzi below who was already powerless to resist. He was going to thoroughly purify this imperfect main body. Stop. Just at this Tianjun critical moment, an aged and majestic roar exploded from the horizon like rolling thunder. A figure appeared without warning between righteous Xuanzi and original Xuanzi. The person who arrived was none other than Yuan. Yuan didn't even look at Xuanzi on the ground, his deep eyes staring fixedly at righteous Xuanzi and the sacred golden gluttonous behind him. Stop. Yuan's voice was very calm, but the coercion contained within it was exceptionally terrifying. Righteous Xuanzi looked at the suddenly appearing Yuan, his brows slightly furrowed. He could sense a power from the other party that was enough to contend with him, or even faintly surpass his own. But he did not back down, only answering indifferently. This person is a heretic, I must purify him. Insolence. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in Yuan's eyes, and he stopped wasting words. Supreme Ruler. This was Yuan's self-created spirit ability, integrating mental force and physical attacks. Dragon Emperor shattering evil slash. Righteous Xuanzi's expression changed, and the sword of judgment in his hand instantly met the attack. Boom. A tremendously muffled loud explosion. The sword of judgment shattered inch by inch, turning into spots of light all over the sky. Righteous Xuanzi's figure shook violently, flying backward for 100 meters before barely stabilizing his stance. On the arm holding the sword, the golden light flickered uncertainly, evidently suffering a huge loss in this clash. The look he gave Yuan finally carried a hint of solemnity. Was the gap between the two sides actually this large? Righteous Xuanzi silently locked gazes with Yuan for a moment. He knew that with this Sea God's Pavilion master present, it was impossible for him to purify that imperfect self today. His strength was inferior to Yuan's. He took a deep look at the solemn-faced Yuan, and then glanced at the original Xuanzi on the ground who was glaring angrily at him. In the end, he didn't say anything. With a flash of his figure, he turned into a streak of golden light and tore through the air in the opposite direction of evil Xuanzi. Until that sacred aura completely disappeared, Yuan slowly turned around and looked at the disheveled Xuanzi behind him. Xuanzi, what on earth happened? Elder Mu. Seeing Yuan, Xuanzi's unwillingness and anger instantly turned into a bellyful of grievance and stifled frustration. Gritting his teeth, he recounted the whole story from beginning to end, even mentioning how Huo Yuhao actually dared to reject him. If Huo Yuhao hadn't restrained him for a fraction of a second, he wouldn't have failed to catch them, let alone jumped into that strange little river. He also detailed the outrageous things those two Xuanzis did to him. They were simply not human. And the current result was that righteous Xuanzi and evil Xuanzi had both escaped. Not far away, Bei, who had just rushed back, listened to this account and only felt a splitting headache. He supported his forehead, his heart in complete turmoil. 3 Huo Yuhaos could coexist peacefully. But why did it turn directly into a life or death massive melee when it came to Elder Zan? What kind of nonsense was this? And now, one Xuanzi representing ultimate justice and one representing ultimate evil had just left like this. With their strength as a super Douluo and their extremely paranoid personalities, it was foreseeable that the future situation of the Douluo continent would inevitably become chaotic due to their appearance. After listening to Xuanzi's account, Yuan remained silent for a long time. His deep gaze ultimately landed on the seemingly ordinary yet currently extremely bizarre little river not far away. Under the sunlight, the river water flowed quietly, sparkling, showing no abnormalities. Bei. Yuan suddenly spoke. Great-grandfather. Bei hurried forward. Yuan's gaze remained locked on that little river as he slowly asked. You mean, as long as one jumps into this river, they will turn into 3? Why yes, Huo Yuhao was like that, and Elder Zan is too. Bei hesitated for a moment before giving a positive reply. 3. Yuan murmured in a low voice, a light of contemplation flashing in his eyes. One main body, one ultimate bright side, one ultimate dark side. Interesting. He suddenly reached out, and a spirit bone that was pitch black all over and emitted metallic fluctuations appeared in his hand. That was a torso bone, and furthermore, a 10,000-year-old spirit bone. Then, amidst the astonished gazes of Bei and Xuanzi, he casually threw that incomparably precious spirit bone toward the calm little river. Plop. The spirit bone hit the water, without stirring up much of a splash, before disappearing beneath the river surface. Chapter 11. Xuanzi is crippled, Yuan jumps into the river. Plop. The spirit bone hit the water, disappearing beneath the surface without causing much of a splash. This scene made Xuanzi, who was already severely injured, nearly spit out another mouthful of old blood in rage. He widened his eyes, looking at Yuan in disbelief, his eyes seeming to say, Elder Mu, have you gone mad? Elder Mu, that was a 10,000-year spirit bone, and the most precious torso bone, at that. You just threw it away like that. Xuanzi was so anxious he nearly jumped up, but pulling on his injuries made him grimace in pain. In his eyes, this was pure wastefulness, a total squandering of heaven's gifts. You had to know that even for Shrek Academy, a 10,000-year spirit bone was extremely precious. How could he just toss it into some worthless river? Elder Zan, please calm down. Bei, standing beside him, supported him and gently explained. Great-grandfather must be testing whether this river works on non-living things as well. Testing. Xuanzi froze. Yuan's aged eyes never left the calm river surface. He spoke slowly, his voice carrying a tinge of unquestionable resolve. Indeed, it is a test. I want to see if this spirit bone will also split into 3 after going in. Yuan turned his head, his deep gaze sweeping over Beibei and Xuanzi, his words carrying a deeper level of consideration. More importantly, if it really can split into three, I want to try and see if we can take only one of them. If something like what happened to you occurs again, producing another guy filled with overwhelming evil, the consequences would be unimaginable. It would be a disaster for the entire Douluo continent. Yuan's words were like a bucket of cold water, instantly dousing Xuanzi's anger. Beibei also felt a sudden chill in his heart, instantly understanding Yuan's deep intent. Indeed, it was so. Just one Elder Zan was already enough to give Shrek a headache. Now that one righteous Xuanzi representing ultimate justice and acting decisively, along with one evil Xuanzi representing ultimate evil and lawlessness, were out in the world, with their strength as Super Douluo, it was enough to turn the entire Douluo continent upside down. If the ability of this river were known by the Holy Spirit cult of the Sun Moon Empire, they could completely mass-produce evil soul masters born purely for destruction and slaughter. That would be a catastrophe sweeping across the entire continent. Just as they were pondering, the calm river surface finally showed a change. A figure silently appeared on the water's surface, holding a fishing rod with a lazy smile on his face. It was Lin Feng. He looked at Yuan on the bank with a beaming smile. This guy really had a bit of cleverness, but it was useless. The power of choice had never rested with these people of the Douluo continent from the very beginning. He was seen gently raising his fishing rod, pulling up a torso spirit bone emanating terrifying energy. This was definitely a spirit bone at the 100,000-year level or above. Lin Feng's gaze swept across the faces of the three before he looked at Yuan with a grin. Oh young dragon god Douluo tilde. As the one you dropped this 300,000-year gold attribute spirit bone. He was pointing to the golden spirit bone that glowed brightest, its quality clearly far exceeding the original version. 300,000 years. Xuanzi and Beibei's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. A 10,000-year spirit bone tossed and came out as a 300,000-year one. Yuan's eyes narrowed as well, but as the master of the Sea God's Pavilion who had weathered many great storms, he looked at Lin Feng and slowly yet with utmost clarity uttered a single word. Yes. The smile on Lin Feng's face instantly vanished. His seemingly lazy eyes turned icy cold, devoid of the slightest emotion. Liar, you don't get a single one. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit bone before him dispersed into light, as if it had never existed. Holding his fishing rod, he turned around and prepared to slowly sink back beneath the river's surface, just like before. Bastard, stop right there. Xuanzi completely blew up. It was this guy. He was the one behind all of this, making him end up so miserable, and now daring to swallow Shrek's spirit bone. New grudges and old hatred surged in his heart. Xuanzi let out a furious roar, instantly possessing his Teodi divine off spirit. Ignoring his injuries, his massive body surged toward Lin Feng on the river like a small mountain, slamming down a giant palm covered in thick scales. Oh, a mere Super Douluo actually wants to attack the river god. Lin Feng didn't even turn his head, merely uttering a sentence indifferently. He didn't even make any extra movement as an invisible, supreme power instantly descended. That wasn't spirit power, nor was it mental force, but a divine force that transcended all rules of this world. Xuanzi, who was charging toward Lin Feng with thunderous momentum, suddenly froze. Then, under the horrified gazes of Beibei and Yuan, he dropped straight down, slamming onto the ground with a loud thud, and smashing a huge crater into the earth. His two legs were as soft as noodles at this moment. No matter how he urged his spirit power or supported himself with his arms, he could no longer stand up. There was no bleeding, no wound. But his legs were ruined. On a fundamental rule level, he had been deprived of the right to stand. This is divine force. Yuan cried out in shock, an intense wave of shock and horror showing in his vicissitude-laden eyes for the very first time. He could clearly feel that the level of that power was far above a limit Douluo. It absolutely belonged to the domain of a divinity. This ordinary-looking young man was actually a god. Amid Yuan's shock, Lin Feng's figure slowly faded away, as if he had never been there. By the river, there was a dead silence. Yuan slowly turned around and looked at Xuanzi, who was kneeling on the ground with bloodshot eyes, trying desperately to stand up to no avail, his eyes filled with profound complexity. He knew that Xuanzi was essentially ruined. A gluttonous Douluo who could not stand, an attack-system Super Douluo who had lost his legs, scarcely 1/10 of his combat power remained. Yuan's heart sank to the bottom. In Shrek today, the high-end combat force only had himself left. And as for himself, Yuan felt a violent churning inside his body. The power he had unleashed earlier in a hard clash to force righteous Xuanzi to back down had caused his old ailment, which he had forcibly suppressed, to flare up once again. He knew that his time was running out. For Shrek, for the future of the continent, he had to do something. A flicker of unprecedented resolve flashed across Yuan's eyes. Beibei. Great-grandfather, I'm here. I intend to entrust an important matter to you. Yuan's voice was light, yet as heavy as Mount Tai. Elder Mu, you. Xuanzi also sensed something was wrong and looked up in shock. Beibei's face turned drastically pale as well. Great-grandfather, what are you doing? Yuan didn't answer them, merely giving a long, deep look in the direction of Shrek Academy one last time, his eyes filled with affection and reluctance. But in the next second, all those emotions were replaced by determination. For Shrek, he had to gamble on that 1 in a 10,000 chance. To make the young radiant dragon god Douluo appear once again. Amid the cries of Beibei and Xuanzi, Yuan's aged figure leapt up, throwing himself without hesitation into that eerie little river. Chapter 12, Arbitrary River, from the Stardo Great Forest to Ming Capital. Splash. Accompanied by a burst of water, three figures climbed onto the bank in a disheveled state. They were precisely Huo Yuhao, Huo Yu, and Huo Hao. Who? Huo Yuhao gasped heavily for air, casting a lingering look of fear at the calm stream behind him. It was too close. If Huo Hao hadn't acted decisively and bought a fraction of a second with that bizarre binding ability, the three of them probably would have been dragged back by that frantic, weird old man. That old fellow shouldn't have chased after us, right? Huo Yu patted the water off his body, vigilantly sizing up the surroundings. As for Huo Hao, his expression was cold and stern, remaining completely silent as his gaze swept across the unfamiliar environment around him, his brows tightly locked. The vegetation here and the fluctuations of spirit power in the air were completely different from the Stardo Great Forest they were familiar with. Just at the moment when the three brothers breathed a slight sigh of relief, a somewhat playful voice came from not far away. Oh, where did you three pop out from? You look rather disheveled. The three of them felt a shock in their hearts and abruptly raised their heads to look. They saw a group of people standing not far ahead. At the lead were a youth and a young girl. That youth had dazzling silver white long hair, a hint of an elusive smile hanging on his handsome face, and his eyes were one blue and one green, exuding a bit of unruliness and confidence. He wore a well-tailored set of noble attire, possessing an extraordinary temperament. The young girl beside him was even more eye-catching. A head of silver-white long hair draped smoothly behind her shoulders, her skin was fairer than snow, and her facial features were as delicate as a doll's, bearing some resemblance to the youth. However, her eyes were azure blue, and at this moment, carrying a hint of pure curiosity, she blinked as she sized up the three brothers of Huo Yuhao. Behind them, following closely was a squad of soldiers wearing standard issue armor, their oars restrained and heavy, they were clearly elite spirit masters. This lineup was definitely not that of ordinary people. The one who spoke was precisely that youth. He looked at the three drenched brothers with great interest, a playful light flashing in his eyes, but he did not reveal too much malice. Tell me, what kind of people are you? Why did you suddenly emerge from this river? The silver-white long-haired girl next to him tilted her head, her large eyes scanning back and forth across the faces of Huo Yuhao, Huo Yu, and Huo Hao. They're all so good-looking. One was delicate and gentle, another was sunny and cheerful, and yet another was cold and handsome. They were simply top-tier handsome guys of three completely different styles. Meng Hongqun couldn't help but feel a tiny ripple stir in her heart. Facing this sudden interrogation, the three brothers of Huo Yuhao exchanged glances. Huo Yu still maintained his vigilance and silence, while Huo Yuhao wanted to speak, but was stopped by Huo Hao's gaze. As the eldest brother of the three, Huo Hao stepped forward, tidying his appearance and replying neither surlily nor overbearingly. I am Huo Hao, and these two are my brothers, Huo Yu and Huo Yuhao. He pointed to the two people behind him. Next, he roughly recounted what had happened previously, including being chased by Xuanzi, jumping into a bizarre stream in the Stardo Great Forest out of desperation, and then inexplicably appearing here. After listening to Huo Yuhao's narration, that golden-haired youth, namely Xiao Hongqun, had an even thicker look of playfulness on his face. As if he had heard some incredible fantasy, he couldn't help but chuckle softly. Ha ha ha, how interesting. You jumped down from a river in the Stardo Great Forest, and you arrive here. He spread his hands and smiled at his younger sister Meng Hongqun behind him. Little sister, did you hear that? They said they came here from a stream in the Stardo Great Forest, but how come I remember that the location we are currently at is the outskirts of Ming Capital, at the border of our Sun Moon Empire? From the Stardo Great Forest to Ming Capital, it is more than 10,000 miles away. To be able to get here just by jumping into a river, this is truly very interesting. His tone was filled with undisguised sarcasm and disbelief. And, you said you escaped from the hands of the gluttonous Douluo. Xiao Hongqun looked up and down at the three brothers of Huo Yuhao, sensing the weak spirit power fluctuations on their bodies, and the curve of his mouth grew even larger. As far as I know, the gluttonous Douluo Xuanzi is a super Douluo. Let alone you three little spirit masters, even ordinary titled Douluo couldn't even last a single move in front of him, right? If you're going to make up a story, please make it sound decent. If it weren't for seeing that these three people had pitifully weak strength and didn't look like spies, Xiao Hongqun estimated he would have already ordered his subordinates to capture them and interrogate them thoroughly. Facing Xiao Hongqun's doubt, Huo Yuhao was also somewhat helpless. This matter was simply too bizarre, let alone outsiders not believing it, even he himself would never have believed it had he not experienced it firsthand. Just at this moment, Huo Yu, who had been silent all along, let his gaze fall upon the small stream behind them. He carefully sensed it, and this river felt exactly the same to him as the one in the Stardo Great Forest. Could it be? This river seems to be the same as the small stream we jumped into, perhaps it has the same function. What function? Meng Hongqun looked at the speaking Huo Yu. That river is very magical. As long as you jump into it, one person will turn into three. The three of us came about this way. Huo Yuhao weakly opened his mouth to explain. PFF. Meng Hongqun at the side could no longer hold it in and burst out laughing directly. Covering her mouth, she looked at Huo Yuhao, feeling that this little fellow was truly too interesting. Oh, one person turns into three. Do you take us for 3-year-old children? Meng Hongqun laughed until her body trembled like a flower swaying in the wind. You guys are clearly just three brothers who look very much alike, why bother making up such an outrageous excuse? She felt that although these three people had weird backgrounds, they didn't seem to be bad people, instead, they were quite interesting. Seeing that the other party completely disbelieved them, Huo Hao directly spoke up. You can try it. Wouldn't you know if you let someone jump in and see if they turn into three? Huo Yu's words caused the scene to instantly quiet down. The smile on Xiao Hongqun's face also converged, his eyes narrowed slightly as he scrutinized the three brothers before him. These three people had acted very calmly from start to finish, and were unusually firm about the statement of one turning into three. Could it be true? As soon as this thought popped up, it was rejected by himself. How could that be possible? It was simply the height of absurdity. All right then. Xiao Hongqun was amused, and he decided to play along with these few heaven-defying brats. He stepped forward and said in a tone carrying a trace of oppression. We'll do as you say. If it really is as you said, that one person jumping in can turn into three, then today's matter will be let go, and I'll spare your lives. His words turned abruptly, and a trace of stern coldness flashed in his eyes. But if nothing happens and you are just toying with this young master, then don't blame me for capturing the three of you and throwing you into the Empire dungeon to taste some real hardship. After saying that, without even turning his head, he commanded one of the soldiers behind him. You, go down. Yes, young master. That soldier did not hesitate at all, responding crisply and neatly. He strode to the riverbank and, without the slightest hesitation, jumped into the river with a plop sound. The river surface merely rippled with a small circle. Just as Xiao Hongqun wore a cold smile on the corner of his mouth implying, let's see how you'll clean up this mess, and prepared to watch the three brothers make a fool of themselves. That calm river surface, without any warning, once again surfaced with a figure. He still held a fishing rod, and his face still wore that lazy smile. Lin Feng appeared once again. Chapter 13. What is the difference between the river god and a wish-granting machine? This guy. Xiao Hongqun's sneer instantly froze, and his heterochromatic eyes of emerald and azure suddenly constricted. Meng Hongqun behind him and that team of elite soldiers widened their eyes even further, filled with utter disbelief. They saw it clearly, this person truly floated up from the river water. Furthermore, before this, they hadn't even sensed any presence from Lin Feng, as if he had appeared out of thin air. Huo Yuhao and his two brothers were relatively calm. After all, this was already the third time they had seen this mysterious river god. Lin Feng ignored everyone's shock and simply locked his gaze onto Xiao Hongqun. His eyes held no special meaning, remaining as gentle as ever. He spoke with a chuckle, his voice not loud, yet it clearly entered everyone's ears. Oh, young Xiao Hongqun tilde. He slowly raised the fishing rod in his hand, ripples dancing across the water's surface as a figure was fished out from the river by him, suspended in midair. That was a soldier wearing armor of the same standard, but his aura was completely different from the one who had jumped down. His entire body radiated an iron-blooded, murderous aura of one who had survived 100 battles, resembling an asura who had just walked out of a mountain of corpses in a sea of blood. Even just looking at him, one could feel the strong sense of oppression emanating from his body. Furthermore, the armor worn by this fellow was somewhat tattered, yet it added a touch of ferocity to this soldier. Lin Feng pointed at this iron-blooded soldier and asked leisurely. Is the one you dropped this battle-hardened soldier? Gulp. Xiao Hongchen's soldiers subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They were all spirit masters and could clearly sense that the aura of the soldier who had been fished up was more than a notch stronger than the companion who had jumped down. How is this possible? Xiao Hongchen's heart was stirred with towering waves. As a genius of the Sun Moon Royal Academy, Xiao Hongchen could naturally see at a glance the terrifying aspects of the soldier before him. If it were the previous soldier, even if Xiao Hongchen's spirit power level was lower than that person's, he would still be confident of defeating him given a bit of time. However, regarding this iron-blooded soldier before him, Xiao Hongchen knew that if it came to a battle of life and death, he would definitely not be an opponent. Just as his mind was violently shaken and he didn't know how to respond, a calm voice rang out by his ear. Answer truthfully. It was Huo Yu. He didn't know what would happen if he lied, but it definitely wouldn't be anything good. Xiao Hongchen took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the shock in his heart. Looking at Lin Feng, he answered in a deep voice. No. The smile on Lin Feng's face became even more brilliant. Very good. With a flick of his wrist, that iron-blooded soldier instantly vanished, as if he had never appeared. Following that, he raised the fishing rod once more. This time, the one fished up was another soldier. This soldier's temperament was completely opposite to the previous one, his expression was peaceful, and his entire person exuded a reassuring and reliable aura. Then, is the one you dropped this soldier filled with loyalty and a belief in protection? Lin Feng asked once again. With Huo Yu's reminder, Xiao Hongchen did not hesitate at all this time. Also no. This soldier vanished once more, and this time the original soldier appeared. Then, is the one you dropped this ordinary-looking soldier who isn't special at all? Yes. What do you mean by ordinary-looking and not special at all? He was his elite guard after all. Xiao Hongchen forcefully suppressed the urge to complain in his heart. Hee. Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction, letting out a pleasant chuckle. You truly are an honest good child, so all 3 soldiers are given to you. As his voice fell, the fishing rod in his hand gently flicked. Plop, plop, plop. 3 figures were thrown out by him from the river, landing steadily on the bank. They were precisely the 2 soldiers with completely different temperaments from just now, as well as the original soldier who had jumped down the river. 3 identical people were leaning against each other right now, except their auras were vastly different. After finishing all this, Lin Feng's figure began to turn illusory. Carrying his fishing rod, he slowly sank into the water surface, still wearing that lazy smile on his face, as if he had just done an insignificant trifle. By the riverside, a dead silence descended. Everyone looked as if they had been hit by a body immobilization spell, staring dumbfounded at this extraordinary scene before their eyes. What the 3 brothers of Huo Yuhao said, actually turned out to be true. One person jumping in really turns into 3. An illusion, this must be some kind of powerful illusion spirit ability. A soldier finally couldn't help saying with a trembling voice that he must still be dreaming, otherwise how could such a thing happen? No, this cannot be an illusion spirit ability. Although Xiao Hongchen's heart was also filled with shock, he could still tell reality apart. He walked in front of the 3 soldiers, the 3 people's auras were incomparably real, and this absolutely could not be a false illusion. Meng Hongchen's eyes narrowed, and then she spoke to Xiao Hongchen. Brother, we must report this matter to Grandpa immediately. The grandfather in her mouth was precisely Jing Hongchen, the master of Ming Hall of the Sun Moon Empire, a level 9 soul engineer with the title, Hongchen. Xiao Hongchen took a deep breath, his gaze turning incomparably solemn. He knew his younger sister was right. This matter was of vital importance. He immediately shouted to a captain behind him who was still in a daze. You, return to Ming Hall immediately, and report everything that happened here word for word to Hall Master Jing Hongchen. Go quickly. Yes, young master. That captain gave a start, no longer caring about the shock, and turned into a streak of light, rushing towards Ming capital at top speed. After arranging all this, Xiao Hongchen's gaze landed on those 3 identical soldiers. He still had one greatest doubt in his heart. Just how strong were these 2 extra soldiers? Although their auras were much fiercer, what about their actual combat? Only by fighting would they know the true gap. You 3, have a match and see whose strength is greater. Seeing that soldier radiating an iron-blooded, murderous aura, he only coldly glanced at his surroundings, then found a place by himself to sit cross-legged, closing his eyes to rest, as if he were indifferent to everything around him and didn't care about Xiao Hongchen's order in the slightest. This fellow actually dared to ignore the young master's command like this. All the guards grew anxious, wanting to properly teach this ignorant and arrogant fellow a lesson, but they were stopped by Xiao Hongchen. Now is not the time to care about such things. I'll battle you. The second soldier who appeared smiled and spoke, battle intent burning in his eyes. Good. The original soldier nodded. He absolutely could not lose, and could not fail the young master's expectations of him. Very good. The 2 assumed their stances, their spirit rings instantly lighting up. It was the same 6 spirit rings, and the exact same configuration. The next second, both of them moved simultaneously. However, the result of the battle was completely one-sided. Bang. In merely a single exchange, the original soldier was given a clean and neat shoulder throw by the second soldier, heavily slamming onto the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. The original soldier instantly lost consciousness. The latter didn't even use spirit possession, purely relying on superior combat skills and strength to complete a crushing defeat. The entire scene fell dead silent once more. Everyone saw it clearly, that was not a battle of the same magnitude at all. Strength really had grown stronger, and it was an all-around enhancement. Xiao Hongchen slowly exhaled a breath of foul air, but his gaze quickly returned to normal, a playful expression appearing. It was truly interesting. He wasn't a fool, he was very clear on what the existence of this river meant. A mysterious place that could split a person into 3 and also enhance their strength out of thin air. A strong premonition welled up in Xiao Hongchen's heart. The appearance of this river, no, the descent of this mysterious river god, will completely change the landscape of the entire Douluo continent. And he, Xiao Hongchen, would be the witness to all of this. If the river god did not actively interfere in the affairs of the Douluo continent, then perhaps they could borrow the power of this river god to enhance the strength of the Sun Moon Empire and become the strongest entity in the entire Douluo continent. The blueprint of his dreams had already been drawn. Chapter 14. If you are unwilling to join my holy spirit cult, all of you shall die. Sun Moon Empire, Ming capital, Ming Hall. Inside the magnificent hall, the atmosphere was solemn. An elderly man wearing luxurious robes and with his hair meticulously combed was sitting in the main seat, holding a cup of steaming hot tea with a majestic demeanor. He was the master of this Ming Hall, the highest authority in spiritual research of the Sun Moon Empire, and a level 9 soul engineer, Jing Hongchen. What did you say? Say it again. Jing Hongchen took a sip of tea without even raising his eyelids, his voice so calm that no ripples could be heard in it. But below him, the captain of the guard who had just galloped back from the outskirts felt a terrifying pressure akin to a storm about to arrive. He swallowed his saliva again, forcing himself to calm down, and repeated word for word what had happened before. Quote. Hall master, that is how it is. The young master and young miss encountered 3 youths of unknown origin by the small river in the outskirts. According to them, that river possesses magical power and can turn one person into 3. Then a mysterious person truly emerged from that small river and turned one of my subordinates into 3 identical people, but the aura on their bodies was completely different. The captain of the guard said this until his mouth was dry, but Jing Hongchen, sitting above, did not even move a single eyebrow. After a long while, Jing Hongchen slowly put down the teacup, making a soft, ta, sound. He finally raised his eyelids, and those eyes, which were somewhat similar to Xiao Hongchen's but deeper and sharper, fell upon the captain of the guard. The captain continued to speak, recounting the scene at that time more specifically, such as the 3 questions and 3 answers, as well as the kind of temperament each soldier emitted when they were brought out. The first was filled with iron-blooded slaughter, while the second was relatively gentle. Jing Hongchen quietly looked at him, a scrutinizing light flashing in his eyes. The squad leader's tone did not sound like he was lying. However, this content was simply too absurd. River God. 1 person turning into 3. This sounded more like a farce acted out by his grandson and granddaughter together with their subordinates just to tease him. The corners of Jing Hongchen's mouth could not help but curl into a faint arc. Gods, what a joke. This Douluo continent had not seen the trace of a divinity for a full 10,000 years. The last legend about a god was still that sea god Tang San, the head of the first generation Shrek 7 devils who single-handedly destroyed the spirit empire and established the Tang sect, along with his group of companions. But that was a legend from 10,000 years ago after all. In today's era, the closest to the word, god, was probably only that decrepit old immortal Muan of Shrek Academy, and the beast god DTN who ranked at the top of the fierce beast rankings deep inside the Stardew Great Forest. A river god who popped up from nowhere. If it were a true deity, it would have ascended to the god realm long ago. Why would it stay in this remote corner? Hey, perhaps those 2 little fellows Xiao and Munger came up with some new type of spirit tool and wanted to give him a surprise. Thinking of this, although Jing Hongchen still retained a 1 in 10,000 doubt in his heart, he felt more that this was a joke meticulously planned by the juniors. However, since they were performing so hard, as their grandfather, it wouldn't make sense for him not to go and take a look with his own eyes. Get up. Jing Hongchen stood up and dusted off his robes. Lead the way, I want to see what tricks they are pulling. Yes, Hall Master. As if granted amnesty, the captain of the guard hurriedly led the way in front. Jing Hongchen's figure flickered slightly, and he followed like a Gui Mei, so fast that it was not slower than a spirit emperor flying at full speed. Soon, the group arrived at the small river in the outskirts of Ming capital. From far away, Jing Hongchen saw a group of people surrounding the river. It was precisely his grandson and granddaughter and that team of guards. Grandpa. Meng Hongchen had sharp eyes and was the first to discover Jing Hongchen. She immediately greeted him like a cheerful little bird, intimately hooking her arm around his. You've finally come. You didn't see it, but an immortal really appeared just now. With a swish, he popped out from the river holding a fishing rod, and he looked so good. Then he went swish, swish, swish and turned Brother Wong into 3 people. 3 identical people. As she spoke, the little girl gestured with hands and feet, her face full of excitement and exaggerated colors. Jing Hongchen smiled helplessly and dotingly patted her head. This girl acts really convincingly. Grandpa. Xiao Hongchen also walked over, his expression much more serious. He did not describe it vividly like his sister, but directly turned to the side and pointed at a clearing not far away. See for yourself. Jing Hongchen looked along the direction of his finger. At just a glance, the slight smile on his face completely froze. Seeing on the clearing, there unexpectedly stood 3 soldiers wearing the same armor and looking identical. Not only that, on the other side, there also stood 3 youths, likewise with extremely similar appearances but different temperaments. One was gentle and delicate, one was sunny and cheerful, and one was stern and handsome. This. Jing Hongchen's pupils shrank violently. With his mental force as a level 9 soul engineer, he could tell at a glance that those 6 people, whether the 3 soldiers or the 3 youths, were all living beings with real flesh, blood, and souls. By no means any illusion or blindfold trick. How could there truly be identical people in this world? Of course, the distinction among Huo Yuhao's 3 brothers was still quite large, and they could be considered triplets, but as for his grandson and granddaughter's guards, Jing Hongchen understood them inside and out. Triplets could not possibly exist. What on earth is going on? Jing Hongchen's voice carried a trace of imperceptible trembling for the first time. Xiao Hongchen's expression was incomparably solemn, and he briefly introduced the origins of Huo Yuhao's 3 brothers, as well as how they jumped into the divine river of the Stardew Great Forest and then appeared here. Subsequently, he pointed at the 3 soldiers again, telling everything exactly as it happened, the appearance of the river god, the 3 questions and 3 answers, and the result of the final strength test. Listening to his grandson's narration, these words were about the same as what the guard captain had just said. In this world, such an inconceivable matter actually existed. A divine river connecting the Stardew Great Forest and the Sun Moon Empire. A river god capable of splitting a person into 3. This completely subverted the worldview he had established over the past nearly 100 years. Just as Jing Hongchen's mind was violently shaken and he intended to immediately launch the most thorough research on this bizarre small river. A hair-raising aura filled with extreme evil and chaos burst forth without any warning from the woods not far away. That aura was overbearing, violent, lawless, and filled with contempt and destructive desire towards all rules in the world. Jia 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 Jia. Accompanied by a teeth-aching strange laugh, a figure slowly walked out from the woods. His figure was withered and thin, but within that withered body, extremely terrifying power was contained, and his mere appearance was enough to shake the hearts of everyone present. Xuanzi. Jing Hongchen was greatly astonished. Wasn't this Xuanzi of Shrek Academy? How did he become like this? I am Teodi, the supreme elder of the Holy Spirit cult. If you all are willing to join my Holy Spirit cult, I will spare your lives. If you are unwilling, die. The terrifying power of slaughter instantly enveloped the entire scene. Chapter 15. I wanted to capture the ringleader first, but alas, there were 3 flies. Holy Spirit cult supreme elder Teodi. Hearing this title, Jing Hongchen's heart felt as though it had been fiercely clenched by an invisible giant hand. How could anyone know about the Holy Spirit cult? The Holy Spirit cult. To the vast majority of people on the Douluo continent, this name was an unfamiliar word, but to Jing Hongqian, a high-ranking official of the Sun Moon Empire and the master of Minghao, he was more than clear on the meaning behind these 3 words. That was a terrorist organization composed of the most evil and crazy evil soul masters. It was also one of the Sun Moon Empire's most important partners in the dark. It was even the state-protecting religion of the Sun Moon Empire. This matter was the highest secret within the empire. Aside from a mere handful of people, no one knew. The empire's goal was to use them to disrupt the continent's pattern, but it had never thought of truly bringing this group of lunatics to the surface. Yet the Xuanzi before him, who should have been an elder of Shrek Academy, not only turned into this ominous and evil appearance, but also directly stated the existence of the Holy Spirit cult, and even claimed to be the Supreme Elder. Could it be that the Holy Spirit cult successfully recruited the other party? Countless thoughts flashed through Jing Hongqian's mind, causing him to be somewhat dazed for a moment. Right at this moment, an extremely subtle yet exceptionally clear spiritual fluctuation silently transmitted into his mind. Senior. It was Huo Yuhao's voice. His tone was as calm as ever. According to my observation and guess, this Xuanzi before us is very likely, just like us, one separated after jumping into that divine river, and is not the Xuanzi of Shrek Academy. So that was how it was. He suddenly looked toward the calm stream, a trace of realization and dread flashing in his eyes. Could this river actually split even an existence like Xuanzi into 3? If what Huo Yuhao said was true, then the Holy Spirit cult Teodi, that the Xuanzi before him claimed to represent might not be the same as the one he knew. An uncontrollable evil soul master, the trouble was huge. Jing Hongqian's expression instantly turned incomparably solemn, and just as he wanted to open his mouth to say something, the opposite evil Xuanzi had already lost all patience. He, what are you still waiting for? Since you are unwilling to submit, then turn into this old man's nourishment. With a sinister laugh, evil Xuanzi moved. His withered figure seemed to tear through space, instantly appearing in front of Jing Hongqian. There were no flashy spirit abilities, just a withered hand claw wrapped in thick black chi, aiming straight for Jing Hongqian's heart. He saw very clearly that among those present, only Jing Hongqian could pose a trace of threat to him, capture the ringleader first. This claw was faster than imagination. In practically the blink of an eye, it arrived before Jing Hongqian. So fast. Jing Hongqian's pupils shrank abruptly, but after all, he was a 94th ranked titled Douluo standing at the apex of the continent, his combat instincts had long been deeply ingrained in his bones. Clang. At the critical moment, an invisible dark red light barrier instantly enveloped his entire body, a level 9 trigger type defense spirit tool, red dust protection. Boom. Evil Xuanzi's hand claw fiercely slammed into the light barrier, erupting with a deafening loud noise. The violent shockwave boomed and spread with the 2 of them as the center, blowing the surrounding guard soldiers swaying unsteadily. Jing Hongqian only felt an irresistible immense force transmit from the light barrier, his entire body uncontrollably sliding backward for more than 10 meters, his feet plowing 2 deep gullies on the ground. His heart was shaken with shock. This strength, so strong. Far more formidable than Shrek Academy's Xuanzi. All of you back away. This is not somewhere you can interfere. Jing Hongqian shouted sternly toward the crowd behind him. Xiao Hongqian and Meng Hongqian's faces were pale. They were very clear that in a battle of this level, staying behind would only become their grandfather's burden. Xiao Hongqian made a prompt decision, pulling his younger sister who still wanted to say something, and led all the guards to rapidly evacuate into the distance. However, Huo Yuhao's 3 brothers did not move. Senior, we might be able to help a little. Huo Yuhao's clear voice sounded, and immediately after, his dual pupils lit up with brilliant purple golden light. Spiritual detection sharing. In an instant, an incomparably clear and 3-dimensional omnidirectional battlefield perception map was directly presented in Jing Hongqian's mind. This is. Jing Hongqian was greatly shocked in his heart. Although the range was not large, under the current situation, even a tiny bit of help was incomparably important. He, quite interesting little bugs. Evil Xuanzi gave a sinister laugh, his fifth spirit ring behind him blooming with great light. Fifth spirit ability, Teodi's Devouring. A huge Teodi phantom composed of pure black chi emerged behind him, opening its bloody maw, and a terrifying suction force instantly enveloped the entire scene. As if it wanted to devour all things in heaven and earth completely. Jing Hongqian only felt his spirit power flowing outward uncontrollably, his expression changing instantly. Right at this critical moment. Freeze. Huo Yuhao gave a cold shout, deep within his pupils, 2 gray shackles seemingly flashed by and disappear. That terrifying suction force enveloping the entire scene actually experienced the stagnation of a fraction of a second. Evil Xuanzi's movements also showed a momentary stiffness. Although extremely brief, for a strong practitioner like Jing Hongqian, it was already enough. Right now. Jing Hongqian grasped this fleeting opportunity, and the terrifying aura belonging to a 94th rank attack system titled Douluo on his body erupted with a boom. The 7th spirit ring on his body suddenly shone with boundless light. 7th spirit ability, Toad True Form. With a low roar, Jing Hongqian's body rapidly expanded under the wrapping of spirit power, and in the blink of an eye, a toad with a size exceeding 15 meters, entirely dark golden in color and covered with huge bumps on its skin, appeared on the battlefield. He waved his palm fiercely, and a level 8 close combat spirit tool, the Judgment Sword, appeared in his hand. However, Evil Xuanzi's reaction was even faster. He broke free from the restraints almost the instant he was imprisoned, and facing the Judgment Sword about to slash down, a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. Just as he prepared to take this sword head-on, an invisible spiritual shock fiercely slammed into his spiritual sea once again. It was Huo Yu. His dual pupils lit up with a bizarre glow, and under the precise positioning of Huo Yuhao's spiritual sharing, his spiritual attack accurately hit the target. Evil Xuanzi's figure swayed once more, the look of tyranny in his eyes growing even more intense. 3 annoying flies. Although their attacks could not cause substantial harm to him, these continuous and successive interferences made him feel irritated. It was precisely this momentary irritation and lag that allowed Jing Hongqian's attack to land on Xuanzi. Boom. With the momentum of splitting heaven and earth, the Judgment Sword slashed solidly onto the Teodi Phantom hastily condensed by Evil Xuanzi. This time, it was no longer as easy as before. Crack. On the Teodi Phantom, at the place struck by the Judgment Sword, a clear crack actually appeared. Evil Xuanzi himself let out a muffled groan, his figure being repelled from the front by half a step for the first time, and the black chi lingering around his arms was also slashed apart quite a bit. The spirit abilities displayed by these 3 youths were indeed worthy of being called divine skills, a truly perfect assistance, giving Jing Hongqian a feeling of having picked up a treasure. Very good, you have successfully angered me. Evil Xuanzi's scarlet gaze crossed past Jing Hongqian, locking firmly onto Huo Yuhao and his 3 brothers. 3 little flies, truly annoying to death. In his view, if it weren't for the repeated interference of these three little fellows, it would be utterly impossible for him to be injured. He wanted to make them pay the most miserable price. Die. He let out an angry roar, his figure instantly disappearing from the spot. His target was no longer Jing Hongqian, but those three brothers. In practically an instant, his withered figure crossed a distance of 100 meters, appearing right in front of Huo Yuhao's three brothers. That terrifying sharp claw, carrying the momentum to destroy everything, fiercely grabbed down toward the tops of the three people's heads. Chapter 16. Where did such a big Nguyen of mine go? Oh no. Jing Hongqian thought to himself inwardly, his pupils contracting sharply because of what was happening now. He completely hadn't expected that evil Xuanzi would so decisively give up himself, who was the biggest threat to him, and instead attack the three brothers of Huo Yuhao. They were just a few children. Jing Hongqian subconsciously urged his spirit power, wanting to rescue them, but the opponent's claws had almost landed on the three people's bodies. Even no matter how much Jing Hongqian wanted to urge his spirit power, he probably couldn't protect the three brothers of Huo Yuhao anymore. Meng Hongqian in the distance, seeing the terrifying sharp claw sufficient to tear the firmament already shrouded over the three brothers' heads, was frightened out of her wits and subconsciously closed her eyes, unable to bear watching that bloody scene again. Xiao Hongqian's expression was also ugly at this time. This evil Xuanzi was simply too formidable. Even when his grandfather used his proud spirit tool, there was actually no way to cause too much trouble for this evil Xuanzi. Looking at the three youths under Xuanzi's claws, a trace of pity flashed through Jing Hongqian's eyes. If they were given a little more time to grow, who knows, the three of them might grow to a quite terrifying extent. This was probably heaven-envying talents. Meeting evil Xuanzi at this time, the three of them were destined to die here. However, just when that sharp claw was less than half an inch away from Huo Yuhao's head, and the fierce wind had already blown the three people's hair into crazy dancing, a sudden change occurred. Get lost. Tianmeng I Silkworm let out an angry roar. Want to kill my little Yuhao? You're not qualified enough. Laozi is still counting on him to lead me to become a god. This was a mental force shock released directly toward evil Xuanzi. The mental force shock of a million-year spirit beast was not something the power of Huo Yuhao and the three could compare to. At the same time, two other mental forces that were equally majestic and vast, yet vastly different in style, also joined this battle on the mental level. HMPH, want to kill him in front of me? Too cowardly. Golden Dream Silkworm's voice was filled with arrogance and disdain, its mental force like an indestructible golden sharp sword, fiercely piercing toward evil Xuanzi's soul core. They're all going up, then I'll go up too. Silver White Dream Silkworm's voice carried fear, but its mental force was like an omnipresent silver fog, instantly shrouding evil Xuanzi's entire mental world, bringing chaos and interfering with evil Xuanzi's cognition. Trinity, the joint mental attack of a million-year spirit beast. This move was their ultimate life-saving means at the bottom of the box. Once used, the mental origins of the three dream silkworms would suffer massive shock and fall into a long slumber. But at this moment, they couldn't care about that much anymore. Evil Xuanzi let out an extremely shrill scream, the shock coming from the depths of the soul, and it was the mental force shock of a million-year spirit beast. Even no matter how formidable evil Xuanzi was, after taking such a blow, he still felt quite painful. He hugged his head, his body trembling violently. That sharp claw about to fall, sufficient to destroy Huo Yuhao and the three, just froze like that in midair. The terrifying evil aura on his body rapidly dissipated, and the strength of his entire body seemed to be completely drained in this instant. Opportunity. Within the dual pupils of Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu, startling brightness erupted simultaneously. Without the slightest hesitation, the two raised their right legs simultaneously, used all the strength of their whole bodies, and kicked fiercely with one foot onto evil Xuanzi's chest. Off you go. Bang. A muffled sound rang out. Amidst everyone's shocked gazes, that evil Xuanzi who had just been overbearing and forced Jing Hongqian, who was a level 9 soul engineer and also a level 94 titled Douluo, into a desperate situation was kicked flying straight out by the two youths. The goal of Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu was quite clear, which was to kick Xuanzi into that small river. Next, whether making a choice, or directly sending evil Xuanzi to the Stardew Great Forest, it was a good thing for them. Plop. With a soft sound, evil Xuanzi fell straight into the river just like that. After splashing a small patch of water, he quickly sank and disappeared. Seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't help but be stunned. What was going on? How come evil Xuanzi suddenly stopped moving just now? Was it done by those three youths? You must know that even with one's full strength, it would only leave such a trace on evil Xuanzi's body, yet the three youths before their eyes, not knowing what they did, actually made evil Xuanzi emit such painful cries and were even kicked directly into the small river by the two. He rubbed his eyes, convinced that he hadn't seen wrong. How could this be? What kind of secrets were hidden on these three little fellows? Huo Yuhao and the three brothers were also breathing heavily at this moment. Although the outburst at that exact instant was Tianmeng I Silkworm, Golden Dream Silkworm, and Silver White Dream Silkworm launching the mental force shock, it had also almost emptied all of their strength. Brother Tianmeng. Huo Yuhao called out anxiously in his heart. I'm fine, just a bit sleepy. Little Yuhao, we are going to sleep for a bit. Tianmeng I Silkworm's weak voice came intermittent, and afterwards, it completely fell silent. Not only Tianmeng, but the auras of Golden Dream Silkworm and Silver White Dream Silkworm also disappeared together. Huo Yuhao's heart tightened. He knew that Tianmeng I Silkworm and the others had paid a huge price to save the three of them. He silently clenched his fists, deeply carving disfavor into the bottom of his heart. And just as this riverbank fell into an eerie calmness, the other side of the small river was a completely different scene. Beibei and Xuanzi, the two of them were staring nervously at that small river. Just a moment ago, Nguyen jumped into this small river without hesitation, but there was still no news yet. According to reason, shouldn't Lin Feng appear immediately? What was going on? And now Nguyen's aura had also disappeared, which made them even more flustered. You must know this was Shrek Academy's current highest combat power. If Nguyen were lost, it would be a huge loss for Shrek Academy. At the same time, Beibei also did not wish to lose his great-grandfather. Beibei continuously called out to Nguyen, but still there was no response whatsoever. Elder Mu. Xuanzi's eyes were full of tears. It was he who harmed Nguyen. If it weren't for himself, maybe Nguyen wouldn't have jumped into this small river. Beibei, hurry up and jump down, go find Elder Mu. Xuanzi looked at Beibei beside him and shouted in a hurry. Right now he was a useless person and completely unable to enter the river, so he could only rely on Beibei. He completely ignored that when Nguyen jumped down just now, he directly lost all response, now letting Beibei, a three-ring spirit master, jump down. What difference did it make from courting death? But now Nguyen was missing, and he no longer had any way to care about that much. He had to retrieve Nguyen. Just when Beibei intended to jump down, suddenly, ripples stirred on the river's surface. It's here. Beibei and Xuanzi's hearts both rose to their throats. A figure slowly emerged from the river water. However, when they saw that person's appearance clearly, the anticipation and tension on the two people's faces instantly froze. That person was not Lin Yi whom they were familiar with. Much less Mu En. Isn't this the evil Xuanzi who escaped just now? Where did my massive Mu En go? Chapter 17. This river can even fuse. Is this right? The script is wrong. Looking at evil Xuanzi, who exuded a sinister aura, with his eyes tightly closed at this moment and clearly fallen into a deep coma, a bone-deep venomous hatred suddenly burst from Xuanzi's eyes. It was this fellow. It was this monster with a face identical to his own, which almost destroyed the foundation of Shrek Academy, and even reduced him to a useless person who could only rely on others for support. Enemies meeting face to face, eyes blazing with crimson hatred. Bei, attack. Although Xuanzi's legs were already crippled, that bossy and arrogant momentum did not decrease in the slightest. He roared hoarsely, his face becoming twisted and ferocious due to extreme anger. Take advantage of his illness to take his life. Now that this monster is unconscious, it is a god-given opportunity to kill him. Quick, twist his head off for me. Eldazon, no. Bei was greatly shocked in his heart, hurriedly grabbing the emotionally out of control Xuanzi, a layer of fine cold sweat instantly oozing from his forehead. Let go of me, Bei, have you forgotten who Elder Mu jumped down for? If this monster doesn't die, Shrek will never know peace. Xuanzi struggled wildly, spitting saliva all over Bei's face. Eldazon, calm down. Great-grandfather just jumped down, and now this evil Xuanzi has appeared. If we kill him, what happens if it causes an impact on great-grandfather? This river is simply too bizarre. These words were like a basin of ice water poured straight over Xuanzi's head. Accidentally injuring Mu En, it was indeed possible, but this fellow must absolutely not be allowed to live in the world. If Mu En were still here, he would definitely have the same thought as himself. Right at this moment, huge ripples suddenly arose on the calm surface of the water once more. Splash. Lin Feng emerged from beneath the water carrying a fishing rod. Following closely, Lin Feng gently flicked his fishing rod with his right hand, and a youth of about 20-something was fished up by Lin Feng. Looking at his appearance, he bore a resemblance to Mu En, or rather, he looked just like a young Mu En, but the aura emitted from this person was several times more formidable than Mu En. Lin Feng looked smilingly at Bei, who was dumbfounded, and the familiar voice sounded once again. Oh, young Bei Tilda is the one you dropped this golden Mu En who possesses the blazing heavenly sacred dragon spirit and is enough to sweep across the world. No. Bei directly denied it. Would this Mu En really join Shrek Academy and become a helpful force for Shrek Academy? Or would he be like that righteous Xuanzi? Then. Just when Bei thought Lin Feng was going to take out a second Mu En, that evil Xuanzi, who had been floating on the water surface in a state of coma, unexpectedly vanished without any warning. Immediately after, Lin Feng lifted his fishing rod again, and an elderly man with a tall and robust figure appeared. Yet he had Mu En's refined facial contours, while his brows and the space between them revealed Xuanzi's unique ruggedness and brutality. The left half of his body was covered in ink-black dragon scales, while the right half was covered in bizarre gray fur, and on his back was a pair of huge fleshy wings still dripping with black sticky fluid. The most terrifying thing was his aura. That was a kind of ultimate darkness formed by the fusion of light after its fall, along with the greedy evil thoughts of the Teodi divine ops that devoured everything. This was a monster through and through. Bei was completely dumbfounded, his entire person stiffening in place as if struck by lightning, his mind blank. What kind of situation was this? Moreover, this monster before his eyes, no matter how he looked at it, it looked like evil Xuanzi and some form of Mu En fused together. Not only could this river split a person into three, but it actually had an auto-fusion feature. Even spirit fusion techniques wouldn't fuse like this. Bei's complexion instantly turned as pale as paper. The terror of that aura made Bei feel that just taking a single glance would contaminate his soul. If this monster were allowed to appear on the Douluo continent. Bei did not dare to think further, that would definitely be a catastrophe that plunged all living beings into misery. Can we not have this option? Bei asked with a trembling voice, subconsciously looking towards Lin Feng, his eyes filled with entreaty. It would even be fine if bright Mu En wasn't wanted. However, Lin Feng acted as if he didn't hear Bei's request at all. He simply maintained that standard smile, like an emotionless NPC, mechanically and banteringly asking. Then, oh young Bei Tilda is the one you dropped this mutated Muzan who fused the ultimate darkness and the evil of devouring. Muzan. Even the names were directly fused. Did he still want this Mu En? If he lied at this time, Mu En would also be gone, but, that was his great-grandfather and he had to rescue him. No, it's not. Bei yelled through clenched teeth. Then, is the one you dropped this ordinary Mu En who was on the verge of death and in his twilight years? Lin Feng quickly fished up the third figure, who was precisely the original Mu En. Yes. Bei answered loudly without any hesitation. Lin Feng gave a thumbs up and praised Bei. You truly are a child whose honesty is moving. In this world full of deceit, your honesty simply shines like gold. To reward you for this precious honesty. Lin Feng changed his tone, and his arm suddenly swung upward. All three of these will be given to you. Take them well and don't thank me, Tilda. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Accompanied by three sounds of breaking through the air, that sacred and majestic golden Mu En, that terrifyingly extreme mutated Muzan, and that original ordinary Mu En were unceremoniously tossed toward the shore by Lin Feng like 3 bags of rice. Bang, bang, bang. With 3 muffled thuds, the 3 of them fell neatly onto the lawn in front of Bei and Xuanzi. Bei. Xuanzi. Is this what you call reward? This is clearly trying to play us to death. Especially that monster in the middle. If it suddenly attacked him and Xuanzi, the 2 of them would definitely die without a doubt. Just as the 2 of them hadn't recovered from their shock, Muzan unexpectedly did not launch an attack on anyone present. Instead, the fleshy wings on his back fiercely vibrated, and his entire body transformed into a pitch-black stream of light, instantly tearing through the sky with an unimaginable speed as he fled towards the distance. That kind of speed even surpassed the category of a limit Douluo. In the blink of an eye, that terrifying figure had already vanished at the end of the horizon. Ran away. Bei was completely dumbfounded. Didn't he even kill them along the way? Cough cough. Right at this moment, a burst of violent coughing broke the death-like silence. That original Mu En slowly opened his murky eyes. Great-grandfather, you're awake. Bei hurriedly pounced over, supporting Mu En, his eyes filled with concern. Mu En somewhat blankly glanced around, and afterwards, his gaze locked onto the young version of himself, not far away who was quietly lying on the grass, exuding sacred golden light all over. Elder Mu, take a look at Bei. Before Mu En could figure out the situation, Xuanzi, who was paralyzed on the ground nearby, suddenly erupted. At this moment, although Xuanzi's legs were crippled, this did not affect his ability to lodge complaints. Pointing at Bei, he roared at Mu En with a face full of resentment. Just now when that evil Xuanzi was unconscious, I said to kill him directly. Once and for all, but that indecisive brat Bebe insisted on stopping me, saying something about being afraid of accidentally injuring you. Now it's great, it turned into an even more terrifying monster and ran away. In the future, the entire Douluo continent will know no peace. Xuanzi flew into a frenzy of spittle. Clearly he was a useless person who needed care, yet at this moment he was still aggressive and pressing, as if occupying the high ground of morality. Bebe lowered his head, but under that kind of situation back then, he really didn't dare to gamble. However, Muan directly ignored Xuanzi and walked in front of the young version of himself. Chapter 18. The old Muan is already dead, next is the new Muan. The two were no more than 3 meters apart. One was an elderly man at death's door who looked like he could stop breathing at any moment, and the other was a brilliant golden radiant, hands behind his back, youth who seemed ready to ascend to the god realm at any time. Bebe stood to the side, his heart in his throat, worried that this bright Muan, just like righteous Xuanzi, would start fighting at the slightest disagreement. Muan was already at the end of his tether and definitely would not be a match for the guy in front of him. Especially since Bebe already knew the rules. Among the 3 people, the earlier someone appeared, the more terrifying their strength. Bebe had personally experienced the aura that Muzan had just erupted with, but what about bright Muan, who ranked ahead of Muzan? The strength of this bright Muan was definitely above that Muzan. He was even closer to the divine level than Muan. What is your name? Muan finally spoke, his voice hoarse yet unusually clear. Bright Muan slowly opened his eyes, golden light flowing within his pupils, even though his gaze did not land on Bebe, a feeling of involuntary worship would subconsciously rise deep within Bebe's heart. Muan. The same name. Muan let out a chuckle and nodded. Are you willing to join Shrek Academy? Bright Muan did not speak, just quietly looking at Muan, seeming to wait for him to give a reason. The present Douluo continent is not peaceful, the Sun Moon Empire is eyeing it covetously, the development of the spirit tool is changing with each passing day, and the 3 original nations of Douluo continent have fallen too far behind in technology. War could erupt at any moment. Moreover, it is not just war. A trace of deep worry flashed across Muan's eyes. There are also those evil soul master hiding in dark corners. They are pervasive and commit all sorts of evils. You saw the Muzan who just escaped. If he leads them, the entire Douluo continent will suffer unimaginable disaster. Speaking up to this point, Muan coughed violently a few times, a trace of black blood overflowing from the corner of his mouth. Bebe hurriedly wanted to step forward, but was stopped by a wave of Muan's hand. I am not going to make it. Muan looked straight into bright Muan's pair of golden pupils, a hint of entreaty in his tone, which was almost unimaginable for the proud dragon god Douluo of a lifetime. Shrek Academy is the continent's overseer and the cornerstone of maintaining continental peace. If Shrek falls, this world will completely plunge into chaos and darkness. After I die, Xuanzi. Muan paused, without looking back at that cripple, only sighing. Xuanzi has an impulsive personality, and now that his legs are crippled, he can hardly shoulder a great responsibility. Although Bebe is intelligent, he is still young after all, and his strength is still shallow. This world needs powerhouses. It needs a powerhouse like you, who possesses absolute power and can suppress all evil. Join Shrek Academy. Muan stated his final request. As the Sea God's Pavilion Master, I invite you to become the ballast stone of Shrek Academy. After listening to Muan's words, bright Muan's facial expression still did not change in the slightest. He did not even show a shred of interest in things like saving the world. After a long while, he spoke indifferently. When I awakened my spirit at age 6, it was the divine rank spirit blazing heavenly sacred dragon, with innate spirit power at rank 20. Hearing these words, Bebe's pupils abruptly constricted. Innate rank 20. I do not need to cultivate, my spirit power will automatically grow. I do not even need to hunt spirit beasts. Whenever I reach a bottleneck, the rules of heaven and earth will naturally condense a most perfect spirit ring for me. At age 12, I was already a spirit emperor. At age 16, I achieved title Douluo, with the title Bright. At age 20, I broke through rank 99, achieving limit Douluo, invincible under the heavens. Bebe. Xuanzi. Muan. Is this even human speech? Bebe felt his worldview shatter all over the ground. A title Douluo at 16, a limit Douluo at 20. Did they still want other people to live? You must know, how many years of cultivation did his great-grandfather and Long Xiaoyao, praise his Shrek's twin stars, take to reach limit Douluo? This was simply a life with cheats enabled. The corner of bright Muan's mouth hooked into a slight arc, an extremely confident, one could even say extremely arrogant smile. To me, the power, status, wars, and even the so-called right versus wrong struggle in this world are completely meaningless. Those are things only ants would care about. I have only one goal. Bright Muan raised his head, his gaze seeming to pierce through the firmament, looking toward that unknowable dimension. To become a god. I am only one step away from shattering the void and ascending to the god realm. Hearing this, half of Bebe's heart turned cold. It was over. The other party simply looked down on such trivial matters as Shrek Academy. That was true too, a limit Douluo at 20, all he thought about was how to go to the heavens, who would still care how the mud fights on the ground were fought. Muan's eyes also dimmed, that final breath seemingly about to dissipate along with this disappointment. However, just when everyone thought there was no hope, bright Muan changed the subject. However, these 2 words instantly made Bebe's heart leap back up. Bright Muan lowered his head, looking at that decrepit version of himself, the golden light in his eyes flickering slightly. Since I am also Muan, and since I was once a member of Shrek Academy, I accept this karma. I can join Shrek Academy. Bright Muan said indifferently. Really? Bebe was so pleasantly surprised he almost jumped up, and even Xuanzi, paralyzed on the ground, abruptly widened his eyes, a trace of wild joy flashing within them. However, I have conditions. Bright Muan raised a single finger, his expression indifferent. I am only responsible for taking action when Shrek Academy faces annihilation. As for usual teaching, management, or those scheming and trivial petty matters on the continent do not bother me. That works. That works way too damn well. Bebe nodded frantically in his heart. How is this unreliable? This was simply too reliable. Although Bright Muan was arrogant and did not care about affairs, his strength was formidable. His positioning was clear. This was the best deterrent weapon. This was equivalent to Shrek Academy housing a living immortal. As long as he did not die, who would dare touch Shrek? As for not caring about affairs, was Shrek Academy currently lacking management talent? What it lacked now was peerless combat power that could hold down the fort. Good, good. On Muan's face, a trace of a smile finally appeared. With this 20-year-old limit Douluo holding down the fort, Shrek Academy could at least extend its glory for another 100 years. As for that Muzan, Nguyen believed that righteousness would triumph over evil. As long as bright Nguyen was here, that monster could not stir up much trouble. Bei. Nguyen laboriously turned his head, looking toward his most cherished great-grandson. Great-grandfather, I am here. Bei hurriedly knelt before the wheelchair, tightly grasping Nguyen's withered and twig-like hand. Seeming to have a premonition of something, tears could no longer be controlled and burst out of his eyes. From now on, Shrek will be left to you all. Nguyen's voice grew increasingly weak, like a candle flickering in the wind. Great-grandfather, please rest assured. Bei sobbed uncontrollably, nodding frantically. Nguyen looked at Bei with gratification, then glanced again at that golden glowing, young self standing to the side. How wonderful. Being young is truly wonderful. If he had not been injured back then, if he could have been like him back then. Forget it, none of it mattered anymore. Shrek was preserved. Nguyen slowly closed his eyes. That hand holding Bei limply dropped down. A generation's dragon god Douluo, Shrek Academy Sea Gods Pavilion Master, Nguyen. Passed away. Great-grandfather. Elder Ngu. The two were extremely sorrowful over Nguyen's departure. Only bright Nguyen, hands still behind his back, watched this scene expressionlessly. Chapter 19 Tang San's plan, throwing Xiaoqi into the river. Having just concluded a lengthy meeting regarding the expansion of the God Realm, Tang San hurriedly returned to his palace to investigate matters on the Douluo continent. What? Tang San abruptly stood up from his divine seat, and those eyes, which were always filled with wisdom and depth, were actually somewhat blank at this moment. What did he see? 3 Huo Yuhaos had actually appeared in the Sun Moon Empire. Moreover, the people around him seemed to be from the Sun Moon Empire, looking quite familiar and chatting happily. How is this possible? The corners of Tang San's mouth twitched slightly. According to his script, Huo Yuhao should still be in the ivory tower of Shrek Academy filled with love and tempering, accepting all kinds of injustices and oppressions, thereby stimulating his determination to become stronger, and finally becoming stronger. How come in the blink of an eye, he ran off to the Sun Moon Empire? That was an enemy country. He was even the one who helped hook up the Holy Spirit cult line. This script is wrong. What made Tang San even more startled was yet to come. His gaze quickly shifted to Shrek Academy, the place that should have been Huo Yuhao's cradle of growth. Inside the Sea God's Pavilion. A golden light that made even him feel a trace of palpitations soared into the sky. Although that aura lacked divine force, in terms of quality, it faintly touched the threshold of a god. At the center of that light, a youth with an excessively handsome face sat cross-legged, and that aura of supreme dominance was simply even more arrogant than he was back then. This is Nguyen. Tang San was completely stunned, quite dumbfounded. Wasn't Nguyen supposed to be dying? He had even written the script for after Nguyen's death. Nguyen would exhaust himself to protect the academy, give Huo Yuhao limit teaching in 7-day cycles, pull out the dead Nguyen when the beast tide arrived, let him fight DTN again, and finally, when helping Huo Yuhao condense his second spirit core, his soul would be scattered into ashes. How perfect this set of combo moves was. How touching. It could definitely tightly bind Huo Yuhao to Shrek Academy. But now, who the hell is this? Is this guy who looks only 20 years old, has a vitality as vigorous as a dragon, and whose strength has even reached the peak of a demigod, only needing a final kick to ascend, really that frail Nguyen? Rejuvenation, and a rejuvenation where strength surges wildly. Tang San's expression instantly turned gloomy. Uncontrollable, far too uncontrollable. The appearance of this young version of Nguyen had once again disrupted his entire plan. If Nguyen did not die, how would Huo Yuhao be stimulated? How would he be tied to the same boat as him? More importantly, this Nguyen's strength. Tang San's eyes narrowed slightly, and a flash of cold light crossed his eyes. Demigod. If he is allowed to become a god and ascend to the god realm, with this uncontrolled personality of his, he will definitely become a huge variable in the god realm. Tang San's fingers lightly tapped on the armrest of the divine seat, making rhythmic, knock, knock, sounds, which was his habitual action when pondering how to scheme against people. Fortunately, though, Tang San's heart settled down a little. Nowadays, the inheritance of god positions on the Douluo continent is not so easy to obtain. Besides the ice god, the remaining god of emotions is in the hands of my brother Rong Nianbing, and the butterfly god's god position has long been reserved for my daughter. Even if you are exceptionally talented, without a god position, don't even think about ascending. Without a god position, even if you cultivate until you die, you are just a limit Douluo. As for condensing a god position on one's own, how could that be possible? Even he himself only ascended after inheriting the god positions of the Asura god and Sea god. Could a mere Nguyen compare to him? However, this Nguyen is ultimately a hidden danger. The killing intent in Tang San's eyes flashed and disappeared. Either find a way to make him surrender and become the guardian deity of the Tang sect in the lower realm. Or, can only, find an opportunity to make him disappear reasonably. He has already brought this upon himself. Just as Tang San was still plotting how to kill this young Nguyen, his divine sense scanned another corner. A figure as black as ink, exuding monstrous evil aura, was lurking in a dark corner of the continent. That aura was actually of the same origin as Nguyen, yet completely opposite. Tang San felt like his head was about to explode. Another one. Moreover, this Muzon's strength was not weak either. That evil aura was even fewer than that rabble of the Holy Spirit cult. What on earth is going on here? Tang San was quite furious. 3 Huo Yuhaos, 1 young Nguyen, 1 evil Muzon. The source of all this seemed to point to that bizarre little river. Water God. Tang San's voice penetrated layers of space and exploded directly in the water god's palace. Moments later, the water god, dressed in a water blue long dress with a gentle appearance, appeared tremblingly in the sea god's palace. Lord Sea God, may I ask what is the matter? The water god lowered her head. The tone sounded like she was about to be scolded, yet she didn't seem to have done anything at all. What on earth is going on with that little river on the Douluo continent? Tang San looked down condescendingly at the water god, his tone cold. You are the deity in charge of the world's water systems, did you tamper with that river? I am wrongly accused, Lord Sea God. Upon hearing these words, the water god sensed the little river on the Douluo continent slightly and cried out with a face full of grievance. I have no way to investigate the situation of that little river at all. Seeing the water god's appearance, Tang San's expression returned to calm once more, and he let the water god leave. It indeed did not look like the water god's doing. HMPH, trash. Tang San let out a cold snort. To think she was still the water god, not even knowing this and unable to investigate, trash. Tang San rubbed his brow, feeling unprecedentedly annoyed. Things were completely out of control, and there were no clues whatsoever. Third brother. At this moment, a gentle hand rested on his shoulder. Xiao Wu walked out at some unknown time, looking at Tang San's tightly locked brows, her eyes full of heartache. Are you still worried about matters on the Douluo continent? Tang San sighed, turned his hand to hold Xiao Wu's hand, the gloom on his face dispersing slightly as he put on a deeply affectionate look. Indeed, Xiao Wu, the Douluo continent is our hometown and also the foundation of the Tang sect. Now chaos is rampant everywhere, and I am very worried about our daughter, worried about those innocent living beings. It's all right, third brother. Xiao Wu gently leaned into Tang San's embrace, softly comforting him. As long as you are here, nothing will go wrong. You are the smartest and most powerful person in this world, and no matter what difficulties you encounter, you will definitely be able to solve them. Even the spirit hall, which everyone thought was invincible at that time, didn't it fail in the hands of you, third brother? Listening to his beloved wife's soft and tender words, Tang San's originally anxious mood miraculously calmed down. That's right. I am Tang San. I am Tang San, who walked step by step from a small spirit scholar to the position of God King. How could a mere little river and a few mere variables possibly stump me? Since I cannot see through that river, then, let's test it out. A sharp glint suddenly lit up in Tang San's eyes. He directly contacted Duming and Erming of the Clear Sky sect. Duming, Erming, a variable has now appeared on the Douluo continent concerning Xiaoqi's safety. I need you to do me a favor. You must quickly bring Xiaoqi to that little river on the periphery of the Stardo Great Forest. Remember, after arriving there. Tang San's voice paused, carrying a trace of inexplicable meaning. Throw her into the river. Ah. Inside the Clear Sky sect, Erming widened those bronze bell-like eyes, looking at Duming with a dumbfounded face. Big brother, did I hear wrong? Tang San wants us to throw Xiaoqi into the river. That was his biological daughter. Is this something a biological father could do? Duming's brows were also tightly locked, but out of his blind trust in Tang San over many years, he still took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Since Tang San is doing this, he must have his profound meaning. Let's go, bring Xiaoqi and go to the Stardo Great Forest. God Realm, see God's Palace. Tang San cut off the communication, a sneer hooking up at the corner of his mouth. This river will ultimately become a chess piece in my, Tang San's, hands. Chapter 20, even in a wheelchair, you are still this arrogant. Receiving Tang San's divine sense transmission, Duming and Erming did not dare to delay in the slightest and set off immediately. Because Wang Dong'er had already departed in advance to report to Shrek Academy according to Tang San's initial script, they had to hurry to Shrek Academy as soon as possible. The two turned into two streaks of light, flying at extreme speed high in the sky. The violent wind whistled in his ears. As Erming flew, he still couldn't help muttering inwardly, turning his head to look at Duming with a face full of entanglement. Big brother, what kind of madness do you think Tang San is going through? Out of nowhere, why throw little Qi into the river? Could that river be the variable Tang San mentioned? But if it is a variable, why throw little Qi into it? If something happens to little Qi. Duming's expression was solemn as he looked straight ahead, frowning slightly at those words. Tang San's thoughts have always been deep and unfathomable. It is normal that we cannot guess them. However, could it be that third brother and sister Xiao Wu had a fight? A couple quarreling and taking it out on the child? That is just too classless. Erming still felt it was unreliable and scratched his head. Duming glanced at him and shook his head. It shouldn't be. You know what kind of feelings Tang San has for sister Xiao Wu. He holds her in his hands for fear she might fall, and keeps her in his mouth for fear she might melt. Even if there really is a conflict, he would never bear to lay a single finger on little Qi. That might not be the case. Erming curled his lips and lowered his voice a bit, as if he was afraid of being heard by that person in the God realm. Big brother, have you forgotten? In the training plan Tang San previously formulated for that kid named Huo Yuhao, there were several times when he planned to let little Qi die in front of that kid. He said it was to stimulate that kid's potential and make him feel guilty, so that he would fall head over heels in love with little Qi. Tisk tisk, only he could come up with such a ruthless trick. To dare orchestrate such a grand drama of life and death parting, just throwing little Qi into the river now seems not so hard to accept after all. Duming fell silent. Although Erming's words were crude, they made sense. For that so-called foolproof plan, Tang San was indeed capable of doing anything. In his logic, as long as the final outcome was good, a tragic process or even sacrificing a little family affection was all for the greater good. Stop guessing blindly. Duming sighed, interrupting Erming's wild train of thought. No matter what the reason is, since it is his arrangement, we just need to follow it. Perhaps, that river really holds some great fortune. Erming shrank his neck and muttered in a low voice. I hope so, as long as he doesn't want to give his two brothers some kind of trial as well. These old bones of mine cannot withstand such tossing and turning. At the mention of the word trial, the expressions of the two changed involuntarily, obviously recalling some less than pleasant memories. Without further ado, the two accelerated again, rushing toward the direction of Shrek Academy like shooting stars chasing the moon. Shrek City, East Gate. As the #1 academy on the continent, Shrek Academy's enrollment season was always packed with people. Wang Dong'er was dressed in men's attire, her pink blue short hair making her look heroic and spirited. Her big eyes were filled with curiosity and anticipation for her future academy life. Relying on her extraordinary talent and recommendation letter, she had just smoothly completed her admission procedures. I wonder how Big Dad and Second Dad are doing at home, and if they miss me. Wang Dong'er hummed a little tune, feeling exceptionally pleasant. However, just as one of her steps crossed into the city gate. Boom, boom. Two terrifying auras descended from the sky, instantly enveloping the entire city gate area. The surrounding civilians and low-tier spirit masters were trembling in fear from this coercion, and even the guards defending the city were frightened into collapsing to the ground. Wang Dong'er was slightly stunned. Raising her head, she saw two familiar figures standing in front of her like temple guardians. Big Dad, Second Dad. Wang Dong'er widened her eyes with an incredulous look. Why are you here? I've only left for a few days. This is your father's idea. Duming spoke. Upon hearing that it was Tang San's intention, Wang Dong'er's little face immediately collapsed. Just at this moment, an enraged roar suddenly resounded from within Shrek Academy. Impudent, what kind of people dare to run amok in Shrek City? Accompanied by this roar, a sloppy figure carrying a strong scent of alcohol and meat, soon, an old man sitting in a wheelchair came out. He was precisely Shrek Academy's gluttonous Douluo, Xuanzi. Xuanzi glared with his dim, aged eyes, still clutching half of an ungnawed chicken leg in his hand, and began cursing while pointing at Duming and Erming. Where did you bastards come from? Don't you know the rules of Shrek City? Daring to release your pressure here and disturb the students, are you tired of living? Get lost right now, otherwise, this old man will properly teach you a lesson and let you know what rules are. Daming and Erming looked at each other, seeing a hint of astonishment in each other's eyes, which instantly turned into mockery. Teach us a lesson. Has this old man been made foolish by drinking fake wine? When they were reigning supreme in the Stardew Great Forest, this old man hadn't even been born yet. Furthermore, he is already in a wheelchair, and he still comes to pick a fight. Big brother, he said he wants to teach us a lesson. Erming pointed at Xuanzi with a face full of amusement. I heard it. Daming nodded indifferently. Then, let him teach us a lesson. Alrighty. Erming's hands had been itching for a long time. Having stayed in the clear sky sect all this time without anyone to spar with, his hands were already itching frantically. Before his words fell, Erming's mountain-like body moved. Without any fancy spirit ability, it was just a simple punch carrying the terrifying freakish strength of the Titan giant ape, directly blasting towards Xuanzi. Before Xuanzi could react, he felt an irresistible colossal force wash over him, and that half of a chicken leg instantly turned into fine powder. Bang! With a loud crash, Xuanzi's entire body was blasted flying like a cannonball, directly crashing and collapsing half of the city wall, deeply embedding himself into the soil. What kind of thing are you, daring to utter wild words in front of us? Erming clapped his hands with an expression of utter disdain. With this punch, he didn't even use 10% of his strength, fearing he might beat this old man to death directly. The surrounding crowd instantly fell into a deathly silence. With a single punch, he blasted away that legendary gluttonous Douluo. Exactly what kind of monsters were these two people? Daming ignored the terrified gazes around him, directly grabbed the still-dazed Wang Donger, flickered his figure, and vanished in place together with Erming. The outer perimeter of the Stardew Great Forest. By the side of that ordinary-looking small river. Daming and Erming landed with Wang Donger. As soon as they landed, the expressions of the two turned solemn. Is this that river? Daming narrowed his eyes, thinking inwardly. Truly bizarre. He could not probe what was inside this river. Big Dad, Second Dad, what did you bring me here for? Wang Donger looked at the ordinary little river in front of her with a baffled expression. Are we fishing? Daming and Erming looked at each other, both feeling somewhat awkward. They couldn't possibly say that your biological father told us to throw you down, could they? Your father said there's a fortune here that belongs to you, and asked you to jump down. Fortune? What kind of fortune could there be in a small river? However, out of trust, Wang Donger still tidied her clothes and then jumped down into the small river. That pink-blue figure instantly vanished into the clear river water, disappearing from sight. Daming and Erming stood on the bank, staring intently at the river surface, their hearts in their throats. Hopefully little Qi will be fine. Chapter 21 Ling Qi and Bing Luer. Outer edge of the Stardew Great Forest, a mysterious small river. Lin Feng sat upon the blue stone where he often sat, looking at the surface of the water that had just healed before him, and could not help shaking his head, the corners of his mouth curling into an amused arc. Tang San, oh Tang San, you really are a ruthless person. He muttered in a low voice, the fishing rod in his hand swaying gently. To be able to throw your own biological daughter into this unknown river is a chess piece without any hesitation. This boldness, should I praise you, or should I feel sorrow for your daughter? However, since this bait had been delivered to his doorstep, this good show naturally had to go on. Splash. Along with Lin Feng gently lifting the fishing rod, the originally calm water surface suddenly rippled with strange rings of waves. Immediately following, Lin Feng himself, along with the blue stone beneath him, slowly floated up from beneath the water surface. Daming and Erming, who had been staring fixedly at the river surface with nervous expressions, were startled by this sudden scene. The pupils of the two suddenly contracted, and they looked at each other, both seeing the shock and terror in the other's eyes. Who was this person? This young man holding a fishing rod was just like he had appeared out of thin air. Before he floated to the surface, their spiritual sense had actually completely failed to capture even a sliver of aura. What terrified them even more was, Wang Donger's aura had vanished. Completely vanished without a trace. Where's Xiaoqi? Erming could not help stepping forward, those copper bell-like large eyes filled with anxiety, and the terrifying aura on his body instantly erupted, pressing down on the surrounding trees to make cracking sounds like, ka-ka. This is merely a small river, even if Xiaoqi sank to the bottom, it would be impossible to escape our perception. Daming's expression was gloomy to the extreme, his gaze locked tightly onto Lin Feng, stirring up turbulent waves in his heart. This small river truly had something strange about it. What on earth was Tang San's purpose in throwing Xiaoqi in here? Could it really be, using his own daughter as bait to chum the water? Or could it be? Daming's gaze swept back and forth across Lin Feng, and an absurd thought suddenly welled up in his mind. Could it be, Xiaoqi had turned into the man in front of them? No, this was too outrageous. Just as the two of them were filled with doubt and hesitation, preparing to make a move to snatch the person back, that mysterious young man suddenly spoke. His voice was gentle, yet carried a sense of indisputability. Oh young Daming and Erming Tilda, is this golden Wang Donger the one you dropped? Along with Lin Feng's words falling, the water surface on the left suddenly burst with golden light. An exquisitely beautiful figure slowly rose. That was a young girl whose appearance was identical to Wang Donger, but that head of pinkish blue short hair had at this moment turned into dazzling golden long hair, draped softly behind her head. She wore a pure white long dress, her whole body exuding a sacred and inviolable aura, with a faint light and shadow of a seraphim flickering behind her, resembling a goddess descended from the god realm, making people unable to help wanting to worship her. This. Erming stared straight ahead, his mouth wide open, even forgetting to breathe. This appearance, this face, was indeed Xiaoqi without a doubt. But this hair color, this temperament. And the phantom behind her, why did it look so much like a seraphim? Could that brat Tang San have done something unforgivable to Sister Xiao Wu? No. Daming took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the shock in his heart, and replied in a deep voice. Although they looked the same, this aura that had reached the absolute extreme of sacredness even made the Sky Azure Bull Python bloodline within his body feel a trace of suppression. This was definitely not their clear sky sex eccentric little princess. Not her. Lin Feng smiled faintly, the fishing rod in his hand tapping gently once more. Then, is it this silver Wang Donger? On the right side of the water surface, a bone-chilling cold suddenly surged up. The surrounding air instantly condensed into white frost, and even powerhouses of Daming and Erming's level could not help shivering. Another figure slowly rose. It was likewise that exquisitely beautiful face, likewise a head of pinkish blue long hair, but the temperament was completely different. She wore an ice blue long dress, her eyes as cold and clear as ice and snow, as if devoid of any emotion, surrounded by ultimate coldness throughout her body, just like an ice sculpture that had not melted for 10,000 years, noble and aloof, resembling a goddess in control of ice and snow. Seeing this Wang Donger with pinkish blue long hair, Erming's eyes lit up instantly. This hair color is right. This must be Xiaoqi. He subconsciously wanted to nod and agree. Shut up. Daming violently pulled him back and glared at him with sharp eyes. Take a good look. The Xiaoqi who jumped down just now was dressed in men's clothing. Furthermore, this chill, that is the ultimate ice. Xiaoqi's spirit is of the light attribute, how could it be ice? Erming was scolded thusly and instantly woke up. That was close, he had almost been led into a ditch. This river was simply too weird, how could it conjure up so many seemingly similar Xiaoqis? No. Daming firmly answered once more, his gaze filled with vigilance. Oh, not her either. The smile on the corners of Lin Feng's mouth grew even thicker, and the fishing rod in his hand flicked gently. Then, is it this ordinary Wangdonger? On the middle water surface, ripples undulated. A figure dressed in men's clothing emerged. The pinkish-blue short hair clung to her face. The familiar aura. It's her, that's her. Erming shouted excitedly, this is our family's Xiaoqi. This is the person we are looking for. Daming also let out a long breath, and the large stone hanging in his heart finally hit the ground. Fortunately the original one was still there. Since you two are so honest. Lin Feng put away his fishing rod and gave the two a meaningful glance. Then these 3 Wangdongers will all be given to you. As soon as his voice fell, the golden Wangdonger and silver Wangdonger that were originally suspended above the water surface actually did not vanish like illusions but instead landed solidly upon the riverbank. The scene was bizarre to the extreme for a moment. Who are you? Why do you look the same as me? The first to speak was that ordinary Wangdonger in men's clothing. She widened her eyes as she looked at the other 2 versions of herself, feeling that her brain was somewhat inadequate for the task, though besides curiosity, her eyes also held a hint of excitement, fun. That blonde-haired, golden-eyed Wangdonger smiled slightly, her smile as warm as the spring sunshine, making people feel as if bathed in a spring breeze. Hello, nice to meet you for the first time, my name is Lingxi. Her voice was soft and pleasant, as if carrying a certain purifying power. My spirits are the goddess of light and the seraphim. As she spoke, a flash of light emanated from behind her, and 6 jade white wings slowly unfolded, the sacred brilliance instantly illuminating this patch of heaven and earth. Seraphim. Daming and Erming's eyeballs were practically about to pop out. Where did this seraphim come from? And the goddess of light, shouldn't it be the goddess of light butterfly? However, after feeling the ultimate sacred attribute and ultimate fire attribute emitted from Ling's eyes body, the two fell silent. Wangdonger cast her gaze onto the other version of herself. This one could be said to be completely identical to her, and as long as her own hair was a bit longer, they would practically look completely identical. Bing Wuer. Her voice was cold and indifferent, yet did not appear arrogant. Spirits, Ice Empress Scorpion, goddess of light butterfly. Following her words, a huge emerald green scorpion phantom emerged behind her, the ultimate chill causing the surrounding ground to instantly freeze over with a thick layer of frost. Ice Empress Scorpion. The spirit was actually the Ice Empress Scorpion, one of the 3 great overlords of the far north. Unbelievable, simply unbelievable. And, yet another spirit with an ultimate attribute. These 2 were undoubtedly much more formidable than Wangdonger, very, very much more. 3 Wangdongers, 3 completely different powers, yet originating from the same source. Daming and Erming stared blankly at this scene, only feeling that their worldview was completely shattered. Just as Tang San had judged, a variable of the Douluo continent had appeared, and furthermore, he had a premonition that the entire Douluo continent would definitely descend into complete chaos shortly. Chapter 22, we are going to build the strongest Shrek 7 Devils. Shrek Academy, Sea God's Pavilion. The atmosphere at this moment was so heavy that it felt as if it could drip water. Xuanzi, who had just been carried back, was now lying on a specially made stretcher. Half of his face was swollen like a pig's head, and his already slovenly image was now even more horrifying to behold. The senior elders present looked at each other in dismay, each and every one of them acting as if they had seen a ghost. Elder Zan was knocked out with a single punch. Qian Duodua widened his eyes in disbelief, looking at Xuanzi, who was lying there groaning, feeling that his worldview had been impacted. Although Xuanzi had broken his legs due to certain irresistible forces before and could only sit in a wheelchair, after all, he was a super Douluo. That body of spirit power was not just for show, after all. Yan Xiao, who on earth did this? Martial god Douluo Xianliner asked with a frown. Yan Xiao sighed and helplessly shook his head. I want to know too. I have already tried asking Elder Zan, wanting him to describe the appearance of those 2 culprits, so that we can draw portraits based on memory and issue a continent-wide wanted notice. Speaking of this, Yan Xiao glanced at Xuanzi, whose face was swollen like a pig's head and was still eating roast chicken, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. But, Elder Zan seems to have been beaten silly. He only remembers that he wanted to eat chicken drumsticks at the time, and then he felt the world spinning. When he woke up, he was in the infirmary. As for what those 2 people looked like, he didn't have the slightest impression. The senior elders. This is simply too unreliable. The dignified second-in-command of Shrek Academy was beaten into such a state, and he didn't even remember what the perpetrator looked like. How about asking instructions from Yuan? A senior elder cautiously suggested. The Yuan, in his mouth naturally referred to the young, powerful, yet extremely arrogant bright Yuan who was currently entrenched on the top floor of the Sea God's Pavilion. Yan Xiao immediately denied this idea. No, Yuan gave special instructions before his seclusion. Unless the academy reaches a moment of life or death, no trivial matters are allowed to disturb his cultivation. If he finds out that we can't even handle such a small matter and still need him to take action, I'm afraid he will leave Shrek Academy, and in this way, the last protective talisman left as Shrek Academy by the teacher will also be gone. Hearing these words, everyone present also fell silent. For a time, a faint sorrow permeated the Sea God's Pavilion. Old Nguyen and the new Nguyen were completely different. Old Nguyen treated Shrek Academy as his home, was extremely good to people like them, and always found a way to solve problems when they arose. As for the aura of supreme dominance emitted by that young Nguyen, it still left them with lingering fear to this day. Now this one, strong is strong, but this temper. Truly, it is a day of missing old Nguyen. Just as everyone fell into silence, Xuanzi suddenly spoke. This old man remembers. Xuanzi said vaguely, a trace of inexplicable brilliance flashing in his eyes. Those 2 people, although this old man didn't see their faces clearly, that power, that kind of pure power, is definitely not something an ordinary spirit master can possess. That river definitely has a problem. Those 2 fellows must have also obtained some fortuitous encounter from that river. Speaking of this, Xuanzi slapped his thigh fiercely, feeling nothing at all. Everyone, this old man has a proposal. The next continent-wide Advanced Spirit Master Academy Soul Duel Tournament is about to start. Although the strength of our official team members is not bad, in order to ensure nothing goes wrong and to defend Shrek's 10,000-year glory. This old man feels that it is very necessary to take the current Shrek 7 devils to that riverbank for a trip. To enhance their strength. Hearing this, Duo said with some hesitation, Elder Zahn, the current 7 devils are already very strong. Xiao Tao, Yuang, and the others are all powerhouses at the Spirit Emperor level, and they are definitely invincible existences among their peers. Just for a competition, taking them to such a dangerous place. Isn't it a bit risky? Of course, the biggest risk was that the people who came out were uncontrollable. They had learned from Bebe that if it weren't for righteous Xuanzi and Yuan fighting each other, Yuan wouldn't have perished prematurely. Speaking of which, it could also be considered indirectly causing Yuan's death. Risky. The path of cultivation is inherently defying the heavens. How can there be no reason to take risks? Xuanzi glared at Duo. Although his face was swollen, his momentum was still very full. If we don't go, what if people from other academies also find out the secret of that river and create a few monsters? Don't forget, our Shrek Academy has a 10,000-year honor. We cannot afford to lose. And furthermore, a trace of cunning light flashed in Xuanzi's eyes. If that stream is used by people with malicious intentions, it will be a disaster for the entire Douluo continent. As the protectors of Douluo continent, we Shrek Academy must stop those with malicious intentions and take this stream into our own hands. Hearing Xuanzi's words, the senior elders fell into deep thought. Although Xuanzi was usually not very reliable, what he said this time indeed made some sense. The appearance of that river was indeed a huge variable. If Shrek Academy could not grasp this variable, or at least benefit from it, its future position on the continent would probably truly be shaken. I think Elder Zahn makes sense. Yan Xiao pondered for a moment and finally made the decision. That river is indeed worth exploring, and with us around, even if we encounter any danger, protecting a few children should still be no problem. Alright, then it's settled. Seeing Yan Xiao agree, Xuanzi instantly perked up, and his injuries didn't even seem to hurt anymore. Immediately notify Ma Xiao Tao and the others to assemble. This operation will be personally led by this old man and Xiao. Soon, at the Shrek Academy Intercourt Martial Arts Practice Field. The Shrek 7 Devils, who received the emergency assembly notice, quickly finished assembling. At the head was an exquisitely beautiful woman with a fiery figure and hair red like fire, none other than the captain Ma Xiao Tao. Beside her was Dai Yuang, who had a stern expression and a tall figure. Following them were Ling Luokan, whose temperament was as cold as snow, Shishi, whose figure was nimble, Chen Zifeng, carrying a long sword, as well as Yao Haoxuan and Gong Yangmo. Looking at this group of spirited students before him, Yan Xiao nodded in satisfaction. This was the absolute peak combat power of Shrek Academy's current generation. Students, this emergency assembly is to take you to a special place for training. Yan Xiao said in a resounding voice, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. This place may harbor a huge fortuitous encounter. This competition cannot afford any mistakes. To ensure the championship belongs to Shrek, you need to become stronger. That's what was said, but after the stronger ones came out, this generation of Shrek 7 Devils would basically no longer be needed. It could be said that there would be a major blood transfusion. After eliminating the uncontrollable fellows, the remaining ones would completely replace them. Yan Xiao's gaze fell on Ma Xiao Tao. After she stepped down, he could properly help her find a way to solve the evil fire. No matter what, she was still his own disciple. Even though she would no longer be one of the Shrek 7 Devils, after having raised her for so many years, it wasn't something that could be put down just like that. As for the others, they would also understand the school's good intentions. After all, according to Xuanzi's rhetoric, the ones who came out first were the strongest, and then they gradually grew weaker. There might be differences in personality, but it didn't matter. Could two Super Douluo possibly fail to suppress a group of brats? As the saying goes, the strong go up and the weak go down. This has always been the rule of Shrek Academy. Set out. Following Yan Xiao's order, this team led by two top powerhouses of Shrek Academy, gathering the combat power of the strongest Shrek 7 Devils, left Shrek City and marched in the direction of the Stardo Great Forest. Chapter 23. Is this the fortuitous encounter you spoke of? Half of my Shrek Academy's elites are just gone like this. Stardo Great Forest, Outer Zone. Passing through the lush woods, a small river came into view for everyone from Shrek. Is this the place? Ma Xiao Tao's brows furrowed slightly, her red eyes staring intently at the river's surface. The surroundings of this area felt no different from anywhere else, yet she couldn't perceive anything when she tried to sense what was inside this particular river. It looks very ordinary. Gong Yangmo scratched his head in some confusion. Didn't we come near here before? We didn't feel like there was anything special about it. That was before. Sitting in his wheelchair, Xuanzi stuffed a chicken leg into his mouth while speaking incoherently. This river now is a treasure land. As long as you jump down, you can obtain unimaginable fortuitous encounters. Xuanzi's eyes were fervent, as if he had already seen Shrek Academy's future of dominating the continent. As for Lin Feng, that fellow who crippled his legs, once he finished using him, he would send him to his death. Standing at the back of the team, Ling Luokan's cold gaze fell on the river's surface, yet she remained silent. In her mind, the figure of that newly appointed Sea God's Pavilion master involuntarily surfaced. That excessively young yet suffocatingly powerful Muan. He was the one who walked out from this river. Stronger, younger, and with greater potential. But, was that person really still the original Elder Mu? If she jumped down in the stronger, herself, who came out replaced her current self, then for her present self, was that a fortuitous encounter, or? The sense of unease in Ling Luokan's heart grew increasingly intense, and she subconsciously took half a step back. Sharing this exact same feeling was Dai Yuang. As the eldest son of the White Tiger Duke, he was deep in thought and instinctively maintained vigilance against such good fortune falling from the sky. Alright, stop dawdling. Xuanzi urged impatiently, waving his large hand. This is a once-in-a-millennium opportunity. For Shrek's honor, hurry down. Under the gazes of the two super powerhouses Xuanzi and Yan Xiao, although they felt somewhat apprehensive, Shishi, Chen Zifeng, Yao Haoxuan, and Gong Yangmo exchanged glances and still braced themselves to step forward. After all, it was an academy order, and since Elder Zahn had said it was a fortuitous encounter, it should be fine, right? Then, we'll go down first. Gong Yangmo took a deep breath and was the first to leap forward. Plop. Shortly after, Shishi, Chen Zifeng, and Yao Haoxuan also jumped into the river one after another. Splashes flew everywhere, and the figures of the four quickly vanished from the river's surface without even a single bubble rising. On the bank, only Ma Xiao Tao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan remained. Why aren't the three of you jumping? Xuanzi frowned, the chicken bones in his mouth crunching loudly. Elder Zahn, we want to observe for a bit first. Dai Yuang cupped his fists and said respectfully. After all, this river is somewhat bizarre. If everyone went down together and something unexpected happened, we wouldn't even have anyone to respond or back us up. The three of us are slightly stronger, so staying here will provide some mutual support. Yan Xiao slightly nodded in agreement, thinking that being cautious was a good thing. Yuang is thorough in his thoughts. Xiaotao, Luokan, you guys wait and see for a bit as well. Anyway, the fortuitous encounter is right here and won't run away. These three were the core combat strength of the main team after all, especially Ma Xiaotao, who was the apple of Yan Xiao's eye. Letting them observe the situation first was indeed much safer. In case those four who went down really ran into any mishaps, at least half of the Shrek 7 Devils' combat strength could be preserved, preventing total annihilation. Just as everyone was nervously watching the river's surface. Splash. The calm water suddenly stirred up huge ripples. Sitting on that iconic cyan rock and holding a fishing rod, Lin Feng leisurely floated up from the bottom of the water. He glanced at the people on the bank, his gaze lingering on Xuanzi's big head-like face for a second, the corners of his mouth curling into a playful smile. Oh, young swollen-faced Xuanzi tilde, are these four golden Shrek students the ones you just dropped? Before Xuanzi could act up, the fishing rod in Lin Feng's hand gently flicked. Four golden, glittering figures broke through the water and hovered in midair. Those were the full-set golden edition versions of Xixi, Chen Zifeng, Yao Haoshuan, and Gong Yangmo. This. Yan Xiao, Dai Yuang, and the others were dumbfounded. Dai Yuang could sense from those people that their strength was definitely stronger than his own, and you must know that he himself was, after all, the second strongest combatant of the Shrek 7 Devils. This was the power of that river. If they could bring these four back. Yan Xiao's breathing involuntarily grew heavier. As expected, this river was Shrek Academy's fortuitous encounter. Xuanzi was just about to open his mouth to say no, considering that Nguyen had already tested it. If he lied, not a single one would be left. Roar. A deafening roar suddenly came from the depths of the Stardew Great Forest. Shortly after, an extremely terrifying heatwave swept over, and the surrounding temperature instantly skyrocketed, as if they were placed inside a smelting furnace. That aura was ferocious and domineering, carrying the terrifying pressure belonging to a 300,000-year spirit beast, rapidly closing in toward this side. This is King Kai. One of the 10 great fierce beasts of the Stardew Great Forest, the three-headed red demonic mastiff. Xuanzi was naturally not unfamiliar with this aura. His heart jolted, and he subconsciously blurted out. It's. Before that, King Kai could be uttered, he was choked by the chicken leg that he hadn't had time to swallow yet. Cough, 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 cough. Xuanzi's face flushed red as he frantically pounded on his chest, all his remaining words turning into a series of violent coughs. This damn chicken leg, it didn't choke him sooner or later, but had to choke him at this exact moment. Lin Feng raised an eyebrow, looking at the old man coughing his lungs out, the smile at the corners of his mouth becoming even more brilliant. Dishonest fellow, don't expect to get even a single one. After saying that, Lin Feng flicked his wrist. The surface of the water returned to calm. The four members among the Golden Shrek 7 Devils vanished without a trace, and the original versions did not appear either. Cough cough cough, MMPH. Xuanzi, who had finally coughed out the chicken leg bone, happened to hear Lin Feng's final sentence. His eyes widened abruptly, looking at the empty water surface, and the entire person was dumbfounded. Xixi, Chen Zifeng, Yao Haoshuan, Gong Yangmo. Four of the Shrek 7 Devils, just vanished like this. Just because he was choked by a chicken leg and didn't finish his sentence. No. Xuanzi let out a miserable, piercing scream, his eyes rolling back as he almost fainted again. It was over. Completely over. They originally came to stock up on goods, but not only did they fail to get any goods, they even lost their capital and did. The remaining three, Ma Xiaotao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan, watched this dramatic scene before them, feeling their backs turn cold, with a deep chill surging straight from the soles of their feet to their crowns. Fortunately they didn't jump down just now. Yan Xiao watched this scene, his mouth opening, but no words came out. Half of Shrek Academy's elites were just lost like this. Yan Xiao's gaze fell upon Xuanzi, his anger almost turning into substance. Chapter 24, Holding the Sun and Moon to pluck the stars, there's no one like me in this world. Sun Moon Empire, Ming capital. This was the city with the most advanced spirit tool technology on the entire continent. On the street, Jing Hongchen wore a kind smile and was enthusiastically introducing the surrounding scenery to the three youths opposite him. Hearing Jing Hongchen's introduction, Huo Yuhao's eyes flickered with a curious light. For someone who had only grown up in the White Tiger Duke's mansion since childhood, everything in Ming capital appeared so novel and shocking. Beside them, the sibling pair Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen were looking at their own grandfather with strange expressions at this moment. Why was their grandfather, the hall master who was usually dignified, shrewd, and even a bit heartless, acting like a tour guide today? Hall master Jing Hongchen, you've brought us to see so much, is there something you want to say? Huo Yuhao, who hadn't spoken much all along, smiled faintly, his tone gentle yet carrying a power that could pierce through people's hearts. Jing Hongchen laughed heartily and no longer beat around the bush. Speaking with smart people is truly refreshing. To be honest, the old man brought you to see all this because I want to invite the three young friends to join our Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy. Join the academy. Huo Yu, who had been crossing his arms all along, shook his head slightly. Hall Master Jing Hongchen, we don't want to be constrained. Previously, Xuanzi from Shrek Academy invited us to join Shrek Academy, and we didn't agree either. What we want is to pursue strength by relying on ourselves. Sigh, that is not quite right. Jing Hongchen shook his head, his expression turning serious. There is nothing wrong with pursuing strength, but strength also requires proper guidance and systematic development. This old man knows that you are naturally gifted and have extraordinary strength, but without systematic study, much of your potential cannot be fully unearthed. Furthermore, Jing Hongchen pointed to the towering building standing like a forest. The times have changed. In the current Douluo continent, the two-way development of spirit tools and spirits is the mainstream. Relying solely on spirits can certainly allow one to become a strong person, but there will ultimately be a bottleneck. Take my battle just now with that evil Xuanzi as an example. Mentioning Xuanzi, a trace of lingering fear flashed through Jing Hongchen's eyes, but there was more of a rational analysis. That Xuanzi is a super Douluo, and his spirit is also a top-tier spirit. Solely in terms of spirit power cultivation and spirit quality, this old man is indeed inferior to him. In that battle, although this old man lost and suffered some injuries, you also saw that relying on the level 9 spirit tool in my hand, I managed to withstand his attacks. Without these spirit tools, this old man would probably have died in his hands long ago. Jing Hongchen sighed and said earnestly. This is the power of technology. It can bridge the gap in talent, allowing spirit masters to have the strength to fight when facing stronger opponents, and even turn defeat into victory. Speaking of this, Jing Hongchen looked at the three of them with burning eyes. As long as you are willing to join the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy, this old man promises that all resources within the academy, all spirit tool blueprints, all rare metals, and even the most core research data of Ming Hall will be completely open to you. You do not need to attend classes or take exams like ordinary students, and you don't even need to abide by those tedious etiquettes. Your only task is to become stronger, and become even stronger. As for the reward, Jing Hongchen paused and raised a finger. You only need to represent the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy to participate in the next continent-wide Advanced Soul Master Academy Soul Duel Tournament, and bring that championship trophy back for this old man. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone quieted down. Even Xiao Hongchen and Meng Hongchen, who hadn't cared much all along, widened their eyes and looked at their grandfather in disbelief. Open all resources, share core data. With this kind of treatment, let alone outsiders, even for the two of them as his own biological grandchildren, it wouldn't be this exaggerated. Furthermore, they were directly given the qualification to participate. You must know that for this competition quota, the talented students in the academy had broken their heads fighting for it. Grandfather, this. Xiao Hongchen was just about to speak when he was glared back by a stern look from Jing Hongchen. Huo Yuhao looked into Jing Hongchen's eyes full of sincerity, pondered for a moment, and slowly shook his head. Hall Master Jing Hongchen, your conditions are indeed very tempting, but receiving a reward without making a contribution feels undeserved. The three of his brothers have just arrived and haven't established a single merit, so we truly cannot accept such a huge favor. This does not conform to our principles of conduct. Hearing this, not only did Jing Hongchen not get angry, but instead he revealed an even more appreciative smile. This child's temperament was indeed calm and steady. Receiving a reward without contribution. Who says you have no merit? Jing Hongchen restrained his smile, his expression turning unprecedentedly serious. Earlier outside the city, if the three of you hadn't acted in time to block that mad Xuanzi. With that madman's destructive power, once he rushed into Ming capital, do you know how much casualties it would have caused? Ming capital is the core of the Sun Moon Empire, with a population of millions. Once damaged, it would be a devastation of life, causing the national power to regress by decades. You saved Ming capital and countless innocent commoners. For this merit, let alone these few resources, even conferring you titles of Marquis and Prime Minister wouldn't be going too far. Jing Hongchen looked straight into Huo Yuhao's eyes and said word by word. What this old man said is serious, this reward is what you deserve. If you decline any further. Jing Hongchen suddenly changed the topic, a trace of cunning and wicked smile appearing on his face. Then this old man can only arrest the three of you under the charges of illegal entry and disturbing public order and send you to prison to squat for 10 or 8 years. After all, you haven't processed your entry procedures yet, right? The three brothers of Huo Yuhao. Although they said this on the surface, all three of them understood in their hearts that Jing Hongchen was giving them a way out, while also displaying his determination. Using both soft and hard tactics, he had both sincerity and means. I have to admit, this fat old man had some tricks up his sleeve. Since the hall master has put it to this extent, if we refuse again, it would seem somewhat unappreciative. Huo Yuhao smiled slightly and nodded. The three of them had weak strength, and the 3 million-year-old spirit beasts in their spiritual sea were all plunged into deep slumber. If they were really locked in prison, the lives of the three would essentially be over. All right, we agree. Ha ha ha, good, refreshing. Jing Hongchen immediately beamed with joy. Just based on the fact that the three of them could cooperate to kick evil Xuanzi back into that small river, Jing Hongchen knew that no matter what, he had to keep the three of them. Soon, under Jing Hongchen's personal arrangement, the three brothers of Huo Yuhao moved into the best dormitory building of the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy. This was an independent villa with a tranquil environment, complete facilities, and even a dedicated spirit tool cultivation room. The night was deep and quiet. Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu were both cultivating in their respective rooms, only the original Huo Yuhao was lying on the soft big bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. All of this was too unreal. Just when Huo Yuhao was groggily about to fall asleep. Suddenly, an aged, profound voice abruptly resounded deep within his mind. Holding the sun and moon to pluck the stars, there is no one like me in this world. Huo Yuhao abruptly opened his eyes and sprang straight up from the bed, looking around vigilantly. Who? The room was empty, besides himself, there was no one else. An illusion. Huo Yuhao muttered to himself. No, it was definitely impossible to be an illusion. Brother Tianmeng, is that you? He asked tentatively within his spiritual sea. Although he knew this was impossible, Huo Yuhao still held a shred of expectation. However, the big bug sleeping soundly in the spiritual sea did not give any response. It wasn't Brother Tianmeng. Then who could it be? Chapter 25. The first cheat has gone offline, so bring on the second one. Right at this moment, Huo Yuhao was suddenly pulled into his own spiritual world. This was his second time coming to this place. In the center of that ocean, the huge Tianmeng ice silkworm was still fast asleep. Its plump body shuddered slightly with each breath, as if the sky falling wouldn't have anything to do with it. Huo Yuhao's gaze swept past the Tianmeng ice silkworm and cast towards another corner of the spiritual sea. There, a small gray sphere of light floated quietly. It looked unremarkable, lacking the massive volume of the Tianmeng ice silkworm and that kind of heart-palpitating spiritual fluctuation, but for some reason, when Huo Yuhao stared at it, a wave of inexplicable trembling arose from the depths of his soul. Who are you? Huo Yuhao tentatively emitted a spiritual thought. As if responding to his call, that small gray sphere trembled slightly. Immediately after, the gray light surged brightly. As the light dissipated, a figure slowly emerged. That was an elderly man with an aged face. He was dressed in an extremely luxurious black robe, upon which flickered ancient and mysterious golden runes, as if containing the most profound principles between heaven and earth. Over the robe was a wide white cloak, its hood drooping low to cover more than half of his face. In his right hand, he grasped an extremely exaggerated staff. That staff was more than 2 meters taller than him, interwoven entirely from 3 colors, black, white, and gold, with a huge gray gem embedded at the top, exuding a heart-palpitating aura of deathly stillness. Huo Yuhao looked in shock at this suddenly appearing uninvited guest before him. He never knew that such an existence actually lived inside his spiritual world. You, who are you? Why are you here? Huo Yuhao asked cautiously, his voice carrying a trace of undisguised tension. The elderly man raised his head slightly and looked at Huo Yuhao. This old man, Electrolux. His voice was hoarse and deep, carrying an ancient rhythm. Just a remnant soul. Electrolux. Huo Yuhao searched rapidly in his mind for this name, but came up empty-handed. No need to think about it, this old man is not a person of this world. Electrolux seemed to see through Huo Yuhao's thoughts and said calmly. Because of an accident, this old man came to this world. Originally, this old man's divine sense fragments landed in a strange little river. Inside there, this old man felt an extremely special power, a power that even surpassed the divine domain that this old man had once touched. Mentioning that river, a hint of solemnness also increased in Electrolux's tone. But after that, for some reason, this old man suddenly appeared inside your spiritual world. He looked at Huo Yuhao, the corners of his mouth slightly hooking up into an extremely faint smile. Perhaps, this is fate. You can just address this old man as Old Yi. Huo Yuhao was somewhat dumbfounded. A little river. Could it be that river in the Stardew Great Forest that fished him up? This Old Yi also came out from that river. Then, Old Yi, what do you plan to do? Huo Yuhao asked the most crucial question. He was very afraid that this unknown existence before him would cause harm to himself. Hee. Electrolux chuckled softly and shook his head. This old man now only has a wisp of a remnant soul left. If not for lodging in your spiritual sea, I am afraid I would have long since dissipated between heaven and earth, so you don't need to worry that I will harm you. On the contrary, as a reward for lodging here, once this old man's soul stabilizes slightly, I will teach you some methods to become stronger. Hearing these words, Huo Yuhao's heart settled slightly. Although this old Yi looked a bit gloomy, the feeling he gave people was not evil at all. Instead, there was a kind of peace after experiencing the vicissitudes of life. Old Yi, I have another question. Huo Yuhao hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help asking. I still have 2 brothers. I want to tell them about your existence, is that okay? Hearing this, a flash of strange color crossed Electrolux's profound pupils. He closed his eyes, seeming to sense something. After a moment, he reopened his eyes and said slowly. It doesn't hurt to tell them. After all, on the bodies of those 2 little guys, this old man also sensed an aura extremely similar to my own. What? Huo Yuhao was truly shocked this time. A similar aura? Could it be? When the river god split himself into 3, did he also conveniently split this old grandpa Electrolux into 3 parts? Thinking of that gloomy, bloodthirsty evil Xuanzi from before, Huo Yuhao couldn't help shivering. What if the Electrolux in the spiritual worlds of his other 2 brothers wasn't as easy to get along with as the Electrolux inside his own spiritual world? Thud, thud, thud. Just as Huo Yuhao was letting his imagination run wild, a burst of hurried knocking suddenly sounded, instantly pulling his consciousness back to reality. Huo Yuhao opened his eyes abruptly, got out of bed, and opened the door. Standing outside the door were precisely Huo Hao and Huo Yu with peculiar expressions. Before Huo Yuhao could even speak, Huo Hao took the lead and said, Yuhao, I have something to tell you. There seems to be an extra person in my spiritual world. Huo Yu beside him also nodded along. Me too. Huo Yuhao. As expected. The 3 of them closed the door, sat around the living room sofa, and began exchanging intelligence. That one of mine claims to be King Yilai. Huo Hao took a deep breath and described the elderly man who appeared in his spiritual world. He wears a set of glittering golden battle armor, wears a crown on his head, and holds a golden holy sword in his hand. He looks majestic and full of overbearing aura, just like an emperor ruling over tens of thousands of armies. Finishing speaking, Huo Hao looked towards Huo Yu. Huo Yu chuckled softly, her eyes showing no fear or tension towards the unknown elderly man who suddenly appeared in her spiritual world, instead revealing a fairly interested expression. That one of mine is called Venerable Yilai, wearing a Confucian robe and a square scarf, holding a scroll of books in his hand. He looks gentle and refined, and speaks in a scholarly manner, looking like an old pedant. Huo Yuhao also revealed the information of Electrolux in his spiritual world. He couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief. It looked like none of them harbored malicious intent, which was great. Hey, you group of brats, isn't your strength simply too weak? Suddenly, a robust voice sounded simultaneously in the spiritual worlds of the 3. King Yilai. This voice was quite familiar to Huo Hao. He had just communicated with King Yilai not long ago. What is going on? Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu were both stunned. Wasn't this King Yilai inside Huo Hao's spiritual world? How could they also hear King Yilai's voice? Hee, then this old man will also come to help. You 3 little guys are considered somewhat lucky. Venerable Yilai's voice also sounded within the minds of the 3. It's directly shared. Then, I will temporarily leave things to the 2 of you. Electrolux's aged voice sounded. Among the states of the 3, his state was the worst. Now, this king gives you a choice. Join the training, or plan to waste your time and meddle through this life. Of course, if you plan to join the training, this king does not allow anyone to quit midway. Once you quit, I will kill the quitter without hesitation. King Yilai's unquestionable voice rang out. Anything he decided could not be refuted by anyone. The killing intent in that tone did not seem fake, and the terrifying aura did not seem fake either. The aura emitted from this fellow was far stronger than the aura jointly emitted by 3 million-year-old Tianmeng ice silkworms. And this was just a remnant soul. Huo Yuhao and the other 2 looked at each other and made up their minds. We join. If there was such a powerhouse, no, should say 3 powerhouses assisting their trio of brothers, how could the 3 brothers worry about not becoming strong? Good, then, training starts tomorrow. King Yilai's incomparably domineering voice rang out once again. King Yilai, I want to ask, how are brother Tianmeng and the others doing? Huo Yuhao spoke, his eyes filled with worry. After all, the 3 Tianmeng ice silkworms fell into a deep sleep precisely for their sake. Those 3 little bugs are fine, they can recover after sleeping for a few months. Venerable Yilai softly spoke and smiled. After receiving this response, the 3 of them couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief. The second cheat, officially online. Chapter 26, Yan Xiao, you bastard. Xuanzi, look at what you've done. Yan Xiao roared furiously, his usual refined demeanor as dean was completely gone, replaced by a face full of rage and disbelief. 4 whole students, 4 elites of Shrek Academy. They were the future hope of our academy, the core force for the upcoming Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Soul Duel Tournament. Just like that, they're gone. Yan Xiao pointed at Xuanzi sitting in the wheelchair, his finger trembling slightly. Had it not been for Xuanzi's status as an elder of the Sea Gods Pavilion and Yuan's senior fellow disciple, Yan Xiao would have really wanted to shove the greasy chicken drumstick directly up Xuanzi's nostrils. Xuanzi's expression was pale as a sheet at this moment, his eyes flickering nervously, clearly feeling guilty. Yet he still stiffened his neck, attempting to find an excuse for his ridiculous blunder. Xiao, this matter can't be entirely blamed on me. Xuanzi took a fierce bite out of the chicken drumstick in his hand, defending himself unclearly. It's all because of that damned Red King. If it hadn't suddenly released its aura, how could I have gotten distracted? If I wasn't distracted, how could I have choked on a chicken drumstick? And if I didn't choke, how could I have lost those kids? Speaking up to this point, Xuanzi seemed to have found an outlet, his voice suddenly rising. And that guy in the river. Yes, him. He completely misunderstood what I meant. Can you blame me for this? Can you blame me? Yan Xiao took a deep breath, suppressing the surging rage in his heart, and looked coldly at Xuanzi who was still passing the buck. Enough. I don't want to hear your meaningless excuses. Right now I only want to know one thing. What will it take to get those kids back? Hearing this, Xuanzi shrank his neck and spread his hands helpless. Unless we kill that guy in the river, only then might it be possible. However, these legs of mine were ruined thanks to him. Xuanzi patted his legs, which had lost all sensation, a trace of resentment flashing through his eyes. Even as a super Douluo, in front of Lin Feng, he had been as helpless as an infant. Since you knew how important this trip was, why were you still so careless? Yan Xiao finally couldn't hold back and bellowed. Eating chicken drumsticks, choking, is that a mistake a lead teacher should make? Even a first-year student in the outer academy wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Now that something like this has happened, how are we supposed to explain it to those kids' parents? How do we explain it to the academy? You've utterly disappointed those kids. Yan Xiao felt a sharp pang of grief and disappointment. Just thinking about the upcoming Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Soul Duel tournament gave him a splitting headache. Of the original Shrek 7 devils, only 3 were left now. Pick substitutes from the inner academy again. That would take time to build synergy, and a team pieced together on short notice would definitely not match the strength of the 7 kids who had been meticulously cultivated. Xiaoj, don't be too pessimistic either. What's done is done, we can only look forward. Right as Yan Xiaoj was falling into despair, Xuanzi suddenly extended a greasy finger and pointed at Ma Xiaotao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan standing to the side. The way he spoke made it sound like Yan Xiaoj was the main person responsible instead. Don't we still have 3 promising seedlings right here? A trace of madness flickered in Xuanzi's eyes. Have all 3 of them jump in too. When the time comes, won't we have 9 elite students? Hearing these words, Ma Xiaotao and the other 2 standing in the corner were completely stunned. All jump in. Entrusting their lives to this unreliable Xuanzi. They had seen everything that just transpired clearly and were intimately aware of how unreliable Xuanzi was. Come to think of it, years ago it was also due to this very unreliability of his that caused heavy casualties among senior sister Zhang Lexuan's generation of disciples. In the past, they respected Xuanzi as a super Douluo and one of the top combat forces in the academy, but now, they didn't have a single shred of trust in him. Roar. The Red King's roar sounded, clearly drawing closer to this place. Yan Xiao's face changed as he instantly felt the terrifying pressure of a fierce beast. He glanced at Xuanzi in the wheelchair, then at Ma Xiaotao and the other 2, making a quick decision in his heart. Go. Without a word, Yan Xiao waved his large sleeve, sweeping up Ma Xiaotao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan, turning into a streak of light that rapidly fled in the direction of Shrek Academy. He didn't even say a word of farewell to Xuanzi. Yan Xiao, you heartless bastard, by seniority, I'm still your senior brother. How could you just leave me here alone? Watching Yan Xiao's departing figure, Xuanzi was dumbfounded. Sitting in his wheelchair, he waved the chicken drumstick in his hand frantically and hurled curses at Yan Xiao. You're abandoning your fellow disciple. You're letting Elder Mu down. You're simply not human. However, the only response he received was the howling wind and the approaching roars of the fierce beast. Roar. Accompanied by the shaking of the earth, 3 massive dog heads poke out from the depths of the forest. It was precisely one of the 10 great savage beasts, the 3-headed crimson hound, the Red King. Seeing those 6 crimson eyes staring fixedly at him, Xuanzi felt his scalp go numb, and the chicken drumstick in his hand instantly lost its flavor. This Red King was a savage beast with 300,000 years of cultivation. In his prime, Xuanzi wouldn't fear it at all, but now his legs were crippled and he was gravely injured. Forget fighting, he couldn't even run away. Damn it, I can only risk it all. Xuanzi glanced at the quiet river nearby, a flash of decisiveness passing through his eyes. Plop. Without any hesitation, Xuanzi slapped the armrests of his wheelchair fiercely, and his entire body, along with the wheelchair, traced a far from graceful parabola, crashing heavily into the river and splashing up a huge spray of water. A moment later, the Red King strode over to the riverbank with heavy steps. In front of it was a mysterious little beast. The little beast was no more than 3 meters long, covered entirely in brilliant golden fur that looked as if it were crafted from pure gold. Its form resembled a lion yet also a tiger, with golden flames beneath its 4 paws. Most peculiar of all, in the center of its forehead was a vertical eye emitting a strange, heart-palpitating light. It was none other than the auspicious beast of Stardew Great Forest, the 3-eyed golden knee, the emperor beast of auspiciousness. I clearly sense that damn fellow's aura. How is it gone now? The Red King's 6 eyes were filled with confusion, and then it looked at the emperor beast of auspiciousness with worry. This young lady really was cause for worry, unexpectedly running all the way here. If she ran into a powerful human, wouldn't that be trouble? Just a moment ago it was extremely worried about running into damned humans, but thankfully they were safe and sound. The emperor beast of auspiciousness blinked its vertical eye, curiously staring at the ordinary small river in front of it. In its perception, this small river seemed to contain some strange law that even its eye of destiny, which could see through falsehoods, was unable to completely see through. As it spoke, the emperor beast of auspiciousness stepped forward, wanting to get closer to the riverbank. You mustn't. The Red King was startled and hurriedly blocked the emperor beast of auspiciousness with its massive body. There is still lingering human aura here. He might be hiding in the river to ambush us. The Red King stared guardedly at the water surface, all 3 heads releasing powerful mental force at the same time to carefully scan the entire river. However, the result of the scan shocked it greatly. It actually couldn't detect anything at all. This river was extremely strange. Just as the Red King was dazed, the emperor beast of auspiciousness, unable to contain its curiosity, took advantage of the Red King's inattention and leapt deftly, jumping right over the Red King's barrier. Plop. The golden figure cut through the air and dived headfirst into that mysterious small river. Chapter 27. The auspicious beast disappears, DTN attacks. The core region of the Stardew Great Forest. This was the place with the richest life force in the entire forest. The lake water was as green as emeralds, radiating vibrant vitality. The beast god DTN, who was in secluded cultivation, suddenly snapped his eyes open. His golden vertical pupils were filled with disbelief and towering rage. The auspicious beast's aura has vanished. Not only that, but he could also clearly sense that the massive destiny that originally enveloped the Stardew Great Forest and blessed the thousands of spirit beasts had completely vanished in an instant. It was as if it had been forcefully cut off by something. Damn it, how is this possible? DTN let out an earth-shattering roar. Who touched the auspicious beast? Along with DTN's roar, several terrifying auras soared into the sky from various corners of the core region. What's wrong? What happened? A low, thunderous voice rang out. Immediately after, a mountain-sized dark golden terraclaw bear tore through space and strode forward. It was none other than Chongjun, one of the 10 great beasts. Close behind him, ZG, the king of myriad beasts, BG, and the other savage beasts arrived one after another, their faces filled with shock and confusion. Dian, what on earth happened? Why are you so emotional? Biji's gentle voice carried a hint of anxiety. As the Emerald Swan, she was the most sensitive to the aura of life, so she had naturally sensed the abnormal fluctuations in the forest's destiny as well as an inexplicable feeling of oppression in her heart. Dian's expression was terrifyingly dark, and a black flame seemed to burn within his golden vertical pupils. The auspicious beast has disappeared. And along with it, the destiny of our spirit beast clan is also gone. What? As soon as these words were spoken, all the savage beasts went pale with shock. The importance of the auspicious beast to the spirit beast clan went without saying. It was the key to their rapid growth and breakthrough of bottlenecks, and even more so, the future hope of the spirit beast clan. Now that the auspicious beast had disappeared and their destiny was severed, this was practically cutting off the very roots of the spirit beast clan. How could this happen? Isn't the auspicious beast protected by the Scarlet King? How could it disappear for no reason? The king of myriad beasts' face, which resembled old tree bark, was filled with disbelief. HMPH, it must be the work of those detestable humans. Shang Jun had the most fiery temper. Upon hearing this, he immediately flew into a rage, slamming his two massive bare paws together with a thunderous metallic clang. At this point, Shang Jun grew even angrier and roared furiously. That useless Scarlet King, he is truly more of a hindrance than a help. He couldn't even protect a single auspicious beast, so what's the use of keeping him? If you ask me, we should just ring off his 3 heads. At this moment, the other savage beasts were also filled with resentment toward the Scarlet King. After all, protecting the auspicious beast was of paramount importance. For the Scarlet King to actually lose, it was nothing short of a dereliction of duty. Enough. Dian barked coldly, interrupting the beasts' bickering. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed the Scarlet King's aura. The Scarlet King is currently at the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest. When he uttered the word periphery, Dian's expression became even uglier. Not long ago, I sensed that a battle had broken out there between strong human experts. Although that was just human infighting, as long as it didn't affect the spirit beasts, I couldn't be bothered to care. In fact, the more strong humans die, the better it is for spirit beasts. But Dian snapped his eyes open, killing intent boiling in his gaze. That idiot Scarlet King, I repeatedly and strictly warned him not to take the auspicious beast anywhere near that place. He actually treated my words as wind blowing past his ears. Now that the auspicious beast has disappeared and our destiny is severed, it must be related to that human battle. In fact, the auspicious beast might have been dragged into it. Hearing this, even Biji, who was usually good-tempered, couldn't help but frown. If that's the case, then the Scarlet King is indeed unforgivable. Dian, what should we do now? ZG asked. What else can we do? Of course we go settle the score with that trash. And we must find the auspicious beast. Dian cold snorted, instantly transforming into a bolt of black lightning as he dashed toward the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest. Everyone, follow me. This is a major matter concerning the fate of the entire Spirit Beast clan. If anything really happened to the auspicious beast, we will make the humans pay in blood. ... At the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest, by the calm little river. The Scarlet King was standing like a statue, staring blankly at the river's surface. His 3 large heads hung low in dejection, and his 6 eyes were filled with despair and helplessness. Just moments ago, he had watched with his own eyes as that golden figure plunged headfirst into the river, and then, there was not a single splash, not a trace of aura. It was as if the auspicious beast had been swallowed by the river, completely vanishing from his perception. It's over, it's all over. The Scarlet King muttered to himself, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. He could already foresee what kind of terrifying punishment he would face once Dian discovered that the auspicious beast was gone. Being skinned and having his tendons pulled, being swallowed alive, or being locked away forever in that dark, sunless prison, never to be reincarnated. Just as the Scarlet King was in despair, an extremely terrifying pressure suddenly descended. Boom. A pitch-black figure appeared out of thin air above the Scarlet King's head. Those golden vertical pupils looked down at him coldly, as if looking at an ant that could be crushed at will. Scarlet King. Dian's voice boomed like rolling thunder in the Scarlet King's ears. Where's the auspicious beast? I entrusted the auspicious beast to your protection, and this is how you protect it. Speak, what method did the humans use to take the auspicious beast? Looking at the furious Dian before him, as well as Shang Jun, the king of myriad beasts, and the other savage beasts who had arrived right after, the Scarlet King was so terrified that he collapsed limply to the ground. The Scarlet King stammered, a crying tone in his voice. The auspicious beast, it jumped into the river, and then its aura disappeared. Jumped into the river. Dian heard this and was so angry he almost laughed. Are you trying to tell us that the auspicious beast jumped into the river and died? And its aura vanished in an instant? It's true. The Scarlet King was so aggrieved that tears were about to fall. The auspicious beast really jumped into this river, and then it disappeared. I wanted to find it, but I couldn't find it no matter what. Dian gave the Scarlet King a cold look, then turned his gaze to the seemingly ordinary little river before him. In his perception, this river was indeed somewhat strange. Although it looked ordinary, deep at the bottom of the river, there seemed to be a hidden power that made even his heart palpitate. Playing tricks. Dian snorted coldly. As the strongest expert on the surface of the current Douluo continent, he did not believe there was anything in this world that could stop him. Since you say the auspicious beast is in the river, then I will overturn this river. Even if I have to drain all its water, I will find the auspicious beast. If the auspicious beast is not in this river, Scarlet King. Dian swept a cold gaze over the Scarlet King. While he wouldn't go as far as killing him, punishment was absolutely necessary. Just at this moment, the little river splashed, and a figure slowly rose from beneath the water. He sat on a blue rock holding a fishing rod, looking quite leisurely. As expected, it is the work of a human. Seeing this, Shang Jun was filled with rage and was about to make a move to grab Lin Feng. Chapter 28. With 3 auspicious beasts, how could spirit beasts not prosper? Die, damn human. Bear Lord's huge dark golden dreadclaws flashed with a space-staring chill, striking down fiercely toward Lin Feng, who was sitting leisurely on a blue stone fishing, carrying terrifying power capable of shattering mountains. If this strike landed, let alone a human, even a fortress poured from steel would instantly be reduced to powder. However, facing this world-destroying strike, Lin Feng did not even lift an eyelid. Just as Bear Lord's sharp claws were less than an inch away from the top of Lin Feng's head. Crack, asterisk. A crisp sound of fracturing bone rang out abruptly by the quiet riverbank. Immediately after, under the horrified gazes of the ferocious beasts, Bear Lord, who had been aggressive and imposing as if ready to tear apart heaven and earth, stiffened violently as though pressed down hard by an invisible giant hand. The next second. Boom, asterisk. The earth trembled violently, and clouds of dust rose everywhere. Bear Lord's mountain-like imposing body actually fell straight to its knees on the ground. Its two thick hind legs were now twisted at an extremely bizarre angle, blood gushing out like a fountain and instantly staining the ground red. Roar. Only at this moment did a shrill, miserable scream erupt from Bear Lord's mouth, a voice filled with pain, fear, and disbelief. It was crippled. *HS's. A collective gasp of cold air sounded along the riverbank. ZG, king of myriad beasts, BG, all the ferocious beasts present widened their eyes in shock, staring fixedly at the young man who was still sitting on the blue stone without even changing his posture, as if they had seen a ghost. That was Bear Lord. Ranked 6th among the 10 great beasts, a terrifying existence with a 470,000-year cultivation. That was a ruthless character who even dared to provoke Beast God DTN and had once even clawed DTN. But now, without even touching Lin Feng, it was crippled just like that, inexplicably. This, how is this possible? King of myriad beasts felt its bark trembling, having lived for so many years, it had never seen anything so eerie. And at this moment, the most shocked of all was Beast God DTN. His golden vertical slits fixedly stared at Lin Feng. As an 890,000-year golden-eyed black dragon king and the existence closest to a god on the Douluo continent today, how sharp was his perception? Yet even so, he had completely failed to see how Lin Feng moved. He hadn't even caught a trace of spirit power fluctuation. It was as if Lin Feng hadn't taken action at all, rather, the laws of heaven and earth had descended on their own initiative at that moment, forcefully suppressing Bear Lord. A god. A trembling word uncontrollably surfaced in DTN's mind. Aside from a god, he truly couldn't think of what kind of existence could accomplish this. But didn't the god realm have a rule that gods were not allowed to interfere with the lower realm at will? Furthermore, why would a high and mighty deity condescend to stay beside such a godforsaken small creek to fish? Just as the ferocious beasts were uncertain and bewildered, and the atmosphere was tense to the extreme, Lin Feng, who had been sitting still, suddenly moved. He slowly raised the fishing rod in his hand and flicked it backward. Splash. This slight motion, in the eyes of the ferocious beasts, seemed like the waving of the Grim Reaper's scythe. The ferocious beasts surrounding the area retreated hundreds of meters backward like startled rabbits. Even DTN was tense all over. However, the expected attack did not arrive. Lin Feng merely lifted the rod gently, the line drawing a graceful arc before entering the water. Afterwards, he turned his head slightly, his gaze passing over the wailing Bear Lord kneeling on the ground, and landed on Red King, who was trembling in fear at the very back. A meaningful smile curled at the corners of his lips. Oh, young Red King Tilda. This featherlight sentence made all of Red King's fur stand on end, all three of its heads lifted at the same time, its eyes filled with terror. It had been targeted by this terrifying guy. Is this dark-colored emperor beast of auspiciousness the one you dropped? As Lin Feng's voice fell, dark ripples suddenly spread across the river's surface. Immediately after, an auspicious beast a size larger than the original, pitch-black like ink all over, its scales shimmering with a dark, cold light, slowly floated out of the water. The moment this auspicious beast appeared, the surrounding light seemed to be swallowed up by it. Compared to their auspicious beast, this one exuded a majestic and domineering aura. This aura. BG covered her mouth, her eyes full of shock. This auspicious beast contained unimaginably terrifying energy within its body. Just by standing here, BG felt her growth speed accelerate by a whole 5 times. Not just her, all the ferocious beasts present sensed it clearly as well. If this auspicious beast belonged to their Stardew Great Forest, then the revival of the spirit beast race would no longer be an unreachable dream. Gulp. Asterisk. Red King swallowed hard, greed and desire filling all 6 of its eyes. If it had this auspicious beast by its side, then its growth speed would be even faster, and those damned humans would no longer be able to suppress it. Just as it was about to nod and say yes, it suddenly felt a cold gaze shoot toward it. It was DTN. Although DTN was also shocked by the appearance of this dark-colored auspicious beast, he was, after all, an old freak who had lived for over 800,000 years, and his rationality was not completely swept away by greed. There was no free lunch in this world, let alone when facing such an unfathomable god. Answer truthfully. DTN's voice echoed in Red King's mind, cold and stern. Don't let greed blind your eyes. The priority right now is to get back our original auspicious beast. Don't be deceived by illusions. Red King shuddered and snapped awake instantly. Indeed, if the Emperor Beast of Auspiciousness was lost because of its own greed, it would become the sinner of all spirit beasts. And no, it isn't. Red King spoke up through gritted teeth, its heart bleeding. Oh, it isn't. Lin Feng raised an eyebrow and casually pressed the domineering dark auspicious beast back into the water. The hearts of the ferocious beasts sank along with that press. Then, is it this purple gold Emperor Beast of Auspiciousness? The river water surged again. This time, what emerged was an auspicious beast covered in purple gold scales, emanating a noble and mysterious aura. Although its aura was not as strong as the dark auspicious beast just now, it far exceeded that of the original one. Faint purple chi swirled around it as if a sovereign had descended, making people want to bow down and worship it. This one is extraordinary as well. King of myriad beasts shook its branches in excitement. Red King looked at DTN again. DTN was expressionless, merely shaking his head slightly. Red King sighed and could only shake its head again, enduring the pain. Not this one either. Lin Feng smiled and pressed the purple gold auspicious beast back down once more. Right after, the last auspicious beast floated up to the surface, the somewhat playful Emperor Beast of Auspiciousness. Seeing this familiar figure, Red King almost cried with relief. Thankfully, it was safe. This is it, it's this one. Red King nodded furiously, terrified that Lin Feng would press it back down again. Very good. Lin Feng nodded, a satisfied look appearing on his face. You are an honest spirit beast, so, all 3 of these auspicious beasts are given to you. As soon as the words left his mouth, Lin Feng waved his hand. Boom, asterisk. 3 beams of light instantly shot into the sky, then landed steadily in front of Red King. The original Emperor Beast of Auspiciousness looked around with a blank expression. Beside it, on its left and right, stood the incomparably domineering dark auspicious beast and the noble, mysterious purple gold auspicious beast. 3 massive forces of destiny interwoven together, instantly forming a tricolored pillar of light that pierced through heaven and earth, shooting straight into the clouds. The entire Stardew Great Forest boiled with excitement at this moment. All spirit beasts, regardless of cultivation level, prostrated themselves in worship toward this direction, letting out devout cheers. This. DTN was completely dumbfounded. Looking at these 3 living auspicious beasts in front of him, his mind went completely blank. Originally, he had just wanted to get back the original auspicious beast, even if it meant paying a price. But now, Not only was the original auspicious beast back, but it was a buy one, get two free, gifting 2 more beasts that defied heaven even further. Did happiness come way too suddenly? 3 whole emperor beasts of auspiciousness. BT clutched her chest, feeling as if she were about to faint from bliss. With these 3 auspicious beasts, how could the spirit beasts fail to prosper? This was wonderful. ... God Realm, see God's Palace. Tang San. Chapter 29, Tang San's 3-in-1, 6-in-1 Soul Plan. God Realm, see God's Palace. The originally sacred and solemn hall was now filled with a heart-palpitating, oppressive atmosphere. Tang San sat upright on the main seat. His face, which was usually as calm as an ancient well and full of strategic confidence, was now so gloomy it seemed it could drip water. Just now, he clearly sensed that the destiny of the spirit beasts on the Douluo continent had actually skyrocketed more than tenfold. That soaring power of fate even made him secretly alarmed. One must know that when he ascended to the Douluo God Realm back then, the destiny of the spirit beasts on the Douluo continent had already weakened significantly. After 10,000 years, the survival space of the spirit beasts had been further compressed. In Tang San's deductions, by the time the Son of Destiny ascended, the destiny of the spirit beast clan would completely decline, and in another 10,000 years, the spirit beasts would likely be reduced to being kept in captivity. Damn it. Tang San slammed his hand on the armrest, a cold light flickering in his eyes. According to his original precise layout, the decline of the spirit beast clan was inevitable and necessary. He had already calculated everything, using Huo Yuhao, the Son of Destiny, plus his own daughter whose memories were sealed and sent to the lower realm, to step by step erode and plunder the spirit beast's destiny. This was to make the spirit beasts completely abandon the idea of ascending to the God Realm, while further weakening the consciousness of the Douluo continent plane, so his parents could become the plane lords of the Douluo continent and help him completely master the Douluo continent. But now, everything was in chaos. The appearance of 3 emperor beasts of auspiciousness disrupted his entire plan and gave the spirit beast clan hope for a comeback. Tang San closed his eyes, and a scene involuntarily appeared in his mind. Countless spirit beasts with terrifying cultivation bases rushed out of the Stardew Great Forest, and human cities were turned into ruins under the trampling of the beast tide, with mourning everywhere and rivers of blood. No, absolutely not. Tang San snapped his eyes open, killing intent boiling within them. Spirit beasts must decline, and humans must dominate the continent. This is the general trend and the cornerstone of my maintenance of peace on the Douluo continent. Tang San had originally thought to have Duming and Erming guard that small river, making that small river his own possession, only allowing variables he permitted to appear. But, though Duming and Erming are strong, they cannot compare to DTN of the Stardew Great Forest. Truly 2 useless fools, unable to do even this. If not for that fellow the god of destruction hosting meetings for God Realm expansion recently, I would have gone down myself to take the fellow in that river as a subordinate. Just like the Chenkin asking Love Valley I planned, with these 2 aides, no one could stop my layout. And if the fellow in that river became my aide, I could bring a new future to Douluo continent. Both humans and spirit beasts could have a bright future. But, it's still unconfirmed if the fellow in that river has colluded with the god of destruction. Recently, the god of destruction has been frequently calling God Realm committee meetings, ostensibly to strengthen God Realm management, but actually targeting me everywhere, making me unable to monitor the lower realm at all times. Maybe this was done intentionally by the god of destruction to cover for that fellow making trouble in the lower realm, supporting spirit beast forces to oppose me. The more he thought, the more it made sense. The god of destruction entered the God Realm before him and must have many hidden moves. I didn't expect that this time he would actually stretch his claws to my beloved Douluo continent. He already has a path to death. HMPH, destruction, do you think you can win against me like this? A cold arc curled at the corner of Tang San's mouth, a gleam flashing in his eyes. Since you brought out 3 auspicious beasts to try for a comeback, I'll show you that while the path is 1 foot high, the demon is 10 feet high. Fortunately, he, Tang San, always did things meticulously and always kept a backup plan. As soon as he discovered there were 3 sons of destiny on the Douluo continent and that the river was strange, he had already taken decisive action. Directly having Duming and Erming throw Shaoqi into that river was naturally part of his calculation. Who in the entire God Realm doesn't know Shaoqi is my daughter? A small god staying in the lower realm would definitely not dare to strike my daughter. See, didn't he honestly turn my daughter into 3? When the time comes, I only need to arrange for these 3 daughters to separately approach those 3 auspicious beasts and form bonds with those 3 sons of destiny. Let them experience hardships, experience life and death, and cultivate deep feelings. And the method remains simple. First have my 3 daughters fall in love with the 3 sons of destiny, and then have the 3 sons of destiny come into contact with the 3 emperor beasts of auspiciousness. This way, the emperor beasts of auspiciousness will definitely develop a yearning for the human world. Then, after experiencing things with the 3 sons of destiny, they will all eventually choose to sacrifice themselves. This way, the destiny of the spirit beast clan will completely dry up. I will then merge my daughter's soul with the soul of the auspicious beast, pretending they were originally one person. After all, by then, I would have already placed a fragment of my daughter's soul onto the emperor beast of auspiciousness, so saying they are one is no problem. But, there are still problems to consider, because I only have 1 god position for the god of emotions and 1 for the butterfly goddess, only 2 god positions in total. Even if I merge my 3 daughters with the 3 auspicious beasts, there are still 3, and there are also 3 sons of destiny. It's simply too many. Then, I can only merge the souls of the 3 sons of destiny, and then merge the 6 fragments of my daughter's soul. In short, 3 in 1, 6 in 1. This way, they can just happen to inherit the god positions of the god of emotions and the butterfly goddess. Of course, this entire plan must never be known by Xiao Wu, otherwise she would definitely not have the heart to do it. However, for the Douluo continent, there's no other way. I myself also don't have the heart for it. Tang San sighed, moved by his own sacrifice, and then collected his thoughts. The priority is to quickly contact Duming and Erming in the lower realm and have them act according to my plan. I must instruct them not to train those 3 split daughters to be too strong. Just maintaining a level of strength similar to the Son of Destiny is enough. It doesn't matter if she just plays the role of a vase, as the Son of Destiny, and I will protect her anyway. If her strength is too great, even I would find it hard to set up crises where their feelings can be honed and improved. Only weakness is convenient for me to control. Just as Tang San was preparing to use his divine sense to contact Duming and Erming, the aura of the god of destruction suddenly appeared outside the sea god's palace. That damn fellow again. Tang San could only temporarily give up on contacting Duming and Erming in the lower realm and went out to greet the god of destruction. Destruction, what business brings you to my sea god's palace today? Tang San put on a confident and composed smile, looking like an educated and reasonable person. Tang San, as an enforcer god of the god realm, you are not allowed to privately interfere with the affairs of the lower realm. I think, you should be clear on that. The god of destruction's voice was low and cold. That is natural. As an enforcer god of the god realm, from the moment I ascended, I have had no relationship with the Douluo continent, and naturally, I will not interfere with its development. Tang San spoke with righteous indignation. HMPH, stop playing dumb. This is a report concerning you. Come to the deliberation hall with me. The god of destruction took out a letter. Tang San's expression changed slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. An upright person does not fear a crooked shadow. So what if there is a report? I have never left any evidence. Whether it's the Tang sect or my daughter going to the lower realm for training, I have suitable excuses. These things alone are not enough to pin me down. Chapter 30. Even if it is a god, I will grant him purification by fire. At the Clear Sky sect, Duming and Erming brought Ling Qi, Bing Wuer, and Wang Donger back. Erming scratched his head, looking at Duming with a foolish grin, and asked in a booming voice. Big brother, does Tang San have any other arrangements? Duming shook his head. Tang San had only told them to throw Xiaoqi into the river and left no further instructions. He was truly irresponsible. However, the two of them couldn't act rashly lest they interfere with Tang San's plans. After all, Tang San was a narrow-minded person. If they drew his negative attention, they would be in big trouble. Then, what do we do next? Erming shrugged, looking utterly lost. Duming pondered for a moment, his gaze sweeping over Wang Donger and the other two, and sighed. There's no other way. We two brothers will just have to train them ourselves for now. Send them back to Shrek Academy. That wouldn't do. With that old man at Shrek Academy, it would probably be hard to teach Wang Donger and the other two well. Besides, Xuanzi had been too arrogant back then, and they had knocked him out with a single punch. If they sent them back now, the other party would definitely think they were there to cause trouble, which would bring no end of hassle. Of course, if the people from Shrek Academy dared to retaliate, Duming and Erming were absolutely confident they could beat them to a pulp. However, whether to send them back or not ultimately depended on Tang San's arrangements. For now, they just needed to have Wang Donger and the other two stay at the Clear Sky sect. This way, it shouldn't affect Tang San's plan at all. If they acted on their own without his instructions and caused trouble, they would definitely be targeted by that guy in the future. Being given a hard time would be the least of their worries. Since they decided to train them themselves, Duming and Erming began to check the three's cultivation progress to prevent them from being bullied when they went out. Making Tang San's daughter a bit stronger shouldn't be a problem, right? Their gazes first fell upon Ling Qi, planning to see how her strength was. Among the three, Ling Zai's aura was the most sacred, and the aura she emitted was also the strongest. Come, girl Ling Qi, release your spirit power. Ling Qi nodded and released her spirit power. Her white dress fluttered as if gently blown by a breeze. With spirit power at rank 29 and close to rank 30, her overall spirit power was also extremely sacred. It truly felt as if an angel had descended to the mortal world. Ling Zai's spirit power rank is currently 29, she should reach rank 30 very soon. Before Duming could finish speaking, the spirit power aura around Ling Qi thickened by a few degrees, surging directly toward rank 30. Just in the span of a short conversation, she had actually reached rank 30. Since girl Ling Zai's spirit power rank has reached 30, then in a bit, I will take you to hunt for a suitable spirit ring. Erming smiled and spoke. Although he was also a spirit beast, he was now fundamentally different from spirit beasts. He had already transformed, and, currently working under Tang San, killing people or killing spirit beasts had basically become routine. Over these 10,000 years, he hadn't spent his time being naive and sweet. However, Ling Qi merely shook her head slightly, her expression calm. No need. No need. Duming was stunned. In the next moment, a faint golden light flashed on Ling Zai's body, and a sacred and grand aura spread out. Beneath her feet, a purple spirit ring actually condensed out of thin air. 6 wings appeared behind her, and 3 spirit rings, 2 yellow and 1 purple, emerged beneath her. This. Duming and Erming's copper bell-like eyes bulged, their mouths open wide enough to fit an egg. A spirit ring generating automatically. This was simply unheard of. Wang Donger, who was beside them, also leaned in, her face full of curiosity and envy, her eyes shining as she looked at Ling Qi. Sister Ling Qi, how did you do that? So amazing. Wang Donger called Ling Qi, Sister Ling Qi, quite naturally. Whether it was Ling Qi or Bing Wuer, Wang Donger felt an innate sense of closeness to them. Ling Qi revealed a gentle smile and looked at Wang Donger beside her, softly explaining. This is thanks to my other spirit, the Goddess of Light. Goddess of Light. Duming and Erming exchanged glances, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. At first, the two of them were only attracted by Ling Zai's seraphim spirit, but now they remembered that Ling Qi possessed twin spirits. Why doesn't my Goddess of Light butterfly spirit have this kind of ability? It's clearly only one word off. Wang Donger's pink blue eyes were filled with envy. The Goddess of Light butterfly was ultimately just a butterfly, but the Goddess of Light sounded much more prestigious. It's fine, Xiaoqi. The path everyone has to walk is different, so you don't need to be envious. Duming and Erming comforted her. However, if humans could condense spirit rings on their own, perhaps the situation of spirit beasts would be a bit better. The two of them quickly checked Bing Wuer's spirit power rank as well. It was also 29, and her spirits were the Ice Empress Scorpion and the Goddess of Light butterfly. Ling Qi and Bing Wuer's strengths were both higher than Xiaoqi's. Looking at the 3 identical faces, Duming and Erming were filled with emotion, but they quickly transitioned into the teaching phase. Though they were transformed spirit beasts, they had lived as humans for 10,000 years after all. Moreover, as former 100,000-year spirit beasts, no human in this world could match their understanding of spirit beasts. Over the next period of time, Duming and Erming began to explain the types, weaknesses, and habits of spirit beasts to the 3 of them in immense detail. After finishing the knowledge about spirit beasts, Duming shifted the topic. Times have changed now. Besides spirits, there's another thing that is very powerful, and that is spirit tools. Erming added from the side. The current spirit tools are quite terrifying and extremely powerful, capable of threatening even Super Douluo or even Limit Douluo. However, the moment the words, spirit tools, were mentioned, Wang Donger, who was still full of enthusiasm, suddenly had her face turn pale. Her brow furrowed deeply, and her eyes revealed a clear look of disgust. That was a feeling coming from the depths of her soul, an instinctive resistance. Ling Qi, who was beside her, keenly sensed the abnormality. Looking at Wang Donger's painful expression, a trace of coldness flashed in her golden eyes. Ling Qi walked over to Wang Donger's side, stretched out her fair hand, and gently placed it on Wang Donger's head. A gentle and warm energy flowed through her palm into Wang Donger's body. In an instant, Wang Donger's furrowed brow smoothed out, and the feeling of disgust and resistance coming from the depths of her soul vanished without a trace. Huh. Wang Donger blinked, touching her own head with a look of surprise. So comfortable, that uncomfortable feeling from just now is gone. Wang Dong'er looked at Ling Shi with great curiosity. How on earth did Ling Shi do it? Clearly, she had just hated spirit tools and even felt extremely repulsed by hearing the words, spirit tools. But with Ling Shi simply putting her hand on her head, she actually didn't feel uncomfortable anymore. So magical. This is also my spirit's ability. It's fine, you'll be able to use spirit tools normally in the future. Ling Shi chuckled. Looking at this scene, Daming and Erming couldn't help but be stunned. Was this goddess of light spirit really this powerful? Earlier, when the two brothers mentioned spirit tools, Wang Dong'er had felt miserable. The two brothers had thought about asking Tang San for a solution, but even Tang San was helpless. They didn't expect it to be solved so easily by Ling Shi. She truly was not simple. In time, Ling Shi would definitely become an existence standing at the peak of the Douluo continent, even without Tang San's help. A gentle expression appeared on Ling Zai's face, but she had already noted down the feeling of disgust emitted by her seraphim spirit. Apart from that mark, there was also a seal in Wang Dong'er's soul. Unsurprisingly, it sealed Wang Dong'er's memories. However, there was a powerful force outside that seal, which was not something she could deal with for the time being. Therefore, Ling Shi did not choose to alert the enemy, only using her seraphim spirit to remember this aura. In the future, if she found the owner of this aura, then she would personally grant him purification by fire in the name of the seraphim. Even if it was a so-called god. In the god realm, Tang San suddenly felt someone talking about him behind his back and couldn't help but frown slightly. Someone dared to speak ill of him behind his back. They had already found a path to their own demise. Chapter 31. They sacrificed themselves gloriously. Yan Xiao quickly brought Ma Xiaotao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan back to Shrek Academy. Dai Yuang looked back in the direction they had come from, a trace of extremely fake worry flashing in his eyes. Dean Yan, Elder Zan is staying there all by himself to deal with Kai Wang. Will he really be alright? As the eldest son of the White Tiger Duke's mansion, Dai Yuang had been well versed in the ways of officialdom and interpersonal relations since childhood. Although he secretly wished that the useless old man who always ruined things would just die there, on the surface, as a member of the Shrek Seven Devils, he had to show sufficient concern for the safety of the leading elder. After all, if one was going to put on a show, they had to do it thoroughly. Hearing this, Yan Xiao's footsteps paused slightly, and his expression darkened so much it looked as if it could drip water. There is no need to worry. He took a deep breath, forcing down the anger in his heart, and said in a stiff tone. Elder Zan is a super Douluo with heaven-defying strength. A mere Kai Wang is nothing to him. Saying this, Yan Xiao let out a cold snort. Our presence there would only make us targets for Kai Wang and distract Elder Zan. We would just be adding to his troubles. Although he said this, the resentment toward Xuanzi and Yan Xiao's tone could not be concealed. What an old bastard. What had he turned such a perfectly fine team into? Hearing this, Ma Xiaotao, Dai Yuang, and Ling Luokan tactfully shut their mouths, choosing to remain silent. Nothing to him. If he were still the physically sound, overbearing gluttonous Douluo of the past, dealing with a 300,000-year-old savage beast like Kai Wang might indeed have been nothing to him, perhaps even effortless. But what about now? Xuanzi's legs were already ruined. For a super Douluo who had lost both legs, whether he could escape unscathed from Kai Wang was a complete unknown. In all likelihood, things would bode ill for him. Yan Xiao rubbed his aching temples. Looking at the only 3 remaining seedlings before him, a deep sense of powerlessness welled up in his heart. 4 had died. Yao Haoshuan, Gung Yangmo, Chen Zifeng, and Shishi. Every single one of these 4 was a top genius cultivated by the academy with countless resources, an elite of the inner courtyard, and a future titled Douluo candidate. Yet, they were gone just like that. And they had perished in such an utterly unspeakable manner. Phew. Yan Xiao exhaled a breath of turbid air, his gaze turning sharp. Next, I will first notify the families of those 4 students. They sacrificed themselves gloriously in battle against evil soul masters to protect the glory of Shrek Academy. There was no other choice, he could only make up such a story. After all, he couldn't let the academy's reputation be ruined. Thinking of this, Yan Xiao truly felt a surge of uncontrollable anger. This was all Xuanzi's fault. Now, look at this. The entire mess had to be cleaned up by him, the dean. Ma Xiaotao took a step forward, a trace of anxiety in her eyes. Teacher, what do we do next? Yan Xiao waved his hand. You don't need to worry about what comes next. The 3 of you go back and stand by for now to adjust your conditions. I will find a way to fill the vacancies in the team. As for the rest. Yan Xiao's gaze suddenly became stern as he swept his eyes over the 3 of them, his tone leaving no room for doubt. Remember, regarding the matter of that small river, as well as Elder Zan's blunder. If anyone asks, say that we were ambushed by powerful evil soul masters. Elder Zan was injured while protecting you, and the other 4 students unfortunately perished. This concerns the 10,000-year reputation of Shrek Academy, and absolutely no mistakes will be tolerated. Do you understand? This was a strict command. Yes. The 3 of them exchanged glances and responded in unison. They were no fools and naturally understood the severity of the matter. Yan Xiao nodded, gave a few more instructions, and left in a hurry. He had far too many things to handle, appeasing the families, convening a Sea Gods Pavilion meeting, reselecting team members, each one left him utterly overwhelmed. Watching Yan Xiao's departing figure. Sacrificed gloriously. Dai Yuang crossed his arms, leaning against a willow tree by the lakeside, a mocking curve playing on the corner of his mouth. Dying in that manner was practically a joke. Was the man in that small river really a god? Ling Luokan's cold voice rang out. She lowered her head, looking at her own reflection in the lake water, a trace of lingering fear flashing in her eyes. Thinking back to the scene at that time, Ling Luokan couldn't help but tremble all over. There's no mistake, even the current Elder Mu came out of that small river. Only a god could directly create a limit Douluo. Ma Xiaotao spoke in a deep voice. A god had actually appeared on the Douluo continent, and he didn't seem to have any ulterior motives. As long as one answers honestly, they can increase their strength. Dai Yuang continued. No, what was increased wasn't our strength. It's just that there are more of us now. Ling Luokan shook her head slightly, refuting Dai Yuang's words. We've left now, if that group of spirit beasts gets it. Just as the 3 were still talking, a gentle voice suddenly came from the path nearby. Students, what are you chatting about here? Startled, the 3 of them quickly turned to look. They saw a middle-aged man walking over slowly. He had an ordinary appearance, wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses, and held a few thick books in his hands. He looked gentle and refined, exuding a strong scholarly air. It was none other than the outer courtyard teacher, Teacher Wang Yan. Teacher Wang Yan had originally just been passing by, planning to go to the library to look up some information on spirit beasts, but he hadn't expected to run straight into these favored children of the inner courtyard. Moreover, looking at their appearance, they seemed to have just returned from outside. Seeing that it was teacher Wang Yan, Dai Yuang's originally vigilant gaze instantly relaxed, replaced by an undisguised coldness and contempt. It's nothing. Dai Yuang replied indifferently. He didn't even stand up straight, still leaning against the tree with an attitude of not being bothered to pay attention. In his eyes, although teacher Wang Yan was a teacher, his strength was simply too weak. Despite being so old, he was only a spirit king. Someone of this level, if they were in the White Tiger Duke's mansion, would at most be a gatekeeper or a bookkeeping housekeeper. He was simply not qualified to be looked upon directly by the future White Tiger Duke. Although teacher Wang Yan's theoretical knowledge was rich, in the spirit master's world where strength was revered, especially to a top genius like Dai Yuang, theory without strength was nothing but hot air. We were just discussing the mission assigned to us by the academy. Now that we've finished discussing, we are preparing to leave. Dai Yuang spoke very casually. Ma Xiaotao and Ling Luochen didn't say much either. Since Yan Xiao had just given them a gag order, they naturally wouldn't say anything more to an outer courtyard teacher. I'll be leaving first. Ma Xiaotao was the first to leave, and Ling Luochen followed closely behind. Dai Yuang cast a cold glance at teacher Wang Yan, let out a soft snort from his nose, and turned to follow them. Leaving only teacher Wang Yan standing in place, the smile on his face somewhat stiff. He adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. Feeling the naked contempt in Dai Yuang's eyes just now, although he felt somewhat dissatisfied, his years of cultivating composure allowed him to maintain a gentle demeanor on the surface. Teacher Wang Yan shook his head and smiled self-deprecatingly. Having weak strength, it was only normal to be looked down upon. However, although they had deliberately lowered their voices, teacher Wang Yan's hearing had been extraordinary since childhood, and he still caught a few fragments of their conversation. Small river. Becoming stronger. Correct answer. Teacher Wang Yan knit his brows tightly, his fingers lightly tapping the books in his hands. It seems necessary to go and investigate. Although his strength was inferior to others, when it came to investigating the truth and analyzing clues, he, teacher Wang Yan, would not lose to anyone. As for clues, he had heard the mention of spirit beasts. So, a place nearby where spirit beasts existed and where there was a river, the Stardew Great Forest. He hadn't been there for some time. Had something happened? Could his coiling dragon rod spirit be strengthened? Chapter 32. That river can only be named Shrek. Sea God's Pavilion, Shrek Academy. On both sides of the long table, several elders sat upright, but the expressions on their faces were, without exception, extremely colorful. Some were shocked, some were bewildered, and some had twitching corners of their mouths, as if they had heard an absurd fairy tale. Just moments ago, Yan Xiao had recounted everything that had happened at the edge of the Stardew Great Forest, completely intact, or rather, processed with a certain amount of artistic embellishment. Xuanzi had made Shishi and the others jump into the river, after which Lin Feng appeared and presented 4 upgraded versions of Shishi and her companions to question Xuanzi. Originally, everything would have been fine as long as he answered correctly, but Xuanzi choked on a chicken leg and gave a wrong answer, leaving the lives of 4 elite Shrek Academy disciples unknown. At this moment, dead silence hung over the entire Sea God's Pavilion. The elders looked at one another, staring blankly, with no one daring to speak first. It was far too ridiculous. This was simply ridiculousness opening the door for ridiculousness, ridiculous to the extreme. The dignified inspection group of Shrek Academy, the elite disciples of the inner court, hadn't died at the hands of evil soul masters, nor in the jaws of powerful spirit beasts. It was actually because a super Douluo couldn't distinguish whether 4 students were more important than the chicken leg in his hand. If word got out, what would happen to Shrek Academy's 10,000-year reputation? Absurd, utterly absurd. An ill-tempered elder slammed his hand on the table, his beard shaking with rage. That old fool Xuanzi, it's one thing for him to be slovenly and greedy on ordinary days, but at such a crucial life or death moment, he actually. The elder was so furious he couldn't even speak coherently. Although the other elders didn't speak, their eyes were filled with blame and helplessness. Unreliable. Far too unreliable. They had long known Xuanzi had character flaws, that he was impulsive and acted without considering the consequences, but no one expected him to be unreliable to this extent. Those were 4 human lives. And the future pillars of the academy. Gone, just like that, for a single chicken leg. Even if Kai Wang had arrived, given the situation at the time, as long as he gave the correct answer, it would have been more than enough to take them away. Besides, as long as the river god was present, even Kai Wang wouldn't dare act rashly. After all, they knew that Xuanzi's leg was lost to Lin Feng. A mere Kai Wang went without saying. Qian Duoduo frowned tightly, his fingers tapping gently on the tabletop. He looked at Yan Xiao, took a deep breath, and asked a question everyone had overlooked. Since you brought back Ma Xiaotao and those 3 children, where's Elder Zan? As soon as those words were spoken, everyone snapped back to reality. That's right. They had been so focused on listening to that ridiculous story and getting angry that they nearly forgot the main person involved. Where was Xuanzi? As the leading teacher, after such a major incident, why hadn't he returned? Hearing this, Yan Xiao appropriately allowed a trace of deep grief and solemn heroism to surface on his face. This was the moment to test his acting skills. He lowered his head, his voice turning deep and raspy. Elder Zan, he felt deeply guilty. Yan Xiao paused, as if trying his best to suppress the grief in his heart. When Kai Wang suddenly appeared, Elder Zan knew he had committed a grave mistake that resulted in 4 students falling into danger. He had no face to face the academy, and even less face to meet Elder Mu. So, to cover our retreat and preserve the remaining 3 precious saplings, Elder Zan chose to stay behind alone to block Kai Wang. He told me that I must bring the children back safely. This speech was delivered with such emotional passion that it touched the heart deeply. The Sea God's Pavilion fell silent once again. But this time, there was less anger and more complexity in the silence. That Xuanzi, who was usually unreliable, did nothing but drink and eat meat, and always dropped the ball at critical moments. Finally had a moment of dependability. With a crippled body, guarding the rear alone and hard fighting the 300,000-year ferocious beast, Kai Wang. This courage and sense of responsibility were indeed worthy of his status as a Shrek elder. Sigh. An elderly elder let out a long sigh. If Xuanzi really, then at least he died a worthy death. Indeed. Another elder nodded, his tone softening considerably. Regardless, at the final moment, he showed a bit of responsibility. If Elder Mu's spirit in heaven knows this, he should feel a sense of comfort. Although the process was absurd, as for the outcome, if Xuanzi truly died fighting for Shrek Academy's future, he could be considered a hero. As for that little episode, regarding the chicken leg. Everyone's eyes met in the air. Though unsaid, they all understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Conceal it. It must be concealed. An elder of Shrek Academy could be a fallen hero, but never a fool who killed his students out of greed for food. This was the bottom line. For the 10,000-year glory of Shrek Academy. Xuanzi's cause of death could only be encountering a formidable enemy and dying in battle. As for those stains, let them rot together with Xuanzi's corpse in the Stardew Great Forest. This matter is settled. Sitting in the main seat, Elder Lin spoke slowly, setting the final verdict. Announced to the outside world that Elder Zan encountered a riot of ferocious beasts in the Stardew Great Forest and died heroically covering the students' retreat, while 4 students also died gloriously in the line of duty. Everyone nodded in agreement. Just then, Qian Duoduo's voice sounded again, his tone even more grave than before, carrying a trace of undisguised concern. Everyone, let us set aside Elder Zan's matter for now. Qian Duoduo stood up, his gaze sweeping across the room before landing on Yan Xiaoj. Have you all considered a question? What would happen if that river fell into the hands of spirit beasts? If even the current Elder Mu can be replicated, what if the spirit beasts of the Stardew Great Forest discover how to use that river to mass produce a large number of ferocious beasts? That would be a catastrophic disaster for us humans. As soon as these words were uttered, the expressions of all the elders present changed drastically. Just now, they were too busy discussing Xuanzi's life and death that they actually overlooked this most fatal problem. Dishan, King of Myriad Beasts, BG, Kai Wang. For the Spirit Master's world of humanity, that would definitely be an absolute catastrophe. An unprecedented disaster. Everyone realized the severity of the issue. No. Elder Lin stood up abruptly, her walking stick thumping heavily onto the ground. This matter is too huge, exceeding the scope of what we can decide. As long as we do not anger the person in the river, we must obtain ownership of that river. This wasn't just for Shrek, but for all humanity. Everyone present knew clearly in their hearts. What lay behind that river was an incalculable fortune of interests. Whoever controlled that river controlled an assembly line for mass-producing super powerhouses. Why could Shrek Academy stand tall for 10,000 years without falling? Wasn't it because of its big fists? If they could gain control over that river's usage. At this moment, greed overcame fear. Yan Xiaoj frowned, pondering for a moment. But, that place is, after all, the edge of the Stardew Great Forest, and Kai Wang is already there. If we go over now, I'm afraid they would have to face the core combat power of the Stardew Great Forest. Now that Shrek Academy's old Muen had passed away, and Xuanzi's life was unknown, the strongest combat power was Elder Song, a rank 97 Super Douluo. However, there was still a certain gap compared to Xuanzi and old Muen. If those few inside the Stardew Great Forest found out, this group of them wouldn't be enough for Dishan and the other ferocious beasts to fight. We must ask Elder Mu for instructions on this matter. Elder Song, who had been silent all this while, sighed. Only if Elder Mu is willing to make a move can we obtain that river. At present, Shrek Academy's high-tier combat power was bright Muen. If he could make a move, they would definitely be able to take it. I will go ask Elder Mu for instructions. Yan Xiaoj took a deep breath and stood up. That small river would determine the future development pattern of the Douluo continent, so it could only belong to Shrek Academy. Chapter 33, Holy Ghost Cultist, Xuanzi. PFF. Xuanzi violently spat out a mouthful of river water. He lay sprawled on the cold stone bank like a dead dog, gasping heavily for breath. His lungs burned with a searing pain, as if they were being pricked by countless steel needles. Damn Yan Xiaoj, heartless bastard. As Xuanzi coughed violently, he cursed Yan Xiaoj's ancestors back 18 generations in his heart. Leaving him all alone in that godforsaken place to face the Scarlet King, while he ran off so quickly with the others. To think he was supposed to be the face of Shrek Academy, yet he actually abandoned an elder like him who had bled and suffered injuries for the academy. Xuanzi struggled to crawl up, his wheelchair was nowhere to be found. He was now like a pile of mush, lying miserably on the ground, soaked through and in tatters, without a single shred of the gluttonous Douluo's majestic aura left. Where is this? Xuanzi shook his somewhat groggy head, struggling to open his eyes, which were slightly swollen from being soaked in the river water. A sickening stench of blood permeated the air. A deathly silence hung all around, broken only by the sound of some unknown liquid dripping. Drip, drip. A sudden chill rose in Xuanzi's heart, and his spine went cold, as if he were being watched by some terrifying, ferocious beast. He instinctively raised his head and looked forward. With this look, Xuanzi's pupils instantly contracted to the size of pinpricks. In the open space not far ahead of him, several figures clad in black robes were kneeling. These people were trembling all over, their heads pressed firmly against the ground, not even daring to breathe loudly, clearly in extreme terror of something. And right in front of them, Xuanzi's gaze slowly drifted upward. A man with short silver-white hair, deep purple eyes, and handsome features, wearing armor forged from the bones of an unknown creature in dark iron, and exuding a suffocatingly terrifying aura, was being choked by the neck with a single hand. That person was absolutely a titled Douluo. Perhaps, even a sliver stronger than himself in his prime. Yet now, such a powerful expert was being held up in midair by the neck with a single hand like a chicken waiting to be slaughtered, half dead. This. Xuanzi was completely stunned. And the person choking him. Why did he look so familiar? Just then, the person gave his wrist a slight flick, tossing the man and his hand aside like trash. Then, he slowly turned around. The moment he saw that face clearly, Xuanzi felt a loud boom explode in his mind. As if struck by lightning, he froze on the spot. That face. He would recognize it even if it turned to ash. Muzan. Wasn't this the Muzan who had walked out of that damn little river? Where on earth had he been washed to? The environment here was completely unfamiliar, eerie, and terrifying. It was definitely not the Stardew Great Forest. Just as Xuanzi was filled with shock and doubt, Muzan's deep purple eyes swept over indifferently. Their gazes collided in the air. Buzz. In this instant, Xuanzi felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave, and all the blood in his body froze. The shadow of death instantly enveloped his entire body. He couldn't move. He completely couldn't move. Xuanzi wanted to flee, wanted to call out loudly for help, but his body was like it had been hit with an immobilization spell, refusing to obey him at all. Muzan merely gave him a casual glance, then gently beckoned with his right hand. Whoosh. Xuanzi only felt an irresistible suction pull at him. In the next second, he was lifted into the air, flying uncontrollably right in front of Muzan. Thud. Asterisk. Xuanzi crashed heavily onto the ground, landing right at Muzan's feet. Looking down from above. Muzan looked down at Xuanzi, his eyes completely devoid of emotion, as if he were looking at an ant he could crush at any moment. Work for me, or die. The voice was flat, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. He didn't ask Xuanzi why he was here, nor how he had arrived. Because there was no need. To the strong, the origin of the weak did not matter at all. What mattered was whether they had any value to be exploited. Lying on the ground, Xuanzi felt a sudden surge of humiliation upon hearing those words. Make him work for Muzan. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Though he, Xuanzi, was a glutton and sometimes unreliable, the blood flowing in his bones belonged to Shrek. He was the gluttonous Douluo, an elder of the Sea God's Pavilion. How could he bow to the darkness? In your dreams. Xuanzi gritted his teeth, suppressing the fear in his heart, and squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. In life, I belong to Shrek. In death, I am a ghost of Shrek. I do not fear death. If you want me to betray the academy and betray my honor, you are dreaming. At this moment, Xuanzi felt his own image was incredibly grand and towering. For the glory of Shrek Academy, for justice, he would rather die than yield. However, crack. In the next instant, an incredibly terrifying pressure suddenly descended. Xuanzi felt as if he were sandwiched between 2 massive mountains, and every bone in his body let out an overburdened groan. Ah! A shrill, agonizing scream erupted from Xuanzi's mouth. *PFF. He violently spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the ground before him red. Xuanzi's face instantly turned as pale as paper, and his aura withered to the absolute extreme. He would die. He would really die. Muzan had no intention of wasting words with him, his deep purple eyes remained completely flat. I will give you one more chance. His voice was still flat, yet it carried a heart-palpitating killing intent. Muzan's gaze swept over the black-robed figures kneeling nearby, before finally landing back on Xuanzi. Although this piece of trash had broken legs, he still had a rank 98 cultivation level after all. Compared to these useless subordinates, he was still much stronger. But that was all. If he refused again, he could only be crushed to death. Sensing the undisguised killing intent in Muzan's eyes, the aura of facing death unflinchingly that Xuanzi had just displayed instantly deflated like a punctured balloon, completely draining away. Fear once again gained the upper hand. As long as the green hills remain, there is no fear of lacking firewood. If he died here, then everything would truly be gone. And, since this Muzan was hiding here, he had to be plotting some earth-shattering conspiracy. And looking at this setup, this faction was definitely not to be underestimated. If he didn't get this information out, and if Shrek Academy wasn't made aware of this massive threat, wouldn't the Douluo continent suffer? Yes. He wasn't afraid of death. He was doing this to bide his time, to infiltrate the enemy's ranks and gather intelligence. It was for the future of all humanity, for the peace of the Douluo continent. Thinking this way, the guilt in Xuanzi's heart vanished instantly, replaced by a sense of mission called, bearing humiliation for a heavy responsibility. I agree. Xuanzi lowered his head and said in a weak voice. Muzan did not say much more, directly unleashing his spirit. Roar. A low dragon roar resounded, filled with a dark and evil aura. Behind Muzan, a pair of massive black dragon wings suddenly unfolded, blotting out the sky. Immediately after, Muzan casually reached out and sucked one of the kneeling black-robed men into his hand. Ah, cult master, spare me, spare my life. The black-robed man let out a shrill scream, but in front of Muzan, he had absolutely no power to resist. A cloud of black mist surged from Muzan's palm, instantly enveloping the black-robed man. In just a few short seconds, the black-robed man dissolved into a pool of bloody water, with not even a trace of bone remaining. All of his life essence was completely devoured by Muzan. Xuanzi watched with a racing heart. What kind of power was this? Just as he was still in shock, Muzan's massive black fleshy wings suddenly swept forward, completely wrapping around Xuanzi. In the next moment, a majestic surge of life energy poured into Xuanzi's body. The feeling was like a long-awaited rain after a severe drought. Xuanzi felt warm all over. His bones, which had just been crushed and broken, were healing at rapid speed, and the injuries to his internal organs were also recovering quickly. What shocked him the most was his legs. His 2 thighs, which had long been severed and devoid of sensation, actually felt a tingling numbness at this moment. Immediately after, bones grew and flesh was recast. In just a few short breaths, when the pair of black fleshy wings opened once more, Xuanzi was shocked to find that he had actually stood up. He moved his legs, that feeling of standing on solid ground almost made him cry. He had recovered. He was completely healed. Not even a single aftereffect was left behind. After the shock, endless resentment and anger closely followed. This Muzan's strength was definitely inferior to Bright Nguyen's. If even Muzan could do this, how could Bright Nguyen not? He could definitely do it too. But why didn't he help him? Why did he watch him become a cripple and suffer endless humiliation? Hypocritical villain. Xuanzi's heart burned with rage. He was filled with fury toward Bright Nguyen. This person was simply not his junior martial uncle. Refusing to save even one of his own. From now on, you are a member of the Holy Spirit cult. Muzan looked at Xuanzi, who had fully recovered, and said indifferently. Holy Spirit cult. Xuanzi's heart jolted. So this organization was called the Holy Spirit cult. On the surface, he respectfully lowered his head, concealing the coldness deep in his eyes. Yes. But in his heart, Xuanzi sneered repeatedly. So what if you healed my injuries? Do you really think I will sincerely risk my life for you? This old man is an elder of Shrek Academy. Just you wait, Muzan. Once I figure out your background and find an opportunity to send the information out. When that time comes, I will lead the great army of Shrek, a true army of justice, to flatten this place. And completely eradicate this bullshit Holy Spirit cult of yours. For the Douluo continent, for Shrek. Chapter 34, A Genius of 3 Months. This old man will have you surpass him in 2 months. Sun Moon Empire, Ming Capital, Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineer Academy. Looking around, there were tall buildings constructed from unknown metals, reflecting a silver-gray luster under the sunlight. Spirit Tool Testing Ground. This was an extremely spacious field, with the ground paved with high-strength alloy, and protective barrier generators capable of absorbing spirit power impact standing all around. Xiao Hongchen walked at the very front with his hands in his pockets and a proud look on his face, while Meng Hongchen followed light-footed Ly by his side. Behind them, the 3 brothers, Huo Yuhao, Huo Yuhao, and Huo Yu, were curiously scanning their surroundings. We're here. Xiao Hongchen stopped, raised his chin slightly, and pointed to a silver metallic tube-like object on the testing platform ahead. The object was about 1 meter long, with a streamlined design throughout, and its surface was engraved with some kind of complex and precise core array, faintly emitting heart-palpitating spirit power fluctuations. This is the newly developed stationary spirit cannon. Although it is only a class 4 spirit tool, its structure has been specially optimized. Xiao Hongchen casually picked up the cannon barrel as if he were picking up a toy. Its barrier of entry is extremely low. It only requires a 2-ring spirit grandmaster to inject enough spirit power to fire it through the conversion of the core array. Of course, if a 4-ring spirit ancestor activates it, they only need to consume a very small amount of spirit power to unleash its maximum power. As he spoke, Xiao Hongchen turned his head, his gaze sweeping over the 3 Huo brothers with a hint of provocation and showing off. Watch closely, this is the power of a spirit tool. Having said that, Xiao Hongchen propped up the cannon barrel with one hand and casually injected a stream of spirit power. Buzz. The core array on the surface of the cannon barrel was instantly lit up, emitting a low buzz. Immediately after, a blinding white light erupted from the muzzle, rushing toward a metal dummy 100 meters away with a screeching sound that tore through the air. Boom. A deafening roar resounded. Smoke and dust rose everywhere as hot waves rolled. As the smoke cleared, the pupils of Huo Yuhao and the other 2 contracted sharply. The upper body of that specially made metal dummy had completely disappeared, leaving only 2 charred metal legs standing there alone, with molten iron still dripping from the gut. Hiss. The 3 of them gasped in unison, looking at each other, seeing the shock in each other's eyes. The power was actually so terrifying. One had to know that Xiao Hongchen hadn't used any spirit ability just now, he had merely injected some spirit power. If an ordinary 2-ring spirit grandmaster held such a weapon, would they be able to cross levels and blast to death a 3-ring or even 4-ring spirit master? This simply subverted their understanding of spirit master combat. Spirit tools are indeed extraordinary. Huo Yuhao muttered to himself, a strange light flashing in his eyes. Right at this moment, an old and gentle voice abruptly echoed in the minds of the 3 brothers at the same time. Although this power relies on external objects, I have to admit that it indeed has its unique merits. The speaker was Venerable Yulai, who resided in Huo Yu's spiritual sea. His voice paused before continuing. Yuhao, although you 3 brothers share the same origin and your spirits are all eyes, your developmental focuses are actually different. Huo Yuhao has a calm personality and a heavy mental force, making him more suitable for the traditional control system power attack path. Huo Yu is agile and versatile, with excellent subtle control over mental force, suitable for scouting and agility attack. As for you, Yuhao. There was a hint of expectation in Venerable Yulai's voice. Your mental force is the purest, and you possess extremely strong analytical and calculation abilities. Among the 3 of you, you are the most suitable for developing along the path of spirit tools. Huo Yuhao was stunned for a moment. He pointed to himself and asked in his heart, me. That's right. Before Huo Yuhao could react, another majestic, domineering, and even somewhat arrogant voice exploded in his mind. It was King Yulai. Humph, what do you mean by suitable? Since you possess such uniquely blessed conditions, you must push them to the absolute limit. King Yulai's voice was filled with unquestionable pressure. That kid named Xiao Hongchen, though arrogant, does have some skill. But in this old man's eyes, he is nothing special. In reality, looking at their shocked expressions, Xiao Hongchen's vanity was greatly satisfied. He let out a light snort, brushed the hair on his forehead, and said with a pride that was hard to conceal. How about it, scared? Let me tell you, if you want to become an outstanding soul engineer, talent, effort, and resources are all indispensable. He extended a finger and wagged it in front of Huo Yuhao and the other 2. Back then, from the moment I first touched a spirit tool to becoming a class 1 soul engineer, it only took me 3 months. And this is already the fastest record in the history of the Sun Moon Empire. Xiao Hongchen tilted his head back, looking down at them through his nostrils. As for you guys, although grandfather arranged for you to come in, if you don't have the talent, you'd better give up on becoming soul engineers. Of course, you can still use spirit tools and whatnot. Hearing Xiao Hongchen's words, which were filled with a sense of superiority, Huo Yuhao actually felt quite admiring. After all, he had just witnessed the power of the spirit tool, which was indeed terrifying. Being able to become a soul engineer in such a short time was definitely very impressive. Right then, King Yulai's cold voice rang out in his mind once more, carrying a domineering aura of supreme supremacy. 3 months, trash. Yuhao, this old man will set a goal for you. 2 months, within 2 months, you must become a class 1 soul engineer. If you can't do it. King Yulai sneered, although he didn't state the consequences, Huo Yuhao felt his entire body shudder. His small face instantly slumped, filled with bitterness. 2 months, how is that possible? Although he had never touched a spirit tool, he knew that this field was vast and profound. Just engraving those core rays would make one's scalp tingle. How could he possibly learn it in 2 months? Yuhao, do not panic. Venerable Yulai's gentle voice sounded at the right moment, soothing Huo Yuhao's anxious heart. With the assistance of your spirit eye spirit, plus the guidance of this old man and King Yulai, 2 months is more than enough. This is not only a test for you, but also to let you master power as quickly as possible, so you can establish a firm foothold in this foreign nation. Hearing Venerable Yulai's words, Huo Yuhao and Huo Yu, who had been silent by the side, also walked over. Huo Yuhao patted Huo Yuhao on the shoulder, his gaze firm. Yuhao, don't be afraid, we believe in you. Huo Yu also nodded, although he didn't say much, his attitude was very clear. Looking at the trusting gazes of his 2 brothers and listening to the teachings of his 2 teachers in his mind, Huo Yuhao nodded. If he wanted to become strong, he had to break through his own limits. He could no longer allow himself to be bullied by others at will. All right. Huo Yuhao clenched his fists. I will definitely do it. Not far away. Xiao Hongchen watched as the 3 brothers suddenly started encouraging each other, and that kid named Huo Yuhao even had a hot-blooded look on his face. He couldn't help but let out a light sneer. Childish. He coldly evaluated in his heart. They really are 3 country bumpkins who have never seen the world. Did they think they could become soul engineers just by shouting slogans? When you actually get your hands dirty and face the tedious and repetitive metal polishing, and face those core rays as intricate and complex as a maze, you will know the meaning of despair. When that time comes, you will understand that this young master's genius is something you mortals will never be able to look up to even if you spend your entire lives trying. Xiao Hongchen shook his head, too lazy to dampen their enthusiasm further. In any case, reality would teach them a lesson. Right at this moment, Huo Yuhao seemed to recall something. He turned to look at Xiao Hongchen and asked. By the way, Senior Xiao, since we arrived at the academy, we don't seem to have seen Hall Master Hongchen yet. I wonder where Hall Master Hongchen went. Hearing this, Xiao Hongchen spoke as if it were a matter of course. Where else could he be except by that strange river? But that is none of your business. The task grandfather gave us was just to help you get familiar with the academy and then start your studies as soon as possible. The importance of that river was something anyone could see. After all, it was a river that could affect the entire layout of the Douluo continent. Chapter 35. Do ants like you even deserve to control this river? Sun Moon Empire, outside Ming capital. At this moment, this place was heavily guarded, and the air was filled with a murderous and oppressive aura. On the riverbank, several figures stood. Jing Hongchen slightly bowed, his expression respectful, as he was reporting something to an elderly man in front of him. That old man had silver hair and a hunched figure, yet was as steady as an anchor in a storm. He was none other than the head of the Sun Moon Empire's imperial ancestral shrine, the true controller of Minghao, the Silver Moon Douluo Deming, and also Jing Hongchen's teacher. Elder Gong, after repeated verification over this period, whether it is ordinary soldiers, or spirit masters with decent cultivation, or even death row inmates, as long as they jump into the river, the results are shockingly consistent. Jing Hongchen's voice was kept very low, carrying a trace of undisguised shock. If one guard jumps down, 3 guards will come up. We have tested this 13 times, and it is the same every time, and... He paused, pointing to several closely guarded duplicates with varied expressions in the distance. The first one to emerge from the river is the strongest, and their talent will also receive a terrifying boost. The second one to appear is second, and the last one to appear, which is the original body that jumped down, is actually the weakest of the 3. A sharp glint flashed through Kong Deming's turbid eyes, but he did not speak, only quietly listening. Jing Hongchen took a deep breath and continued. We have also tried testing with death row inmates. If they lie, that person will directly vanish, their aura completely disappearing, with a high probability of direct death. Jing Hongchen turned his head to look at the river surface, a trace of dread flashing in his eyes. After listening to this report, Kong Deming, who had been silent all along, still did not speak, only a look of contemplation surfaced within his eyes, which were as deep as a starry sky. Not far from them, Crown Prince Emperor Shu Tianren sat in a wheelchair. Although Emperor Shu Tianren's legs were disabled, a smile always hung on his face, and behind him, a guard was pushing the wheelchair. Beside Emperor Shu Tianren was an elderly man, who was none other than the old emperor. Although he was at death's door, with wrinkles on his face like withered tree bark, the imperial majesty of one who had resided in a high position for a long time still made people not dare to look him in the eye. Call Master Hongchen. The old emperor slowly spoke, his voice somewhat hoarse, yet carrying unquestionable majesty. Can this variable be completely controlled? If we throw the army of our Sun Moon Empire into it, can we create an invincible spirit master army? A fanatical light flickered in his eyes. 1 becomes 3. And their strength is even greater. If it could be applied to the army, wouldn't the Sun Moon Empire's dream of unifying the continent be within easy reach? Hearing the emperor's question, Jing Hongchen's face showed a bit of difficulty. Your Majesty, this matter is probably not that simple. Jing Hongchen gave a wry smile and explained. Currently, it cannot be fully utilized. The people coming out of the river have drastically different personalities, some become extremely greedy, while others become extremely brutal. Not everyone can be controlled by us. As he spoke, Jing Hongchen turned sideways and pointed to a dirt pit not far away. There, dozens of corpses were piled up impressively. Although these corpses were dead, their faces still retained distorted and mad expressions, making people shudder. Your Majesty, please look. Those are all failed products due to sudden personality changes, extreme lack of control, and carrying immense resentment, attempting to counterattack. For safety's sake, we could only annihilate them. The number is not small. Jing Hongchen sighed. Of course, there are also people with relatively stable personalities who can be utilized, but the proportion is not high. Hearing this, the old emperor tightly frowned, a trace of dissatisfaction appearing on his face. Too uncontrollable. He muttered to himself, his scepter heavily striking the ground. What we want is absolute obedience, not a bunch of madmen who could go crazy at any time. The old emperor abruptly raised his head, his turbid gaze staring fixedly at Jing Hongchen. That person in the river, can we make them serve us? As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding temperature seemed to drop by several degrees. Jing Hongchen's expression changed, and he hurriedly shook his head, recalling the created evil Xuanzi. That being never gives too much response to external probings. Being able to casually create such a terrifying powerhouse, and even playing the gluttonous Douluo of Shrek Academy in the palm of its hand, they are probably a deity. Offending such an existence brings no benefits to our Sun Moon Empire whatsoever. Fine cold sweat oozed from Jing Hongchen's forehead, he was truly terrified. That was an instinctive fear of unknown power. However, the old emperor was not scared off. However, the old emperor was not scared off. As the ruler of a nation, watching his lifespan come to an end and seeing the opportunity to unify the continent right before his eyes, his greed had already overwhelmed his reason. No benefits at all. The old emperor sneered, a trace of madness surfacing on his aged face. As long as we can control this river and master this power of creating powerhouses, even if it is a deity, we will make them bow their head. No matter what price must be paid, regardless of any means used, the Sun Moon Empire must completely control this river. This matter is not up for discussion. The old emperor's voice echoed along the empty riverbank, filled with arbitrary and despotic overbearingness. But your majesty. Jing Hongchen's brows were tightly locked, and he just wanted to speak out to dissuade him again. Suddenly, a drastic change suddenly occurred. A suction force terrifying enough to make one's soul tremble erupted from the void without any warning. Who is it? Kong Deming, who had been silent all along, drastically changed expression, silver light instantly erupting from his body as he wanted to make a move to block it. But he was fast, and that power was even faster. Even a powerhouse of Kong Deming's level failed to react in time. Ah! The old emperor only let out a short, muffled groan, his whole person as if gripped by an invisible giant hand, instantly breaking away from everyone's protection circle and flying rapidly forward. Slash! The sound of flesh tearing rang out. Only to see the old emperor's body suspended midair. And a pale, slender palm emitting dense black chi fiercely stabbed into his chest, directly piercing through his body and emerging from his back. Fresh blood dripped down along that palm, staining the earth below red. The old emperor widened his eyes, blood foam continually gushing from his mouth, his vitality rapidly fading in his eyes. Until his death, he still didn't understand what had happened. Noisy. A cold voice sounded. That palm violently flicked, and the old emperor's corpse was casually discarded to the side. Only then did everyone clearly see the attacker's appearance. It was an old man. When he saw his face clearly, Jing Hongchen felt as if his heart was fiercely gripped by a giant hand, almost stopping its beat. That face. Somewhat resembled Muan, but the aura between the brows looked like Xuanzi. This was none other than Muzan. Behind Muzan, two figures slowly walked out, precisely the holy spirit cult master Zheng Liwu and Xuanzi. Muzan slightly raised his head, those cold eyes sweeping across everyone present. Want to control this river? Just based on you, ants. Chapter 36. We ministers were just about to fight to the death. Why did the crown prince surrender first?